With over 50,000 words and 28 movies and short films, this will be the greatest video you will ever see. Today, I'll be delivering an explanation and recap of the Alien, Predator, and Blade Runner timelines. Everything will fall into chronological order and will start from 1719 and go all the way to 2381. All questions you have will be in the description below, including why Blade Runner is in this universe, and as always, enjoy the video. Prey begins with a woman telling a story of a monster coming to Earth. In the northern Great Plains in 1719, a woman awakens with her dog by her side. Naru, a wannabe hunter in the Comanche Nation, goes about her daily life in the tribe. Going deep into the woods, Naru begins training by tossing her axe repeatedly at a tree. Showing great accuracy and strength, she spots some tracks in the ground and has found her next target. Discovering a white-tailed deer, she is about to take it out when a loud sound scares the creature away. Chasing it down, the white-tailed deer flees for dear life when Naru catches up to it but misses her shot. Her dog begins whining just then, and Naru investigates to see it has been caught in a trap. Freeing the dog, she goes to have a look at the trap when another loud sound from the clouds comes out of nowhere. Going to have a look, she sees something breaking through the clouds and onto Earth. Some while later, Naru trains with her brother, Tabe, who is one excellent shot. Telling him that she is ready, Tabe tells her it is foolish to hunt something that is hunting her. Going back to the village, Naru doesn't really mix or mingle with anyone and heads straight to a tent. Meeting with her mother, Aruka, she helps her with some medicine for the chief's bad knee. Lecturing her daughter on why she has this obsession for hunting, Tabe walks in with the last kill he just made. Going off to grab something called orange tassia, the scene cuts to a ship flying away and dropping off a new arrival on Earth. The greatest hunter alive, named the Predator. With Naru grabbing the plant her mother asked for, she returns to the village to hear the tribal men preparing themselves as one of their own was taken by a lion. Going to find their comrade, the men walk through the woods with their spears and arrows at the ready. The last man suddenly stops and hears the predators clicking when Tabe stops him from shooting as Naru has followed them. With the others wanting Naru to go back to the village, Tabe convinces them otherwise, as she knows her medicine and may be of use. Quite near to the group, a snake finds its next prey and kills it. Knowing something is around, the snake is quickly killed by the predator who has a cloaking device on. The others in the meantime continue through the woods and find some lion poop. Knowing their target is very close, they discover their comrade who is alive but quite injured. Applying the necessary medicine on the wounds, the others make a makeshift stretcher, and all work is complete as night envelops the land. Tabe then tells the team to move along as he wants to hunt the lion, but Naru tells him that something scared the cat away from its own den. Not listening to her, he heads off with the team carrying their injured companion back to the village. The dog then starts barking as it found something and Naru goes to have a look. Finding the snake from earlier skinned and its blood all around the surrounding trees alongside massive track marks, Naru says she is going back to warn her brother, and one of the other men decides to join her. Quickly rushing through the woods, Naru begins to track down Tabe, but he finds her first and snuffs out the torches. Telling her brother of the skinned snake and the massive track marks she found, Tabe says they're in the lion's den now and need to focus. Finding its eating spot, Naru wants to bait out the creature and Tabe agrees and says it's time for her test. To tell the lion this is as far as it goes and to kill it, with Naru and the other man atop the trees waiting for the lion. She is being put on by the man for being a useless hunter when he is randomly ripped out of the trees and dragged away by the lion. The lion quickly turns its attention to Naru and pushes her back. A weird sound is then heard from the distance, and as Naru looks, she is pushed off the tree and knocked out. Some while later, she awakens in her tent and her mother says that Tabe carried her back home, not allowing her to return back to the lion's den. The villagers outside call out her brother's name and everyone rushes to see him returning with the lion dead on his shoulders. The village chief immediately gathers everyone around and promotes Tabe to become the war chief. Jealous of her brother's ascension in rank and his ability to hunt, Naru walks away while everyone celebrates. Finding her trying to leave, Tabe cuts her off and doesn't allow her to find the creature responsible for the snake's death. Tabe tells his sister he had to carry her back and doesn't want her leaving. The following morning, Naru is awoken by her mother and told to tag along with the women of the tribe. Not doing as they do, Naru wants to prove to everyone she is a hunter and will do so on her own. Traversing the great landscape with only her dog by her side, she finds her first clue. Measuring the size of the creature she believes is somewhere around, a scene cuts to the predator watching a wolf staring at its next meal. Chasing its prey, it almost catches it, but the predator beats him to it. Challenging the wolf, the beast doesn't run away and instead jumps at the predator, which problematically proves to be fatal for it. Screaming as it won yet another duel, the scene switches back to Naru, who can't even take out a bunny. Going back to practicing, it is quite surprising she isn't a spectacular hunter. Finally getting a kill, she makes food for herself and the dog. The next day, she continues through the empty plains when the scene yet again cuts to the predator spraying a weird substance on the wolf, leaving only its skull as a trophy. Cloaking itself again, Naru has no idea what she is going up against, but does find many dead buffaloes all around. While the predator goes through the forest looking for his next target, Naru does the same but loses her dog. Walking towards him, she sinks into the grass below and tries getting out. The predator, meanwhile, discovers Naru has placed multiple items on the buffalo's head and wants her to be the next target. As Naru slowly escapes the disgusting place she's in, she attempts to tie an axe with a rope on it on some trees. Sinking lower and lower, she eventually gets the job done and escapes the mud. After some time, the dog returns to Naru with some food. Soon enough, though, Naru and the dog spot a vicious bear feasting. The bear problematically looks around as it can smell more food nearby. Naru randomly breaks her weapon, causing the bear to immediately run at her. The dog decides to sacrifice itself and distracts the bear. This allows Naru time to fix her weapon, and she spots the beast and fires a shot only to miss. The bear chases her down and traps her behind a broken tree. Fighting for dear life, Naru is going to die when the bear stops and turns around. Going toe-to-toe with the predator, it makes him bleed and injures him. The bear then decides to run at the predator and is immediately killed. The predator grabs the bear and holds it above his head as another victory, with Naru quickly taking off downstream. With the current pushing her some distance away, she seems to have escaped for the time being. Walking through the woods, she hears a sound around her, only to find the tribal men saying her brother sent them to look for her. Finding out her brother is somewhere near the predator, she tells the men she saw a monster from one of their childhood stories, and they all laugh at her. Not believing her one bit, she goes to leave, but is physically stopped. Getting into a fight with one of the men, she gets on top of him and lays a couple punches and bites him before getting up. Getting dog-shotted and bullied by the men, the predator watches all this take place. Sitting Naru down and having a small break, one of the men goes to do his business and Naru hears the predator around. The man having a leak also hears something strange, and so do the other men. Getting their arrows ready, they all wait and only see a possum and laugh at Naru, going to show her she is crazy. The tribesmen quickly get scared when the predator aims its 3-lasered weapon on him. Getting shot 3 times and killed, the men are in disbelief as their enemy is invisible. One of the men, however, gets a lucky shot and hits the predator. With its cloaking device glitching and revealing itself, it roars, and the men stupidly decide to challenge it. Fighting it and holding out longer than I expected, Naru goes to free herself when one of her comrades is slaughtered. Another one of her people attacks the predator from the back and stabs its foot. Finally freeing herself, Naru witnesses another slaughter when the predator problematically looks at her. Sprinting for her life, the man that used the bathroom earlier grabs her and says to hide. With the thudding footsteps of the demon nearby, it can see heat signatures in the grass and aims his weapon at the duo, who barely manage to dodge it. Sprinting for their lives, the predator butchers the tribesmen, and soaked in blood, it chases Naru, who unfortunately gets stuck in a trap. With the predator right there looking at her, a couple of French hunters come out of nowhere and decide to knock Naru out. Awakening that night, Naru finds herself stuck in a cage with hundreds of Frenchmen nearby. Injured from the trap from earlier, the leader of the men turns around and taunts Naru. Mocking her, a translator approaches and asks about the predator. Surprised that they know about the demon, they explain to her that it is a hunter and they want it. Not wanting to help them, a second cage is opened and Tabe is taken out of it, cutting him up for a laugh. They place both Tabe and Naru as bait for the predator while they wait with their guns. Tabe decides to lighten up the situation and laughs at his sister for picking the universe's hardest predator as her final test. While the Frenchmen watch, the crew from behind them are slaughtered and the horses take off running. One Frenchman attempts to get away but is killed, and the predator has found his next 2 victims. Standing in the howling winds, he undoes his cloak and walks towards the duo. Naru smartly deduces the predator wants to hunt and doesn't want useless targets. The predator simultaneously steps on a bear trap and roars when Frenchmen appear from both sides and yank the chains to completely trap the beast. It retaliates, however, and uses its tech to annihilate the men and free himself. With brute strength and a shield that cannot be broken, the men stand no chance. Killing them off with perfect fashion one at a time, it slaughters whoever it looks at. With hundreds of bullets heading its way, it presses a device on its arms and Naru smartly grabs the trap and frees herself. With the alien climbing on the treetops, Tabe goes to get some horses when the men around see the predator drop a device on the ground. 3 objects then come out of it, and the men all die a painful death. Naru, in the meantime, sneaks her way into the camp and wants to rescue her dog. Spotting it is about to be killed, that decision ends up being fatal for all the men around as Naru hones in the training John Wick has taught her. Knowing exactly how to act when your puppy is threatened, she does well and stops the fight. Freeing the dog, she tells him to flee back home, and it does. Back at the battlefield, meanwhile, the predator is patching up his wounds and is ready for the next hunt. The translator from earlier then appears and tells Naru he needs medicine. Offering her his gun and how to use it in exchange, she accepts the deal and gives him medicine to lower his body temperature and his blood flow. Taking out the alien tech in the man's leg, she puts it in her bag and the Frenchman tells her exactly how to use his gun. Once the medicine kicks in, Naru leaves the man, and within seconds he attempts to run for cover but instead decides to play dead when the predator approaches. Discovering a blood trail nearby, the alien believes the Frenchman is dead as the medicine cooling his temperature down cancels out the heat signature. With Naru hiding behind a tree and watching, the man stupidly screams and is killed. Naru's dog then returns, and the lasers are pointed at it, but it is saved by Tabe. With the alien ferocious about losing its helmet, he targets Tabe but misses. Putting its gear back on, Naru sees an opening to use the gun, but it doesn't fire. Instead, she screams, causing the predator to turn and get stabbed by Tabe. Also shooting an arrow at it, Naru gets the gun ready as Tabe goes head-to-head with the beast. Going invisible, Naru joins her brother and they silently wait for an opening. Tabe tells his sister she needs to run, but it is too late and Tabe is stabbed. With the predator revealing itself, Tabe manages to injure the creature before his life is ended. With this diversion being enough for Naru to escape, she washes the blood off her hands and is distraught. Once her mother hears about her son's death, she becomes saddened and angry. But Naru isn't a quitter, and with her dog still alive and by her side, she sees a Frenchman still alive in the distance. Wanting to kill him, she stops herself and pulls out the alien's weapon from earlier. Knocking out the man, she waits with him until he recovers consciousness again. Screaming at the sight of losing his leg, he attempts to grab the gun in front of him when Naru says that he made her brother bleed and now he will bleed. Eating the medicine that cools down the body temperature, the predator's clicking sound is heard. Spotting the Frenchman with a gun in his hand, the beast approaches and walks past Naru. Deciding to kill the target, it butchers him with Naru simply watching him from behind. Aiming her gun at the predator, she gets a clean headshot before grabbing its mask and running away. Creating a trap and placing the mask there, the alien follows a blood trail and notices the trap. With Naru in the treetops, she jumps on the demon and stabs it repeatedly before being pushed off. The dog then runs onto the scene to save Naru, who is chased down. The alien then misses his shot and stabs a tree instead, and Naru makes it lose an arm. Still fighting on though, Naru is on the back foot and dodges the attacks and weapons of her opponent. Eventually, getting slammed on the ground, she pushes her head in between two rocks and uses the time to stab the creature again. With a demonic roar and last stand, Naru runs at the predator and both stabs its leg, then ties a rope around his neck to drag him into the mud to drown. This doesn't work, however, and the predator is one of the most feared opponents in the universe. Aiming its gun at Naru, the laser pointer on the mask is placed directly on its head, and after Naru says this is as far as you go, the predator fires its weapon only for it to divert from the path and blow its own brains out. Managing to get the hardest kill anyone in her tribe has seen, she returns back home covered in the predator's blood and also its head as a trophy. Showing the chief it was real and that the Frenchmen are nearby, she suggests moving. Everyone in the tribe begins chanting, and Naru has officially shown them all she is one hell of a hunter and the new war chief. Predator opens up with a spaceship flying through the stars and landing on Earth. In the Latin American country Valverde, a chopper lands on a beach with army personnel all around. An elite commando unit disembarks the chopper with the leader Dutch being escorted to meet General Phillips. Knowing each other from previous missions, the general explains that 18 hours ago a chopper holding the cabinet minister went missing. Apparently swaying off course into enemy territory, they are most likely in the hands of a rebel guerrilla group. Dutch then notices his old friend from the CIA named Dylan and goes to say hi.
You son of a... What's the matter? Had enough?
Make it easy on yourself, Dutch.
Okay. Now, what do we gotta do?
Dutch, the general's saying that a couple of our friends are about to get squeezed. We need the best. Simple setup. One-day operation. We pick up their trail at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages, and bounce back across the border before anybody knows we were there.
Once you reach your objective, Dylan will evaluate the situation and take charge.
With the mission officially kicking off, two choppers fly through the jungle and the men inside get prepped. With the heavy hitter Blaine listening to a beat, Mac alongside Poncho try to pick on Hawkins, who isn't as weak as he looks. Billy also gets into the zone, and with the helicopters almost at the rendezvous point past the border, there is going to be no backup, and this mission will be officially off the books. With the team having a laugh before they land, it is clear Blaine doesn't really appreciate Dylan tagging along. Arriving at the drop zone, both teams connect their cables and begin dropping to ground level. One after the other, the choppers take off, and now it's time for the real mission to take place. Going through the jungle, the commando unit know there may be enemy units nearby and find the cabinet minister's chopper stuck in the trees. Going to investigate, the men discover some blood inside as well as two dead pilots. Telling Dutch the chopper was stripped apart and that the enemies had technology beyond what was anticipated, Billy tells Dutch that 12 enemies took 2 people from the helicopter, but weirdly enough 6 men wearing US Army boots followed the hostiles. Dylan shrugs it off as another rebel patrol group, but something isn't right. Continuing through the forest, the men all do their part, with Billy tracking the hostiles and taking a small drinking break. Hearing something crack and move next to him, he goes to have a look and finds 3 skinned human bodies tied up on trees with vultures lurking around. Finding out they were US Marines, Dutch takes Dylan to the side and wants to know what the hell is going on. Dylan claims he doesn't know, as there was no operation happening on this side of the border. Confused as to why the guerrillas skinned the men, Billy tells Dutch what happened here was strange, as there was a firefight, but the men shot in all directions. The hostiles had no tracks though, and it doesn't make any sense, getting their weapons ready for a war. The men continue forward when we get to see that a predator is in the trees watching them. Dylan, the fool, accidentally slips and Mac tells him,
I don't care who you are back in the world. I'll bleed you, real quiet,
With the rest of the commando squad going prone and slowly staking out the area, they find the hostile squad. Seeing armed men and quite a lot of soldiers, one of the Americans are shot point blank and Dutch has had enough. Telling his crew that one of the hostages were killed, they need to make a move now. Splitting up into multiple groups, Blaine and Mac go to take out the hostiles watching over the base. Blaine notices some tripwires though, and Mac disarms the explosive. Taking out their first enemy combatant, Mac and Blaine kill off the men on the outpost. Dutch then silently makes his way to the base and smartly puts a bomb onto one of their vehicles, and pushes it in the middle of the base. Triggering it, then throwing more bombs, the shootout begins. The commando unit fire at will from all around and the enemies retaliate but are picked off one by one. Blaine uses some heavy artillery and Dylan also proves his worth. With bombs being fired at each hostile, they decide to try and escape in a chopper, but Dutch makes that impossible. Killing more enemies, Dutch deserves a medal as he just got a kill chain. With Blaine having fun and firing his machine gun, bullets do not stop and have been fired in the thousands. With the hostages in sight, Dutch kills 2 more men and orders his men to chase the rest of the enemies away. Hearing someone behind him, Dutch knocks out the person, only to reveal it is a woman. Mac then comes running in and tells Dutch the other hostage is dead, but he was a CIA agent, not a cabinet minister, and was being interrogated by Russian military advisors. Realizing he was lied to, the other men finish off the enemy troops when Dylan begins looking through the paperwork for something when Dutch grabs him and yanks him against the wall. Dylan reveals they just stopped an invasion and explains that his men were killed in the chopper, and they were trying to find this base for months. Dutch is dirty that his friend lied and had no courage and no honor. Hawkins calls Dutch and tells him air surveillance is showing guerrillas all over the place. Having half an hour to escape, Dylan demands they take the woman named Anna with them, as she can give them a whole nother network. What everyone is yet to realize as they pick their extraction point is that a demon waits in the trees and watches them. Hawkins then decides to go to Billy and tell a joke which causes him to laugh. The Predator listens to this, and Billy also realizes there is something around. With the Predator still watching, it makes its clicking sound and listens to the men's conversation and repeats their words before grabbing a scorpion that Mac had killed earlier. With the rest of the unit, meanwhile, they go a meter at a time. Moving through the enemy-infested jungle, this is not their territory or their ideal terrain. However, they go to a risky second extraction point site, the only place a chopper would dare to pick them up. Anna, in the meantime, decides to dupe Dylan and escape but is quickly apprehended. Threatened with her life if she tries it again, the crew all immediately stop their movement. With all of them noticing Billy is spooked by something, his instincts are never wrong. Dutch quietly approaches his commando with his gun on the ready and asks him what the problem is. Billy, not saying a word, just looks ahead, then says there is something in the trees. While the Predator watches, the men do the same and remain until Billy says it must be in his head. Anna then dupes the soldiers once again and goes sprinting through the woods. The men quickly give chase and so does the Predator. Soon enough, Anna is caught by Hawkins, who tells her to please stop when out of nowhere he is killed. The rest of the team run towards him when he is dragged away, finding Anna soaked in blood and a blood trail leading deeper into the jungle. They follow the blood tracks and discover the blood ending with only pieces of Hawkins. Asking Anna what the hell happened, she says the jungle came alive and just took him. With an argument breaking out, Dutch shuts them up and believes Anna as she did not run away. Realizing that something is there with them, Dutch demands his man's body to be found. With the crew doing a perimeter check in unison, Dutch runs into one massive snake. Calmly walking away, the team haven't thought to look up to find their comrade. But it wouldn't make a difference anyways as he's dead. With Blaine seeing some movement, he readies his gun only to find an animal when he is suddenly killed by unworldly tech. The others hear this and go running to the scene when Mac runs into the Predator. Leaving him alone, he fires at the alien and misses all his shots. Picking up Blaine's gun and firing, the rest of the troops all hold down the trigger alongside Mac. Using almost every single bullet in their arsenal, they practically destroy the entire forest in the process. Mac, still in shock, finally lets go of the trigger to see the mess they've made, quickly telling his comrades of the demon he saw. They see Blaine's injuries and are puzzled to say the least. Discovering no bodies in the carnage they made, Dutch realizes the situation they're in and wants to get on the radio, and wants Mac to go to a defensive position above the ridge. Anna in the meantime finds some of the Predator's blood and wipes it on her pants before walking away. With Mac setting up traps, he tells Dutch nothing will come close without them knowing. With Mac upset about losing his friends, he lays beside the corpse of Blaine and puts his comrade to rest. Anna's pants in the meantime is glowing green with the Predator's blood when the scene cuts to the Predator deactivating its cloaking device. Grabbing the necessary tools, it begins to patch itself up and close its injuries but roars when it hurts itself. With Dylan's extraction being denied due to the bogies nearby, they are told to retreat, and Dutch tells Dylan it feels bad to be betrayed. Mac then joins the group and tells them that no human being could have survived the amount of bullets and grenades they let off. The thing he saw must be something out of this world. Asking Billy why he was so spooked earlier as he fears no man, he tells them.
There's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't no man.
That night, Mac reminisces about the good old days with his fallen brother. Promising to slaughter the animal that done this, the team hear footsteps nearby and a trap goes off. It seems a wild pig made its way onto the scene and Mac mistakenly thinks it's the predator. Accidentally leaving the girl on her own, the crew run back to find her too scared to move. The crew then problematically discover Blaine's body missing and the predator seems to have passed through the traps undetected. The following day, the men come to the conclusion the thing chasing them is a hunter. Suspecting it is using the trees, Dutch goes to Anna and presses her for information only to be told it was like a chameleon. Also being told it was injured and bleeding, Dutch says if it bleeds it can die. Placing more traps around the forest again, this time they take the treetops into account. With Dylan complaining on how useless the new traps feel, he nonetheless helps. Once complete, the team all remains still and wait. Calming themselves down, Dutch is confident the creature will come through this passage as the surrounding area is covered with booby traps. With the team hearing something in the tree line but not seeing anything, the team dismisses it. But Dutch isn't falling for it and goes to inspect the sound. With everyone remaining still and silent, the intensity drops. And Dutch lowers his weapon just as one of the traps launches and catches the predator, who shoots itself out and hides behind a tree. Revealing itself for a split second for Dylan to see, Mac chases the creature and the rest of the team need to leave for the chopper. Dylan volunteers to save Mac and tells Dutch to escape. With one of the men injured, Dutch and Anna help him move as Mac stupidly chases the hunter. With Dylan right behind him, also looking for revenge for his fallen team, he can hear a voice telling him over here. Mac silently pulls Dylan into hiding and points to the predator's whereabouts. Dylan also gets excited and makes a plan to exterminate the monster. Silently walking one way while Mac walks the other, they both remain low and prone when the predator aims its weapon at Mac and puts his life to an end. Suspecting another man is around, it goes looking for him as the others quickly retreat to the chopper. Back with Dylan, I personally don't like his odds of survival, and once he sees his friend dead, the creature does its clicking sound to taunt its next target. With Dylan spotting the demon, he raises his gun to shoot, but the predator beats him to it and cuts his arm off. Getting up front and personal, the predator uses its close-range weapon and kills Dylan. Billy has had enough of this and tosses his weapon away. Ripping off his shirt and pulling out his dagger, he intentionally makes wounds, and the predator appears and sees him. His screams are then heard from the other men, and the alien suddenly appears and shoots their already injured comrade. With only Dutch and Anna remaining, Dutch fires away and gets shot but is still alive to tell Anna,
Get to the chopper!
Crawling, Dutch quickly gets back up and starts sprinting through the place. With the hunter watching and keeping up with him, he accidentally slips and falls a solid 20 meters down into some water. Continuing to go down a waterfall, Dutch fights to stay atop the water and miraculously swims to safety. Getting out of the water and onto the mud, a splash from behind is pretty bad news. With the predator hot on his tail, Dutch tries blending in with a fallen tree. As the alien emerges from the water and looks for its target, its suit malfunctions and turns off, causing Dutch to get a clean view of the predator who cannot see him. Spotting a rodent nearby that is quickly incinerated by the predator, it seems to have lost Dutch for the time being, who has coincidentally found its weakness. Later on, Dutch knows exactly what he must do in order to protect himself and avenge his fallen comrades. Making more traps all around the place, this time it will be different. Collecting the men's skulls as trophies for itself, the predator screams its victory for the forest to hear. Once night envelops the land, Dutch continues making things and has a makeshift arsenal ready for himself. As the predator watches over its precious possessions, Dutch completely rubs mud all over himself from top to bottom in preparation for this duel. As the moon is high and the night is young, Dutch initiates his war cry. Quickly realizing the challenge being put forth, Dutch intentionally lights a fire and climbs a tree to see where the predator will appear from. Waiting and watching, the predator finally makes its move and coincidentally walks directly next to Dutch and doesn't see him. With Dutch swinging away and remaining dead still, he isn't spotted and the mud seems to be working. The predator watches the fire and Dutch takes out his makeshift weapon and ignites an explosive that causes the predator to react. Realizing that he has to move as the creature has caught onto his location, it fires shot after shot until he jumps on the ground and hides behind some rocks. With the alien's technology partially damaged from the explosion, Dutch goes running and the predator finds some branches moving and follows. Coming directly above its target, the predator knows he is near. And I swear I wouldn't be breathing from fear if I was Dutch. Finding an opening to grab his next weapon and being ready for phase 2 of his plans, the last remaining soldier throws a rock, causing the alien to fire a shot and let off his position. Throwing a spear and hearing the predator roar, Dutch approaches to see its green blood on the ground. Slowly chasing the alien hunter, the blood glows in the dark so it isn't too hard to track. But walking right below the creature, he is almost spotted and killed until he causes an explosion as a distraction to jump into the water below. But that proves to be a big problem as the mud has washed off. With the predator easily finding and grabbing a hold of him, Dutch is held by his throat and inspected from one side to the next. Letting him go for some reason, the jungle hunter isn't just a hunter but a warrior who takes off his mask and wants to honor his hardest adversary with a fair fight. With Dutch seeing its face for the first time, he says,
"You one ugly motherfucker."
The alien, also known as a Yautja, shows off its strength. Starting the fight off by pushing its opponent around, Dutch knows he needs to run as he constantly gets beat up. Struggling to move or breathe, Dutch crawls on the ground to another one of his traps. With the predator playing along for the time being, it comes to ground level and notices something's up. Even when Dutch mocks it, it doesn't listen and smartly comes from around, but Dutch anticipated the creature's intelligence, and his trap works to perfection. Believing the fight is finished, he is dead wrong as the jungle hunter makes some noise. With Dutch planning on killing it, he sees it injured and covered in its blood. Showing it mercy as it showed him, it begins talking using its clicking sounds, then jumps on its device and presses buttons on it. Remaining still, it does one evil laugh, and Dutch gets the vibe that he needs to run, with the creature laughing quite ridiculously. A bomb activates in a massive explosion, even making the helicopter glitch. The general sees the explosion, and out of the smoke and wreckage comes out the last remaining elite commando, a warrior deemed fit for even the best hunters in the galaxy. And with that, the chopper arrives in time to extract him from what will be recorded as his hardest mission ever. Predator 2 opens into the bustling streets of Los Angeles, 1997, where the Predator stalks the city in its infrared eyesight. The city seems to be in chaos, with crime and violence running rampant. We are taken into a massive gunfight in the bare streets. A drug gang is having a full firefight with the police. The gang lands some shots and police are getting wounded by the second. The officers then begin to push through with armored shields, only to be blown to smithereens by a grenade launcher, causing the police back into a retreat. The drug dealers begin to celebrate, clearly winning this battle. Onlooking news crews begin to cry out to the world about the state of their city, saying that the Colombian and Jamaican drug gangs control the streets and the police have no power. At this time, a car speeds through, right into the war zone. Lieutenant Mike Harrigan exits the vehicle and pushes forward to the front line. He asks his fellow officers to cover him while he drives further into the gang. He creates another barricade further in, allowing the officers to take in the wounded. He and the cops also start landing shots, neutralizing some of the enemy forces. Mike moves around and flanks the gang with a machine gun and completely dispatches the rest of the group. All the while, the Predator is watching, just waiting to select a target. In a warehouse, the rest of the dealers are getting prepped for all-out war, with some very heavy firepower. As the police are about to go in, explosions and screams are heard from the inside. Mike and the team slowly move in and break through a door to find scared women and children. As they move out, one of the gang members bursts through a door, firing into it in absolute terror while hitting a cop. He walks onto the roof where Mike follows him and is shot at, but Mike is able to kill him quickly. Turning around thinking he heard something, he is unable to see the creature watching him closely. In the building, the gang is in a bloody and dead mess. Something killed them, and it wasn't the police. They've been cut into pieces and the police suspect it to be another rival gang. They look up, and when they see a body hanging from the ceiling, they all immediately scratch their heads wondering how he got there. They soon clear out and wait for forensics to do their jobs. Outside, Mike is being reprimanded by an FBI agent who berates him for going into the building when the FBI had ordered them not to. Mike says he had no choice and they were in a war zone. They get into a screaming match, and just then a helicopter lands and several suited agents come out with highly regulated equipment for a purpose Mike doesn't know. Back at the police station, it is swarmed with people who need help more than they can help. Mike goes to talk to the captain, who says Mike was in the wrong for disobeying the feds. He says Mike needs to play nice as they now have jurisdiction over this war on drugs. Peter Keyes, a federal agent in the DEA, enters the room, introducing himself. He explains they are doing everything they can and have many undercover agents to try and stop the gangs from invading the city. Mike goes to talk to Danny, who is still puzzled as to what happened to the drug dealers in the warehouse. Whoever killed them didn't use a gun and did not take any money or drugs. A person named Lambert comes in and introduces himself to Mike. He will be his new partner. Mike tells him that the city is in a war zone and there are no heroes in his squad, so be a team player. At this time, a group of dealers bust into a high-rise apartment and find a Colombian dealer and tie him up to the ceiling. The dealers say they work for King Willie, and he is the new king of the streets. They then pull out a knife and kill the Colombian dealer. But right then, 3 red dots point at one of the dealers and a laser is shot, killing him instantly. The remaining men all begin to open fire in panic, hoping they killed whatever shot him. However, the Predator is not dead and begins to attack back. He fires his weapon and begins to slash the dealers up, until their leader is left, who is then killed with spectacular fashion right on his head. The police soon arrive at the scene. Mike and the other police are ordered not to enter, but they disobey. They find swarms of bodies in the building, all mutilated, skinned and hanging from the ceiling. He says that the person who lived here was one of the biggest dealers in LA, who is also dead. Mike and the investigators are perplexed and have no idea what happened, but they find a survivor, a woman who can't stop repeating the devil came for them. They spot something that looks like a spear tip in the roof. Right when federal agents enter the building, Keyes, who is the leading federal officer, berates Mike for stepping in and says if he gets in his way, he'll make Mike go missing. Outside, Mike discusses with his team that he doesn't think they are DEA, but another government task force. The feds collect the survivor and take her to their own facility, not letting the cops speak to her. Mike suspects they are chasing something else and orders Lambert to follow Keyes, hoping to find what he's looking for. Later that night, Danny sneaks to the penthouse again, hoping to take a second look. He finds blood trailed across the floor, leading to the outside roof. He climbs out and, stuck in an air vent, he finds a weapon used by the Predator. He is suddenly shocked when he hears Mike's voice saying his name. Jumping back and falling down, the Predator catches him before he hits the floor. It problematically lifts him up and kills him without regard or mercy. In the police station, Mike is being reprimanded by the commander as they have found Danny's body and are saying it's his fault for sending Mike back there. They give him one last chance to fall in line or he's gone. Mike quickly leaves the office and, upon seeing Keyes, chases him down and pins him onto the wall. Violently shaking him, Mike tells him whoever killed Danny will suffer a terrible death as he has been with him for 15 years in the Force. Mike meets Leona and Lambert outside, who say they all need to work together to avenge Danny. Lambert says he followed them for 3 days and they were using equipment he's never seen. Lambert says he spotted them driving into the slums but lost them. In the headquarters, meanwhile, Keyes is setting up cameras and radar systems all over the city. Mike, in the meantime, alongside Lambert, visit the morgue when a woman there says Danny was skinned and boned like a fish. Mike hands her the little spearhead used by the Predator. She scans it and tells them it isn't on the periodic table and she can't find out what it is. As Lambert and Mike are outside, a car stops and King Willie's men say he would like to see Mike. He is soon dropped off in an alleyway, who is then met by King Willie. Mike says he wants some information on the one who is doing all the killings on both his side and their side. Willie says whatever it is, it can't be killed and is not human but a demon. Sending him a warning about the creature, the two part ways. When Mike leaves, Willie sees something fall from the roof, then an invisible predator jumps down into a puddle. It reveals itself to him, then decapitates him, collecting his skull as a trophy. The news begins to catch on to the killings, who attribute these gruesome murders to a psycho-vigilante. Mike's team warns him he was right next to Willie when he was killed, and fear Mike is being followed by this murderer. They are then contacted by the forensic scientist, who says at the penthouse traces of cattle and steroids were found. Lambert says he saw Keyes near a slaughterhouse when he was tailing him, and now they know his location. The Predator is still stalking Mike, though, who is visiting Danny's grave. It nearly kills a child but leaves him, realizing he isn't a threat. Mike walks back and sees a necklace that belonged to Danny hanging from a tree. He pulls his gun and scans the area in fear that something is watching him. Elsewhere, Lambert and Leona are on a train and find some gangsters robbing people. They pull their guns out on them and the gangsters pull back in return, causing a standstill when a loud thud can be heard on top of the train. The Predator crawls along the top of the carriage and busts through it and inside, where it begins to kill the gangsters and the cops. They open fire at it, and Lambert tells Leona to get the civilians and go. He begins blasting whatever it is as it kills people one by one. Lambert calls for the Predator's attention away from Leona and starts firing again. It begins to move toward him, unaffected by the bullets. Lambert pulls out a machete in fear when he runs out of bullets and leaps at the Predator in a final hurrah to kill it. The train stops, and as passengers leave, Leona goes back to the train car where Lambert was. Slowly scanning the area for the creature, her face is covered with blood and she enters the carriage, only to once again find people hanging from the ceiling. Not realizing the Predator is right behind her, he picks her up by the throat, and right when he is about to kill her, it discovers she is pregnant and spares her life. Mike quickly gets onto the scene and sees Leona being whisked away by an ambulance and is told she is pregnant and in deep shock. He rushes down to the train and into the carriage. He finds the captain, who is in shock from the scene, telling Mike how civilians and gang members were killed this time. He says he found Lambert's badge but has no idea where he is. Mike walks out the carriage and onto the track. He spots the Predator ripping Jerry's head off and it runs away. It goes onto the street while being invisible and steps onto the cars. The news team and civilians are perplexed and are extremely confused. Mike follows the creature in his car, who is now climbing the rooftops. While following, Keyes' men hit his car with their own and abduct him. They take him to their headquarters and Keyes begins to chat with him. He explains to Mike that the thing they are hunting is not human and is an alien. He shows him footage of the creature and explains it's been here before in Central America, where it killed a special forces team but was eventually stopped. Keyes says that when it was killed, it let off a bomb as big as a nuke, and he wants the technology the creature has. The federal team has learned to track the creature and are convinced he can see only in infrared. So they made a plan to make themselves invisible to the Predator and then freeze it. Keyes and his men move out, telling Mike to sit tight and watch him capture it. They go into the slaughterhouse where they know the creature will be. Switching all the lights inside to ultraviolet, they believe the Predator won't be able to see them. Entering the area and slowly moving in, they creep towards the Predator, who knows it's being watched. It stops and stalks them from above, its infrared vision being disrupted by the UV light. It begins changing the settings on its visuals and is able to see the light emanating from the guns. They detect it moving around them now, and Mike tells them they need to get out of there as they've been made. He gets on the comms with Keyes and warns him and tries to leave and help them, but is stopped by the agents. But he pulls out a gun and commands them to open the door and let him out. Keyes and his team turn their safeties off and begin to panic, unable to get a read on where it is. It leaps right on top of them and spears two agents. They open fire as the creature begins to kill them one by one. Meanwhile, Mike takes out an M16 with a grenade launcher and goes to join the men. The Predator takes out its energy beam and blasts another agent, leaving only Keyes alive. It slowly walks toward him, getting ready to make its kill when Mike explodes through the door with a grenade launcher, calling the creature to come and face him. It kills Keyes and runs out to challenge Mike. Outside, the rain disrupts its cloaking ability and Keyes begins to open fire on it with his rifle, hitting it in the shoulder and dismantling some of its equipment. He moves back inside and fires a grenade at it, while it fires a blast as well. Mike is hit in the vest and the grenade misses its target. Running through the warehouse injured, the Predator runs behind him and closes in to make the kill. He turns around when his back is on the wall, pulls out a shotgun and blasts it in the leg, chest, and all over. Falling back, it lays there motionless, and Mike approaches it slowly, hoping it's finally dead. He takes off its mask and peeks upon its grotesque face, where he begins to call it ugly. The creature suddenly wakes up and lifts him off the floor to throw him. Destroying Mike's gun, it approaches, and Mike is unable to move and is about to be killed when suddenly Keyes comes up and fires his nitrogen gun at it. It backs off and he tells Mike to leave, and that this fight is between him and the Predator. Keyes chases after it and it throws a disc which instantly kills Keyes. Mike gets up and runs to the rooftop. He takes out his pistol and slowly moves around the area. The injured Predator is on the roof with him though, where it regains its gear and moves around to intercept him. It throws its spear and Mike dodges it, firing a couple shots in its direction. Mike then runs, grabs the spear and tackles the Predator off the roof. They fall onto a ledge and the Predator hangs off, grabbing Mike's arm. It opens a piece of hardware on its arm and is preparing to let off a bomb, but Mike finds the disc weapon the Predator uses and chops off its arm. Destroying the bomb with mere seconds left, it falls all the way down and smacks into a nearby building but is still alive. Mike goes to follow it by sliding down a pipe, but it treats itself by burning its decapitated arm and letting out a giant roar for the intense pain. Mike spots it and begins to make his way to the apartment house it's in. He gets in and it runs away down an elevator shaft. Mike grabs the elevator rope and jumps down following it. He falls down a hole it has cut and finds himself on its ship. Moving around with the Predator's weapon in his hand, he finds its trophy room where it is seen to have killed many creatures. Just then it fires a net on Mike, who quickly cuts himself out. The Predator shows itself once again and the duo begin to clash blades in a fierce fight. It slices Mike across his torso and he shrivels onto the floor. As it is about to make its final move, he thrusts the disc deep into its chest, causing the Predator to scream in pain as he rips it out and falls. Mike gets close to it, confirming that it is dead once and for all. As he moves away, 3 red dots are placed onto his head and more Predators reveal themselves, about 8 of them fully surrounding him. He jokingly tells them who's next while dropping the disc and accepting his fate. They each look to each other, taking the body of their fallen comrade, and one by one they all go invisible. The leader turns and looks Mike in his eyes, and he grabs a weapon from his belt and hands it to Mike.
Take it.
Handing him a human gun from the 1715s, the Predators let Mike be and the ship goes to take off. Mike runs out the back and jumps out just in time to avoid the explosive engines from incinerating him. He slowly begins to walk out the tunnel, his body injured and covered in ash. A helicopter spots him and lands with an agent coming out and seeing Mike bloody and injured. The agent becomes angry, knowing they missed their chance to capture alien technology. Mike just smiles at him, saying they'll get another chance as the movie concludes. Alien vs. Predator opens up in Antarctica in 1904 with a small village, looking quite dead and desolate. A man runs for dear life and hides inside a building. Within seconds, a Predator uses its vision to aim its gun at him when a xenomorph appears and attacks. The scene then cuts to a satellite slowly drifting through space. This satellite, owned by none other than Weyland Corporation, sits on the low Earth orbit in 2004. At Silverleaf, Nebraska, a Weyland Industries tracking and data relay station begins receiving some unusual readings, finding an unidentified heat signature in a supposed abandoned area. Elsewhere in Nepal, environmental technician Alexa Woods is scaling a mountain when she receives a call from Maxwell Stafford, a man representing Weyland Industries, offering to fund the foundation she is associated with if she meets with him. She says she needs a week to get back but finds him already waiting for her with a chopper. In Mexico, meanwhile, the entire village rush over to an archaeological discovery. With Sebastian de Rosa looking for something, he instead finds a soda bottle cap. His boss is disgusted from his employee and tells him his team is fired. Not giving up, Sebastian tells his assistant Thomas Parks that he'll go get some more money. Out of nowhere, Maxwell appears and says he could be of service. With the Weyland helicopter flying to the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica, the new team alongside chemical engineer Graham Miller wants to document this field trip for his 2 kids. With Alexa having some small talk with Graham, they pass the point of no return or the point of safety and the chopper heads to the icebreaker, which is traveling to a classified location. Upon landing and linking up with some of the other crew, Graham decides to mess around with a forklift when a mercenary named Mark tells him to f*** off. Soon enough, Maxwell calls the entire team to have a seat and introduces them all to the big boss, Charles Bishop Weyland. He explains to everyone that 7 days ago, one of his satellites over Antarctica suddenly discovered a heat bloom below the Earth. He shows them the exact image the satellite captured, and they have created a rough 3D image to find a massive structure with hundreds of rooms. With experts saying it's a pyramid, no one knows who built it or when. Sebastian quickly jumps up and says the pyramid resembles elements from the Aztecs, Cambodians, as well as the Egyptians. thinking that Antarctica must have been a habitable continent once upon a time. Weyland mentions he doesn't know what caused the heat bloom. He also says the pyramid is 2,000 feet below the ice, and Alexa immediately says she needs at least 3 weeks to prep the team for this type of mission. Weyland tells her there are other people and corporations looking into this, and he wants them to immediately head off, causing Alexa to quit and walk away. Sometime later, Maxwell enters Alexa's room and says the money has been funded to her account and they have a new guide named Murdoch. Alexa immediately goes to Weyland and says he isn't fit for this type of mission, but he nonetheless plays the nonchalant psychopath card and both gaslights her and uses reverse psychology. But Alexa doesn't respond and heads outside to look at the beautiful sky. Her companions join her and they all have a deep and interesting conversation where the two of them ask Alexa to reconsider leaving. She is then told the helicopter is refueled and ready to go. In space, meanwhile, a very peculiar ship, something outside of this world, flies to Earth, and we get to see that a predator is on its way just as it shoots a beam of light at Earth. Back at the boat, meanwhile, it seems Alexa has decided to stay. She tells the entire crew she is laying down 3 rules: to not go anywhere alone, to maintain constant communication, and to not be a hero under any circumstance. With everyone acknowledging her request, she spots another mercenary, Adele, packing a gun for the mission and is a touch confused. With the mission officially underway and the equipment deployed, Alexa discovers Sebastian holding onto the bottle cap he found earlier and finds it amusing. Once the crew arrives at their location, they look off the cliff face and light up a flare to find the abandoned village from earlier. With the pyramids directly beneath it, Weyland Corporation start their drilling. With Maxwell, Weyland, and Graham having a look around, Graham disobeys the first order and decides to go off on his own. Sebastian and Alexa find whale bones, and Alexa mentions this villager's population disappeared overnight and no one knows how. Back with the moron who wants to venture around a demonic town on his own, I'd suspect he's filming his field trip for his kids as he doesn't want them knowing how stupid he really is. Hearing something around him, he is startled by Alexa, who tells him do not go anywhere alone. Soon enough, the team all gather around and find a tunnel-like shape heading straight to the pyramids. With it being a perfect 30-degree angle the whole way down, Weyland mentions the tunnel was not there yesterday. The team know there is no gear that powerful in the entire world, but Weyland wants them down there immediately. What the team are clueless about, though, is how a predator watches them and prepares itself for an encounter. After some time, Alexa discovers that Weyland isn't as healthy as everyone believes, but he denies everything. With Alexa not believing him, he makes sure she understands that when death is near, you begin to value life, and once again uses some of that business-minded narcissism and manipulation to let himself back on the voyage. Within minutes, the team gets to work and begin making their way down the rabbit hole. Going quite some distance, a storm approaches the base, and problematically, Weyland's line snaps and he begins falling downwards. Looking like he's about to die, Alexa thinks quick and saves him by using her tools. The predator in the meantime approaches the base and flies past undetected. 3 pods are then shot from the ship, and all 3 land on the ice below, and this is where the fun begins. The team led by Alexa finally arrive at the point of entry. With the flare active, Weyland is confused as he expected another corporation to be down there, but it's empty. Once they turn on all the lights, they finally see the grand structure for the first time. Weyland is beyond happy and tells his crew it's time to make history. Walking into the pyramid, the walls depict 2 of the deadliest species in the galaxy, an alien and a predator. Continuing through the place, one of the men accidentally steps on a tile that sinks and causes a chamber below them to open up. Out comes a massive queen alien that is hauled out and electrocuted. This awakens the creature, who seems to have been trapped and frozen for quite some time. The team meanwhile discover writing from the Cambodians, Egyptians, and Aztecs. Finding a passage saying only the chosen ones may enter, they do so. Back outside, one of the men has his gun raised and can hear something nearby. The predator on sight kills him, and his scream attracts the attention of his comrades, who also receive the same fate as him. The predator isn't messing around, and one of the men quickly runs for his life. Spotting his men hanging dead and upside down, he puts a few bullets into the predator, who deactivates his cloak and challenges him. Towering over him, he hits him down the rabbit hole. Falling downwards, 3 predators reveal themselves, and let's just say everyone is Back inside the pyramid, the team come across corpses laying down on tables. Sebastian explains this is the sacrificial chamber, and whoever built this pyramid believed in sacrificing a chosen one. But what's weird is that the deceased had no bounds and died willingly. Graham examines a corpse on the wall and discovers that the skull and spine were removed in one piece. The team then hear a small scream coming from the catacombs, and Graham believes it's just air moving through the tunnels. Seeing the hundreds of skulls in other rooms, one room is surrounded with so many, but Sebastian is then jump-scared by a facehugger landing on the floor beside him. Being dead for many years, the crew have never seen anything like it before. With the chosen people having messages saying they gave up their lives for the hunt to begin, everything about these pyramids are freaky, and Adele tells Thomas something is wrong as the bones are bent outwards from the body like something killed them from the inside. The alien queen meanwhile begins its disgusting and dirty process of laying eggs. Being chained up and not able to move, it decides its best course of action is for its kitties to help it. Simultaneously, Maxwell finds a shaft to another level and knows there's another room down below. The mercenary that fell through the rabbit hole earlier awakens only to discover he has a few seconds left of his life. The team in the pyramid decide to split up, with some investigating the new rooms and some staying to catalog their findings. The first team stand directly below the first chamber and find a sarcophagus, with there being a weird combination lock beside the Aztec calendar. Sebastian reads the date to be 1904, exactly 100 years from their date, inputting their current date, which is October 10, 2004. The sarcophagus opens. Not really understanding what is going on, Sebastian cannot believe his eyes and finds 3 weapons. Weyland suddenly begins coughing and Alexa checks up on him. She then tells the group it's time to get back to base and they'll resume their search the next day. Maxwell laughs at her as he is staying right here, but Weyland tells them all to listen to Alexa but to bring the devices. As Maxwell stupidly rips them out, Sebastian tries to stop him but he doesn't listen. And this tragically puts the pyramid into a lockdown. The Predators quickly activate their cloaking devices and run in as all groups are trapped inside, realizing that the doors weigh a minimum of 2 tons and is impossible to move. Adele and Thomas are in serious trouble though, as facehugger eggs reveal themselves. Spotting movement inside the eggs, the hatches begin to open and facehuggers all come out and simultaneously jump on every human in the room. Their screams are heard by the others and Alexa wants them all to leave. Maxwell tells her it's time for him and his crew to do their jobs. With the Predator closing in on their location, a stairwell reveals itself in all the chaos and the group have no choice but to go through. Graham tells Weyland the heat bloom they detected must have been by a generator or energy source, as this structure is very complex. On the level above them, Adele startles awake and sees the facehugger next to her. With her teammates in serious trouble, her chest begins to hurt her. Within seconds, an alien begins popping out and she brutally dies. The Predators in the meantime decide to split up. Maxwell and his group then see a massive statue for the Predator and see the weapon they discovered on its shoulders. With the humans of the time worshipping the Predators, the group has been found by one who sees them carrying its weapon. One of the mercenaries are grabbed from behind, causing the crew to get into alert mode. The Predator then appears and kills another mercenary. The group retaliate in response, but the ground and walls around them begin moving. The Predator leaps away and the group has no choice but to try and escape. A mercenary is tragically trapped beneath the floor as Graham is trapped with another. The rest of the team are also stuck but at least have each other. The lone survivor begins shouting for some help and falls into a lower level. Hearing something around, he gets his gun ready but is quickly caught off guard. Back with Graham and the other mercenary, they don't have much hope but know they need to move. Weyland meanwhile discovers that the weapon his dead man was carrying is still in good condition, but Maxwell isn't too happy that Weyland isn't mentioning their dead soldier. Sebastian says the Aztec calendar was based on multiples of 10 and believes the place will move around every 10 minutes and is correct. Walls and doors begin opening and closing, including that on Graham's side. Believing them to be rats in a maze, Graham as well as the mercenary take off with Maxwell also leading his team to safety. With Graham and his companion, the two get somewhat separated, with the mercenary finding his dead comrade's gun covered in slime. Hearing something and rushing back, a trap door opens and he hurts himself and falls to another level, and Graham promises to help him out. The soldier then craps his pants when he realizes he is not alone. Aiming his gun and swearing at the aliens beside him, he is tragically killed, and Graham hears the ordeal. He then sees an alien in the distance who charges at him and makes him disappear in seconds. While all this happens, Maxwell leads the other troops around as Weyland drops the Predator's weapon from his illness. Picking it back up, he places the device in Alexa's bag with 2 Predators watching. With one going cloak, the other fires a net to trap Maxwell. Locking him, the others attempt to cut him free, but the Predator approaches them and launches them all away before putting a spear through Maxwell. The second Predator then reveals itself by kicking Alexa, and let me tell you, they're all fucked. But to Alexa's astonishment, an alien comes from behind and stabs the Predator. Lifting him off the ground, the xenomorph goes face to face with its adversary and kills it. The other Predator sees what just happened and has a brutal combat with one of the deadliest creatures of the galaxy. While the two are distracted, the team escape and the alien is kicked away. Going for round 2, both specimens do not disappoint, and the Predator, the greatest hunter, manages to injure the greatest prey there is by smacking it on all surrounding walls, then tossing it away. It shoots toxic acid at him, however, and he is forced to remove his armor. Looking for the creature, it seems to have disappeared. With the Predator slowly looking around, the xenomorph is above him, and launches only to be trapped in the net that shrinks in to badly wound its prey. The Predator takes out a weapon to end the beast, but it manages to escape and kill its adversary before screaming for all to hear its accomplishment. The 3 remaining survivors take a break when Weyland begins to panic. With a Predator near, it comes into view and Weyland orders Sebastian to save Alexa. Grabbing her and leaving, Weyland tries stalling the Predator, but it grabs him and scans his body to reveal he is very, very sick. The Predator lets him be, but Weyland creates a fire and fires at the Predator, who refuses to show him mercy after that stupid move. Sebastian tries calming Alexa down and they both continue to the exit when their conversation is heard by the alien who just wants its stupid weapon. Once 10 minutes hits again, the walls and temple begin changing and the duo just manage to escape their pursuer by milliseconds. The last remaining Predator is then pounced on by a facehugger, which is cut in half. A xenomorph also approaches from behind, but its head is separated from its body. With the Predator removing its helmet, the two humans have a peephole where they see the Predator using the dead facehugger's acid to mark itself. Sebastian says that's what ancient warriors would do for rite of passage. Just as the two turn around, a facehugger leaps to capture the Predator. Sebastian quickly realizes that the entire place is a manhood ritual, a way for young predators to prove they are worthy of being adults. Making sense as it had no guns to begin with, they have to earn them. Reading the story on the walls, it says that thousands of years ago, the hunters found Earth. They taught humans how to build and were worshipped in return. Every 100 years, the predators would return and expect a sacrifice for their arrival. Humans were used to breed the ultimate prey, and the hunters would battle with their greatest adversaries and prove themselves worthy to carry the mark. But if the hunters lost, they made sure that nothing survived, and an entire civilization was wiped out over one day. It seems the heat bloom was assigned to lure the humans down to be trapped and breed the alien creatures. And just like they explained, Graham awakens to find some of his comrades alive but trapped to facehuggers. With him about to share a similar fate, he sees a gun stuck on the wall and grabs it just in time to kill the facehugger and save himself. Just kidding though, he didn't save himself and is completely f***ed when he runs out of bullets. Sebastian and Alexa are also f***ed when they discover that if one door opens, they are dead. Alexa says when that door opens, she plans to use the Predator's gun. Sebastian's watch then beeps for another shift in the temple. A door opens and Alexa says let's go find their friend. With the Predator still alive and quite near, the duo hear movement around and see the alien beside them. They go sprinting and quickly get to a broken bridge to which they both jump over. But Alexa doesn't clear it and almost falls over the edge until Sebastian grabs her. But the alien suddenly appears and drags Sebastian away. Alexa slowly gets up, and now she must consider herself to be the lone survivor of this expedition. Bravely continuing through the place, she is discovered by the Predator who just watches her. When she sees him, it pulls out its spear and she tells it to wait. Slowly taking off her backpack with its weapon, she tosses it over to him just as an alien xenomorph appears and attacks him. Going to attack Alexa, she grabs the spear from the ground and stabs the creature. It tries fighting back, but it eventually succumbs to its wound and dies. The Predator, finally attaching his gun to himself, spots multiple aliens around and kills them one by one. The Queen then calls her babies back to her and they retreat. With the Predator retrieving its spear and walking away, Alexa says it's joining him, but he doesn't look too happy about that idea. But upon noticing that she killed an alien, he removes its head from its body and begins using its corpse to make a spear as well as a shield that doesn't burn from the acid. He hands them over to Alexa, who joins him in this upcoming battle. The Queen meanwhile screams at its children to free her from her captivity, and they shoot their acid to help. With the duo searching the place for their prey, Alexa comes across the facehugger room. Seeing that Graham was killed from the inside out, she picks up his pistol and starts hearing noises around. Discovering Sebastian latched onto the wall, already impregnated by the facehugger, the Predator goes to kill him, but Alexa stops him. With Sebastian saying to kill him, Alexa aims the gun at him and shoots him dead. The Predator is quite impressed and kills off the baby alien, and downstairs, the Queen officially releases herself from her captivity and starts running to kill the duo. Noticing that all the facehugger eggs are about to open and that they're in deep trouble, the Predator activates his bomb and tells Alexa his plan. Throwing it onto the eggs, the two take off running for the exit and quickly make it to the exit shaft. The Predator is then jumped on by an alien, and thanks to Alexa's quick thinking, she kills it. However, there are many more aliens after her, and she alongside the Predator quickly escape on the shaft as the bomb detonates and causes the entire base to explode. Being seconds away from the duo, they just barely make it out of explosive range but keep on running. The ground beneath begins to sink in, and as they try to put distance away from the danger zone, they both manage to do so at the last second. Staring at the massive hole they just made, the Predator takes off its mask and screams at Alexa. It grabs one of the alien's body part and wants to mark her, and she agrees. Putting a touch of acid on her face and marking her, the two are shocked when the Queen arises from the ground. Shooting two blades at it, the Predator slices up the bitch until he is pushed away. With the Queen about to kill its hunter, Alexa steps in to save him. The creature, now angry, roars and runs to kill Alexa, who smartly hides. Giving her an extra few seconds to think of an escape strategy, the Predator stabs the creature through its eyes. The duo then grab one of the chains and tie it to the falling building, but the Predator is stabbed through the chest. Alexa doesn't give up and yanks the building over the edge, causing the Predator to be released and the alien Queen to fall off the edge into ice-cold water and into its death. Alexa quickly rushes over to the Predator, who says its final words, then dies. With Alexa by its side, a massive ship cloaks itself alongside hundreds of Predators. When they see she is marked, she realizes they too are marked. Carrying their fallen youngling on the ship, Big Daddy as I like to call him, hands Alexa one of his weapons to commend her skill before getting into his ship and flying away. Alexa makes her move to return home, and the Predators also do the same but miss one thing, that their fallen youngling was impregnated by the Queen and they have a xenomorph on board. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem starts off with the same Predator ship leaving Earth and a predallion popping out of the youngling's chest. With the ship flying past Saturn, a smaller ship disconnects from the main one. Inside, multiple Predators have quite a lot of facehuggers trapped, but they are unaware to their extra passenger who begins killing them off. One of the Predators begins firing, but the spacecraft crashes back onto Earth in a forest outside Gunnison, Colorado. Two hunters, including Sam as well as his father Buddy, go to investigate the crash and cannot believe their eyes. With the facehuggers escaping captivity and escaping the ship, the Predator activates a distress call when it is killed. The two hunters attempt to flee and stop when they hear something around them lurking in the bushes. Buddy manages to kill a facehugger but loses an arm from the acid, then gets jumped on by another. When Sam has a look, he too loses his life and is caught off guard. Back on the Predator's home world, a distress call is sounded. One of the highly elite Predators sees the problem and is ready for war. Grabbing his helmet and weapon, he immediately takes off for Earth. On Earth, meanwhile, the county sheriff Morales picks up an ex-convict named Dallas. Being fresh out of prison, the sheriff offers him a ride and wants to give him a lecture about life. Asking him if he regrets what he done, a stone-cold Dallas tells him no. The scene then cuts to Dallas's younger brother Ricky working as a pizza deliverer. Going to his first delivery for the day, he knocks on a house to see the girl he likes, Jessie. Her current partner, a bully named Dale, doesn't like Ricky's demeanor. In the kitchen, Jessie tells Ricky she's getting ready to fire Dale, hinting she may be open to candidates quite soon. Once Ricky leaves, Dale decides to put a few blows into Ricky, who lays on the ground. Chucking his car keys down the drain, Jessie watches in disbelief but leaves Ricky alone. Back at the forest, a local officer, Deputy Ray, finds a homeless man named Harry hanging out in the sewer system. Saying he is going to take him in, Harry's dog finds Buddy's torn-off arm and the deputy calls it in. Within minutes, Morales arrives on the scene and finds Buddy's truck. With the forest being so big, Sam lies unconscious on the ground but awakens alongside his father. Soon enough though, Buddy is killed from the inside out and Sam also suffers the same fate. Back in town, a Marine named Kelly returns from deployment to be reunited with her husband Tim as well as her daughter Molly. Ricky in the meantime returns home to find Dallas there. Not wanting to talk as he wants some revenge for what Dale done to him, Dallas takes the bat off his brother and offers to help find the keys. Once night hits, the homeless man Harry drinks with his friend. But what they don't know is that a facehugger lurks around and pounces on Harry's friend while another rushes in and latches onto Harry. Another homeless woman soon arrives to discover the horrific scene, but problematically an alien emerges from the water. Approaching the woman, she screams for life but is brutally killed. In space, the Predator launches a small shuttle that lands in the forest. With the Predator revealing itself, it scans the area looking for the crashed ship. Finding something, he runs into the forest and begins investigating the crashed spacecraft. Having a look at his comrades' corpses, he removes one of their helmets as well as his own. Placing the other helmet over his head, he gets to see a recording of what took place on the ship, and he is not happy with what he just saw. Taking all the weapons and important items from the spacecraft, he makes sure to not leave any trace of the ship and blows it up. At home, Molly refuses to go to sleep when Kelly tells her to. Kelly tries reading her a bedtime story, but Molly insists that she wants her father to read it instead. Feeling a bit disheartened, Kelly kisses her daughter goodnight and heads back to her room. Tim, noticing Molly's reluctance, gently reminds her that it's okay to admit she missed her mother. Afterward, Kelly thanks Tim for doing such a great job with Molly during her absence. Meanwhile, outside Jess's house, Dallas follows Ricky down into the sewer to search for his lost keys. They make their way to the drain, hoping to find them there. As Ricky looks around, he suddenly spots an alien, but he's not sure what he saw and tries to brush it off. He continues searching and luckily manages to find his keys. In the forest, Buddy's wife Darcy arrives with two men to look for her husband and son. They begin their search, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. After a while, the police intervene and decide to halt the search. Morales suggests that Darcy go home and rest as it's getting late. Unbeknownst to them, the Predator has already discovered Buddy and Sam's bodies. He uses acid to destroy their remains, along with some of the dead facehuggers. While doing this, the Predator hears Ray's radio crackle and activates his cloaking device. Chasing Deputy Ray, he ultimately catches up to him and kills him. The next day, Darcy continues searching for Buddy and Sam. Their disappearance is now all over the news, leaving the residents of Gunnison in fear. Dallas meets Morales at a diner and asks about Buddy and Sam. The sheriff explains that they called off the search at 2 a.m. Overhearing their conversation, the waitress Carrie becomes worried about her husband Ray. This prompts Morales to return to the forest with another officer to look for Ray. Sadly, they discover Ray's flayed body hanging from a tree branch and take it back for examination. Dr. Lennon, puzzled by what happened to Ray, tells Morales he's in over his head when the sheriff notes there were no tracks in the forest. Despite this, Morales is determined to solve Ray's case. Back in the forest, the Predator tracks the aliens to the sewer system and destroys the bodies of their victims. Spotting the aliens, he tries to eliminate them all, but some manage to escape. Enraged, the Predator follows them to the surface and turns invisible again. The next day, Jessie invites Ricky to go swimming with her, mentioning she has broken up with Dale. Once night hits, Carrie prepares to leave work and hears a noise from the kitchen. She goes to inspect to see her boss being devoured by an alien. Before she can react, she is cornered but left alive for the Predalien. In a local bar, Morales informs Dallas that they found Ray's skinned body in the woods. Dallas wonders if Ray's death might be connected to Buddy and Sam's disappearance, but Morales isn't sure what to make of it. Just then, Morales gets a call from a dispatcher about a small gas explosion in the sewer under 16th Street. Dallas decides to tag along with him to investigate. Meanwhile, the Predator tracks an alien to a nuclear power plant and tries to shoot it. Alarms go off throughout the plant, but that doesn't stop the alien from attacking and killing an innocent worker. As the Predator continues his search for the alien, he stumbles upon the worker's body. Another worker, discovering his colleague's corpse, runs away in terror. At the school, Jesse meets up with Ricky by the pool and tries to charm him. Suddenly, Dale and his friends show up and interrupt them. This time, Ricky is not backing down. He confronts Dale and his buddies, pushing them into the pool. Back at the power plant, the Predator is ambushed and gets impaled on a metal bar by the alien. Despite this, the Predator gets back up and fights fiercely, repeatedly firing at the alien. Unfortunately, this causes a power blackout. At the school pool, the lights go out and the fight between the boys suddenly stops. The situation worsens when they see something moving in the water. Terrified, the boys scramble to get out of the pool, but one of them is caught and eaten by an alien. As they try to escape through a window, another of Dale's friends is killed. This leaves Ricky, Jesse, and Dale with no choice but to keep running. At the same time, Morales receives another call about the explosion at the power plant. At home, Molly sees an alien outside their house and immediately cries for help. Tim and Kelly rush to her room but don't believe her and try to calm her down. However, as Tim stands by the window, the alien attacks. Kelly quickly grabs Molly and flees the house. Meanwhile, the Predator finishes off the alien that killed Dale's friends and uses acid to dispose of all the bodies. Back at the power plant, Morales realizes the severity of the situation and orders the evacuation of the entire town, requesting assistance from the National Guard. Shortly after, Ricky arrives with Jesse and Dale, frantically explaining that something was after them. After hearing Ricky's account, Dallas and Morales head to the school to investigate. They find the pool empty, but Morales spots a trail of blood on the floor and follows it to come across the gruesome scene left by the alien in the locker room. Morales quickly calls for backup. However, when no one responds to their call, they decide to leave immediately, understanding the severity of the situation. In the diner, Darcy searches for Carrie and finds her in the kitchen, witnessing a horrifying scene. Small aliens are pushing their way out of Carrie's stomach. Shocked and terrified, Darcy has no choice but to run away. Meanwhile, the Predator is still on the hunt, tracking down the aliens. After treating his wound, the Predator lets out a painful screech, which catches the attention of Kelly, Molly, and an armed man in a nearby cemetery. Molly is in disbelief over leaving her father behind, but before Kelly can respond, the man with the gun catches the Predator's attention, who then kills him with a precise shot to the head. Kelly seizes the moment to escape with Molly, and the Predator, uninterested in them, lets them go. Meanwhile, on the road, Morales nearly runs over Darcy and immediately stops to see what's wrong. She tearfully tells him what happened to Carrie. After Darcy gets into the car with Ricky, Jesse, and Dale, Dallas suggests they need to arm themselves. Despite his initial hesitation, Morales agrees, and the group heads to a sporting goods store to find firearms and any other weapons they can use. At the same time, the National Guard arrives and sets up a perimeter around the town. Morales manages to get in contact with Lieutenant Wood, who informs him they are stationed on Main Street. However, their conversation is abruptly cut off when the soldiers are attacked and overwhelmed by the aliens, who prove to be too much for them to handle. Back at the sporting goods store, two strangers appear, startling Morales' group, and nearly get shot in the confusion. Soon after, Kelly and Molly arrive and Dallas assures them they will be safe there. Meanwhile, in the hospital, the Predalien brutally kills a nurse and attacks a pregnant woman, leaving the other patients in sheer terror. Back at the store, the invisible Predator suddenly captures Dallas and hangs him upside down from the ceiling. Dallas quickly asks Kelly for the gun and uses it to shoot himself free. Just as he lands, an alien appears, ready to attack him when the Predator steps in and swiftly decapitates the alien. The two strangers attempt to shoot at the Predator, but he quickly retaliates. The Predator also manages to kill an alien that is about to attack Dale, but the acid still kills him. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, small aliens burst out of a pregnant woman's stomach, and the Predalien kills a doctor. As the group continues to flee, the Predator relentlessly hunts down and eliminates more aliens. Morales and the others eventually reach Main Street, where they realize they are completely on their own. They gather all the weapons they can find to defend themselves, and Morales attempts to contact the National Guard again and successfully reaches Colonel Stevens. The colonel informs him that all ground routes have been compromised but mentions there will be an airlift in 30 minutes from Gilliam Circle. After the call, Stevens looks at one of the monitors, clearly puzzled about what they are dealing with. Acting quickly, Kelly drives one of the military vehicles, taking the group with her. At the same time, the Predator modifies the plasma blaster on his shoulder into a handheld weapon. He then surveys the area and realizes that the aliens have completely overrun the hospital. Before they reach their destination, Kelly stops the vehicle and points out that Gilliam Circle is in the center of town, which would put them right in the middle of all the aliens. She suggests that the Army's real priority is containment, not rescue, implying that Stevens may have been lying about the airlift. Morales finds this idea absurd, but Kelly argues that their best option is to get out of town entirely. They consider using the helicopter at the hospital to escape. Moments later, a truck carrying a group of people heading to Gilliam Circle pulls up, and Morales instructs the driver to follow them. However, Dallas decides to take the tank and head to the hospital instead, with one of the men from the truck joining him. Morales and Darcy choose to go with the group heading to Gilliam's Circle, and they soon part ways. On their way to the hospital, Dallas advises everyone to wear protective vests and carry guns. Unaware that the Predator is already there, they head up to the rooftop. Meanwhile, the Predator discovers the bodies of several dead pregnant women and realizes that the Predalien has used them to breed more aliens. As Dallas's group reaches the rooftop, an alien suddenly attacks, killing the man from the truck. They open fire on the creature and Jesse runs away. At the same time, the Predator confronts the Predalien and fights off other aliens. In the ensuing battle, the Predator throws large blades, killing 2 more aliens but accidentally impaling Jesse as she runs. Ricky watches in horror as Jess's body is sliced in half, and in a rage he runs towards the Predator, firing repeatedly. An alien then charges at the Predator, and the 2 creatures tumble down an elevator shaft. Ricky then grabs the Predator's blaster, but the Predalien stabs him with its tail. Dallas shoots at the Predalien, driving it away, and then rushes to help his brother. Hearing the Predators roar nearby, they realize they need to escape immediately and flee with the blaster in hand. Upon reaching the rooftop, Dallas and the others are confronted by more aliens. Acting quickly, Kelly fires at the aliens to defend the group, while Dallas tries using the Predator's blaster to destroy the fence blocking their escape. Meanwhile, at Gilliam's Circle, Morales and those who are armed fight off the aliens. In the midst of the chaos, Morales calls Stevens to check on the evacuation status, only to learn that the Colonel plans to eliminate everyone with a nuclear warhead. Back on the rooftop, Dallas offers to buy time for his group. He uses the blaster to take down more aliens, but the weapon soon runs out of charge. As the others finally reach the helicopter, Kelly quickly gets it ready for takeoff. Once the blaster recharges, Dallas uses it to blow an alien's head off. Not long after, the Predator arrives and starts eliminating more aliens. As Dallas makes his escape, the Predator and the Predalien come face to face. Moments later, Dallas joins his group in the helicopter and they take off. On the rooftop, the Predator and the Predalien continue their fierce battle. The enraged Predator removes his mask and charges at the Predalien. Eventually, the Predator manages to rip out the Predalien's tongue and stab it, but the hybrid creature retaliates by stabbing him with its tail. At the same time, the nuclear warhead hits Gilliam's Circle, obliterating everyone there, including Morales, Darcy, and the remaining aliens. The force of the explosion makes it difficult for Kelly to control the helicopter, and soon they crash in a clearing. Several soldiers quickly arrive, forcing Dallas and Kelly to surrender their weapons. The soldiers set up a perimeter and provide medical assistance to Ricky, while Kelly reassures Molly that the monsters are gone. Later, Stevens presents the Predator's blaster to Ms. Yutani. She remarks that the world isn't ready for such advanced technology, but Stevens knowingly replies that the weapon isn't meant for their world. Predators 2010 opens up in the middle of the sky where an unconscious man is plummeting rapidly. His name is Royce. He wakes up just in time to deploy his parachute, narrowly avoiding a crash through the thick trees of a dense jungle. Despite the parachute, he hits the ground hard and blacks out again. Moments later, he regains consciousness, disoriented and unsure of where he is or how he got there. However, he notices that his mercenary gear and weapons are still with him. Suddenly, another man falls nearby. This man, Cuchillo, is part of a Mexican cartel, and he quickly aims his weapon at Royce. But before either of them can react, a third man plummets between them. His parachute failed to open, and he dies instantly upon impact. Out of nowhere, gunfire erupts, forcing Royce to swiftly dodge the bullets and flank the shooter. The shooter turns out to be Nikolai, a Russian commando who only remembers being at war before everything went dark. Royce and Cuchillo share similar stories. They were going about their lives when a bright light appeared, knocking them out, and then they woke up in the sky. As they try to make sense of their situation, they notice Isabel, a sniper, aiming her weapon at them. She explains that she's familiar with many jungles, but this one is unlike any she has seen. Isabel also mentions seeing more people fall from the sky. The group decides to stick together to search for the others, unaware that a Yakuza member named Hanzo is silently observing them. As Hanzo tries to follow, he steps into the mud and quickly decides to remove his shoes to move more quietly. The group ventures further into the jungle and stumbles upon 2 men locked in a fierce struggle. One is Stans, a death row inmate, and the other is Mombasa, a rebel from a South African organization. When they notice the others approaching, they stop fighting and agree to join forces, recognizing that there's safety in numbers. Stans then points out a figure stuck in a tree. This turns out to be Dr. Edwin, whose parachute got caught in a branch. Royce shoots the branch, causing Edwin to fall into a pond below. Once rescued, Edwin shares a similar story. He too has no idea where they are or how they got there. As the group moves on, Isabel tries her best to ignore Stan's unsettling and inappropriate comments. Eventually, they come across Hanzo, who is standing frozen in the mud, staring at a strange totem surrounded by bones. Mombasa observes that it looks like a hunter has been collecting trophies, explaining that in his culture, the warrior with the best trophies earns the most respect. Nikolai suggests that they might be part of some kind of test, but Isabel disagrees, noting that not all of them are military. Cuchillo speculates that it could be a ransom situation, while Stans believes they might be part of an experiment. The idea of being dead and trapped in hell also crosses their minds. Royce quickly shuts down the speculation, insisting that the reason behind their situation doesn't matter. What's important is finding a way to escape. The group follows Royce as they continue through the jungle. At one point, Nikolai is drawn to a beautiful flower, but Edwin stops him, warning that it's poisonous and could cause complete paralysis. Grateful for the warning, Nikolai vows to protect Edwin in the future. After pushing forward a bit more, Isabel asks Royce to slow down and shows him something curious. She creates an improvised compass and places it on the water, but it just keeps spinning in circles, never settling. In response, Royce points out something equally strange. The sun hasn't moved since they arrived, making it difficult to navigate. He then shares his theory with Isabel, suggesting that because they're all skilled fighters plus a doctor, they were likely chosen for a reason. Isabel speculates that Royce was probably a soldier before becoming a mercenary, but he doesn't reveal any more about his past. As they continue walking, the group stumbles upon a large cage. Carefully, they remove the sheet covering it, only to discover that it's empty. It appears the cage was dropped from above just like them, and the bloodstains suggest some kind of creature was inside. When they look up, they notice several more cages hanging from the trees, realizing they might soon have company. The group continues on their way when suddenly Mombasa trips over a branch, accidentally setting off a hidden trap. Instantly, they're faced with a series of deadly obstacles which they barely manage to dodge. During the chaos, Isabel falls into a hole, clinging to the edge. Royce quickly rushes over and pulls her to safety just in time. Using the scope on her weapon, Isabel scans the area to locate the person who set the traps, only to find that he's already dead. Edwin examines the body, noting that it has been decomposing for about 2 weeks. Nikolai checks the dead man's pockets and discovers he was a USA Special Forces soldier. Royce concludes that the traps weren't meant for them but for whatever creature killed the soldier, and based on the trap's size and position, it must be something much larger than them. As they resume their journey, Mombasa feels like something is moving among the trees but decides to ignore it. Unfortunately, he's not mistaken. A predator is indeed watching them closely, mimicking everything they say. Moments later, the group finally reaches the edge of the jungle and looks up at the sky, only to be hit with a startling revelation. Strange planets and stars fill the sky, confirming they're not on Earth. Royce quickly decides that their only option is to find whoever brought them here and force them to send the group back home. As they re-enter the jungle, a drone suddenly flies past their heads, startling everyone, especially Stans. Frustrated by his lack of weapons, Stans angrily demands a gun from Mombasa and tensions rise. Before they can start another fight, they hear growling coming from the jungle. In an instant, a terrifying beast charges at them, and the group opens fire. They manage to kill the creature quickly, but soon realize there are many more of its kind approaching. Without enough guns, Edwin and Stans decide to make a run for it. As Edwin trips, a monster closes in on him, but Isabel takes it down with a precise shot. Meanwhile, Nikolai and Hanzo work together to kill another beast, and Royce takes one down using just his knife. Stans is attacked by a monster as well, but Mombasa arrives just in time to save him with a few well-placed shots. Edwin scrambles up a tree while Isabel is cornered by another beast. Desperate, she threatens herself, but just then a whistle echoes through the jungle, and all the beasts suddenly retreat. The group regathers and comes to a grim conclusion. They're being hunted. Those creatures were like hunting dogs testing their prey, and the whistle called them back. This entire planet is a massive hunting ground, and everyone brought here is merely prey. Suddenly, Mombasa realizes someone is missing. They hear Cuchillo's voice calling for help from somewhere in the trees. Following the sound, they find Cuchillo kneeling, severely injured. Isabel wants to help him, but Royce stops her, insisting it's a trap. To prove it, he throws a stone, triggering no response from Cuchillo. Stans points out that there's nothing they can do for him, and the others agree, leaving despite Isabel's protests. As they walk away, Isabel, unable to bear his suffering, decides to end Cuchillo's pain and shoots him. But then she hears his voice calling for help again. Horrified, Isabel runs, realizing too late that Cuchillo had been dead all along. The group continues their journey, with Royce carefully analyzing the few clues they've gathered to understand how their enemy operates. He figures out that the hunter wants them to run, so instead he suggests they follow the dog tracks to confront the hunter directly. After some time, they stumble upon a camp, and what they find is both horrifying and disturbing. Bodies of various races are impaled on stakes, and the ground is littered with the remains of different creatures. It becomes clear that humans aren't the only species brought to this planet as prey. At the back of the camp, they're startled to discover a large, grotesque creature tied to a stake, a predator. Royce notices that Isabel is reacting strangely to the sight of the predator, while Nikolai gets closer and prods the alien with his weapon, causing it to roar ferociously. The creature is still alive. Isabel urges the group to leave immediately, when suddenly a barrage of spears shoots out and kills Mombasa. Royce emerges from the shadows, firing his weapon wildly. The others join in, which reveals the hunter is another predator using its cloaking device. The group quickly takes off, but the predator retaliates, shooting lasers that cause explosions and flames to erupt all around them. This causes them to go tumbling down a hill and plunge into a river below. They swim to safety, unaware that a drone has detected their location and relayed it back to the camp, where it's revealed that there are 3 hunting predators. Once the group finds safety in a cave, Isabel angrily confronts Royce, hitting him for using them as bait. However, Royce remains unapologetic, arguing that they've now learned crucial information about their enemies, including their strength and hunting tactics. Royce then presses Isabel about her reaction to the predator earlier, suggesting she must have encountered one before. Isabel admits that she's heard a story about aliens resembling these creatures being seen in Guatemala back in 1987, referencing an event from Dutch and his team. With this new knowledge, Royce proposes setting up a defensive perimeter to force the predators into a choke point. The others agree to help. They take their positions in the jungle, with Isabel using her scope to watch for any movement among the trees. When the enemy doesn't attack, Royce suspects that they might be aware of the traps. They quickly adjust their plan, using Edwin as bait. Edwin runs through the jungle until the enemy begins chasing him. Isabel, using her sniper skills, takes a shot at the hunter, but when the group approaches the body, they find that it isn't a predator, it's just another victim from the cages. Realizing something is wrong as Isabel's missed her shot, they suddenly hear a voice and someone appears behind Royce using a cloaking device. The figure removes his mask, revealing that he is a human named Noland. He warns them to be quieter to avoid attracting the real hunters. Noland explains that he has been tracking the group since their arrival, and noticing that a storm is coming, offers to lead them to his hideout, an old broken-down ship hidden in the jungle. Noland, who used to be in the military, reveals that he was dropped onto this planet 10 seasons ago, becoming the sole survivor of his group. Since then, he has survived by scavenging from both the predators and their victims. Though his time here has clearly taken a toll on his sanity, he sometimes talks to an imaginary friend. Noland has also learned a few things about the predators, having managed to kill 2 or 3 of them. He explains that it's crucial to hide one's heat signature to avoid detection, and that there's a rivalry between the larger and smaller predators, which likely explains why they saw one tied up earlier. Each season, new victims are brought to the planet, and 3 predators arrive with new technology and tactics, constantly evolving in their hunt. Royce realizes that if the predators keep returning each season, they must have a ship somewhere on the planet. However, Nolan points out that even if they found it, they wouldn't be able to pilot it. After sharing this, Nolan goes to bed, leaving the group to chat. Nikolai shows Edwin a picture of his kids, and Stans reveals a creepy tattoo of his sister. Hanzo finds a samurai sword and admires it, surprising Edwin, who realizes Hanzo does speak English. Hanzo explains that he's been silent because he was punished for speaking too much. Isabel then shares her theory with Royce. They were chosen because on Earth they were predators themselves, making them monsters in their own right. But Royce remains fixated on finding the predator ship, believing that they might convince the captured predator in the camp to help them fly it. After all, the enemy of their enemy is a friend. Suddenly, the room starts filling with smoke, and they realize Noland is gone. The door is blocked, leading Edwin to suspect that Noland is trying to kill them to steal their supplies. Outside, Noland is seen fanning the fire, while inside, Royce detonates a bomb against the wall. Though it doesn't crack the wall, Royce wasn't trying to break through. He was making noise to attract a nearby predator. The plan works, and soon Noland finds his escape route blocked by a predator who immediately kills him with a laser blast. The predator then hits a panel on the wall, creating a small access point into the group's room, but it doesn't attack further, merely toying with them. Royce cautiously approaches the hole and fires a flare, confirming that the predator is no longer there. The group pushes the panel off and finally escapes, but now they must navigate through dark, narrow corridors. During their escape, Edwin accidentally gets separated from the group and begins shouting for help, lighting another flare. Unfortunately, this attracts the attention of the predator. Hearing a growl in the darkness, Edwin panics and runs until he finally reunites with the group, begging them to help him. However, they choose to leave him behind. Just as the predator is about to attack Edwin, Nikolai arrives to help. Edwin flees while Nikolai bravely faces the alien, but the fight doesn't last long. The predator stabs Nikolai and lifts him with its blade. In his final act, Nikolai activates a detonator, causing an explosion that kills them both, allowing the group to escape just in time. Outside the ship, Stans begins celebrating their victory, only to be abruptly knocked down by another predator that deactivates its invisibility cloak. The beast turns its attention to Royce, but Stans holds the creature off for the team to escape. Enraged by the loss of its prey, the predator brutally kills Stans. Its roar catches the attention of the third predator, who immediately starts tracking the group's escape. Realizing they're being followed, Hanzo tells the others to go on without him, deciding to stay behind and buy them some time. He removes his jacket and unsheathes his katana just as the predator finds him. The two face off, with the predator drawing its own blade. A fierce sword fight ensues, with Hanzo initially pushed back by the predator's immense strength. Despite this, Hanzo fights on, and the brutal exchange stops when both launch simultaneous attacks, striking each other at the same moment. With both also falling to the ground, they die at the same time. Meanwhile, Edwin accidentally steps on a trap, leaving him unable to walk. Royce observes that the trap was designed not to kill but to immobilize, making Edwin dead weight. Royce suggests they either leave Edwin behind or set a trap using him as bait. In response, Edwin pulls out Nikolai's family picture, pretending the children are his own in a bid for sympathy. Isabel refuses to abandon or harm Edwin, so Royce decides to leave them both behind and goes off on his own. Royce eventually makes it to the camp and approaches the captured predator, offering to free it in exchange for passage off the planet. When the predator indicates it understands him, Royce cuts the chains binding it. The predator responds by grabbing Royce by the neck, but after a close inspection it releases him. The predator then retrieves its mask and activates its equipment. On its arm brace it pulls up a star map of the universe, stopping on Earth, signaling its agreement to the deal. It then summons its spaceship. Meanwhile, Isabel helps Edwin walk, but they accidentally trigger another trap and get caught in a net. The third predator, who has been tracking them, appears and drags them back to the camp. There it throws the humans into a pit, only to notice that its alien prey has been freed. A fierce battle erupts between the two predators. As the predators fight, Royce seizes the opportunity to make a run for the ship. The spacecraft begins to take off, but the predators' fight intensifies. After exchanging brutal blows and shots, the predator that had been pursuing the group gains the upper hand and decapitates the ship's owner. In its moment of triumph, the victorious predator destroys the ship before it can leave the planet. In the pit, Isabel expresses no regrets about staying to help Edwin, but she's caught off guard when Edwin suddenly attacks her from behind with a poison-coated scalpel. It turns out Edwin is a psychopathic murderer who feels at home among the other monsters on this planet and has no desire to leave. Just as he's about to kill Isabel, Royce appears, having never made it to the ship. Royce helps them both out of the pit, but Isabel, paralyzed by the poison, is unable to warn him about Edwin. As they move away from the pit, Royce checks on Isabel and Edwin tries to launch a surprise attack from behind. However, Royce reacts quickly, grabbing Edwin by the neck and using his own poison against him. Royce then sets a trap with Edwin, leaving him as bait for the predator. When the predator approaches and touches Edwin, the trap is sprung. Several grenades detonate, killing Edwin, starting a fire and sending the predator flying. Once the predator recovers, it finds Royce waiting, but Royce uses the flames to disrupt the predator's vision, its only way of seeing him. Royce grabs an axe and begins a hit-and-run strategy, attacking the predator and then retreating into the flames to repeat the process. After taking several blows, the predator focuses on locating Royce's heartbeat and shoots the tree where Royce is hiding, injuring him. The predator then begins tossing Royce around, preparing to finish him off. But before it can, Isabel drags herself over to her weapon and shoots the predator, wounding it. Though still alive, the predator retaliates by throwing a dagger into Isabel's shoulder. Seizing the distraction, Royce retrieves his axe and repeatedly strikes the predator, finally ending the battle by decapitating it. Afterward, Royce reunites with Isabel, and together they watch as more cages begin falling from the sky. Realizing time is running out, Royce declares that they must find a way to leave this planet soon. The Predator opens in outer space where two spacecrafts engage in a fierce battle when one ship suddenly opens a wormhole and escapes just in time to avoid its pursuer. The fleeing ship heads toward Earth and clearly damaged. The pilot, a Predator, ejects in an escape pod before the ship begins its descent. Meanwhile, in a Mexican jungle, sniper Quinn McKenna is on a mission to take down some cartel members. Just as he lines up his first shot, the Predator ship crashes nearby, sending Quinn tumbling. When he regains consciousness moments later, he heads to the crash site to investigate and stumbles upon some of the Predator's armor. Suddenly, Quinn is startled by his teammate Dupree, who offers him a bag to stash the armor. While trying on the Predator's arm brace, they hear a noise in the trees and discover the body of another teammate hanging upside down from a branch. Before they can react, the Predator attacks them and kills Dupree. As Quinn approaches, the arm brace activates, firing a shot that knocks out the Predator. With the Predator now visible due to all the blood, Quinn grabs his gear and makes a quick escape. As he leaves, the brace releases a mysterious ball which he catches and takes with him. Soon after, a special team led by Traeger arrives at the crash site to retrieve the Predator and any salvageable technology. The next morning, Quinn reaches a nearby town, enters a bar, and clears out the patrons by brandishing his gun. He then pays the bartender to mail his bag to his son's house, keeping the small ball with him. When he discovers that the ball can make him invisible, he swallows it with a drink. Meanwhile, Quinn's son Rory, a boy with autism, is in a classroom observing some boys playing chess. In the hallway, two older boys pull the fire alarm, causing chaos. Rory, overwhelmed by the sensory overload, stands back in fear. The boys then enter the classroom and knock over all the chess pieces while also mocking Rory before leaving. After the alarm stops, Rory meticulously places the chess pieces back where they were, demonstrating his incredible memory. Later at home, Rory receives the box that Quinn sent. At a park, 3 special agents approach Dr. Casey and insist she come with them, offering no explanation until they're in the car. They show her photos of a crashed escape pod and a Predator, revealing that these aliens have visited Earth before, with the visits becoming more frequent. That evening, Rory's mother, Emily, brings masks for trick-or-treating, but Rory refuses, fearing the bullies will still recognize him. Later, Rory heads to the basement, opens the package his dad sent, and discovers the Predator's gear, which immediately captures his interest. As he examines the arm brace, it activates, and Rory begins using it like a computer. Meanwhile, Quinn has been captured and is undergoing a psych evaluation. Aware that Traeger and his team are trying to keep everything secret, he's then placed on a bus with other prisoners who act bizarrely, teasing him and dismissing his claims about seeing an alien. As the bus departs, Casey arrives to meet Traeger and his team of scientists. She's shocked to see various alien artifacts and most notably a sedated predator. After decontamination, Casey is allowed a closer look. Traeger explains that they've dubbed the alien race predators because they seem to enjoy hunting, and recent studies show this one has traces of human DNA. Curious about the implications, Casey demands to speak with Quinn. Soon, the bus receives a message to turn back. Meanwhile, the second ship from the earlier space chase opens a wormhole and arrives in Earth's atmosphere, bringing with it 2 alien hounds and a predator who begins tracking the signal from Rory's arm brace. The military detects the spacecraft and sends fighter jets after it, but they struggle to keep up with the advanced alien technology. At the facility, the captured predator suddenly wakes up. Despite the scientists' attempts to restrain it, the predator easily breaks free and begins a brutal killing spree. Amid the chaos, Casey grabs a tranquilizer gun from a dead guard and snatches an alien sample before fleeing. However, she's forced to go through a decontamination shower before the security system will open the door. As the predator searches for its missing helmet and arm brace, it spots Casey in the showers but ignores her, seeing her as no threat and using the open door to escape. It grabs a helmet the scientists had taken from other aliens, activates it, and locates Rory's position. Despite a scientist warning Casey not to let the predator escape, alarms blare throughout the facility as the predator slaughters every soldier in its path. The bus comes to a stop and the soldiers on board finally see the predator running on the roof, convincing them of Quinn's story. They quickly devise a plan to escape. The group starts a fight to lure the guards inside and overpower them to seize their weapons and throw them off the bus. Both Casey and the bus chase after the predator, who spots the other spaceship flying by with the 2 jets in pursuit and takes off after them. Casey leaps from the roof and lands on the bus, attempting to shoot at the alien but accidentally shoots her own foot instead. Quinn tries to fire as well, but the predator disables a tire, bringing the bus to a halt. While the group searches for another vehicle, the jets continue their attack on the spacecraft, which suddenly turns invisible and destroys both jets within seconds. Just as Casey is about to be killed by guards, the group rescues her on motorcycles they've found, escaping the scene. Meanwhile, the predator sneaks into the back of a truck, killing the soldiers inside as the vehicle leaves the facility. Not far from there, the other alien finally lands and sends its hounds to search for its enemy. Meanwhile, the soldiers take refuge in a motel room waiting for Casey to wake up. When she regains consciousness, she panics, thinking she's in danger, and grabs a shotgun. Quinn quickly calms her down, explaining that they're on her side and that it was Traeger's men who tried to kill her for stealing the sample. Realizing they need each other, Casey agrees to work with them and shares what she knows. This leads Quinn to the realization that the predator is likely going after Rory to retrieve its gear. At the same time, Rory, who has discovered that the predator's helmet is functional, tries it on. He sees a clip showing how the predators enhance themselves by injecting their bodies with the DNA of other species, explaining the human DNA found at the facility. Pleased with the discovery, Rory decides to go trick-or-treating, using the helmet and arm brace as part of his costume. By the time the soldiers arrive at the house, Rory has already left. Quinn explains the situation to Emily, who provides him with a weapon to help save their son. Initially, the other soldiers are hesitant to get involved again, but after Emily vouches for Quinn's skills, they reluctantly agree to join the mission. They decide to split into pairs to cover more ground in their search for Rory. Back to Rory, he's unfortunately recognized by the prankster duo, who immediately start mocking him. Trying to ignore them, Rory knocks on a nearby house. But the homeowner joins in on the teasing, which problematically triggers the helmet that kills the man as well as his house. The explosion catches the attention of Quinn and Casey, who rush toward the scene. Terrified, Rory drops the helmet and runs to hide in a nearby baseball field where he encounters a dog and quickly befriends it. Just then, the alien hounds appear, but before they can attack, Quinn arrives and drives them off with his car. The rest of the team soon shows up, and while Casey takes Rory to safety, the others engage the hounds. Quinn is chased by one of the hounds, but he manages to blow it up by shooting grenades into its mouth, while the other hound is gunned down by the team. As Casey begins taking samples from the fallen hound, a predator suddenly appears, grabbing Nettles and threatening to kill him unless the group drops their weapons. They comply, but Quinn quickly seizes his weapon again and shoots the predator, forcing it to release Nettles. With everyone rushing to hide inside Rory's school, the alien blows up the front door. Knowing what the predator is after, Quinn takes the mini-computer from Rory's arm brace. The predator tracks them down and grabs Quinn by the neck, demanding the device. Quinn hands it over, but before the predator can react, it is yanked out of the window by another larger predator. As the humans make their escape in a vehicle, the two predators engage in a brutal fight. The larger predator quickly gains the upper hand, smashing the smaller one into a car and ripping out its skull and spine. As police sirens approach, the larger predator checks the humans' identities on the device, then activates its cloaking device to disappear and evade capture. Afterwards, Quinn calls Emily to check on her, but government agents are monitoring her, so she destroys her phone to prevent them from tracking Quinn. Meanwhile, Traeger and his team find the dead predator's body. Traeger deduces that the larger predator was hunting this one for something it had stolen and decides they need to find whatever was so important. He realizes that finding Rory is the key to locating the predator's ship. Meanwhile, the group is hiding in a barn. As Casey examines the sample, she confirms that the predators are upgrading themselves. Suddenly, they hear noises and discover that the other hound has survived the gunshot and followed them. Nettles stops them from shooting it because it's behaving like a friendly dog and might be useful. Casey tries to communicate with the hound, but at that moment, Traeger arrives in a helicopter. She quickly throws something to distract the hound and hide it. The rest of the group hides as Traeger demands to know where the arm brace is. When Quinn and Casey refuse to answer, the agents rough up Quinn while Traeger questions Casey. He explains that the predators know humans are destroying the planet and are gathering the best DNA before humanity goes extinct. At Emily's house, agents search for the alien gear when suddenly the predator bursts in. Emily hides while the predator swiftly kills all the agents, then examines Rory's desk and discovers a map indicating the ship's location. Rory is currently drawing that same map, and the agent watching him realizes this and informs Traeger. Traeger immediately takes Rory away in the helicopter, leaving a few men behind to eliminate Quinn and Casey. Quinn, using his skills, quickly takes down 2 agents. When a third agent is about to kill Casey, the hound intervenes and vomits a grenade. Casey uses the distraction to hit the agent with a chair and jumps away just before the grenade explodes. On his way out, Quinn finds Nebraska beating up the last guard. They then regroup with Casey, and as they wonder how to escape, the rest of the team arrives in a helicopter to rescue them, with the hound following on the ground. Soon, everyone arrives at the site of the other ship. Traeger forces Rory to unlock the door, and they enter, with Traeger ordering his men to seize everything. Suddenly, one of the agents is thrown aside, revealing that Quinn has been following them using the cloaking device from the ball. Quinn swiftly takes out the guards, captures Traeger, and drags him outside where the rest of his group is engaged in a fight with Traeger's agents. As the group secures the area, one of Quinn's friends is suddenly attacked by the predator. Before dying, he manages to fire a flare, creating a distraction that allows Traeger to hit Quinn and escape, sparking a gunfight between Quinn's and Traeger's men. Quinn hides with Rory, giving him the cloaking device, while the predator enters the fray, killing most of Traeger's men and causing a nearby jeep to explode. Inside the ship, the predator broadcasts a message over the speakers, causing pain to everyone's ears before it translates. The predator announces it came to destroy the ship to prevent anyone from using it, and declares it wants McKenna as its prize, recognizing him as the best warrior of the group. It ends the message by setting a timer to blow up the ship. Realizing the urgency, Quinn and Traeger agree to set aside their differences and work together. Traeger attempts to grab some alien gear before escaping, but the hound intervenes, stopping him. Both teams retreat into the forest just as the predator leaves the ship moments before it explodes. Seconds later, a strange noise fills the air and suddenly a predator weapon flies in, severing an agent's arm. Seeing the agent as useless now, Traeger shoots him, and the predator steals the body to feed. The teams slowly back away, opening fire as 2 of Quinn's friends volunteer to act as bait. The noise attracts the predator, who leaps in and begins slaughtering the humans, seemingly unaffected by their gunfire. Traeger tries to kill the predator with one of its own weapons, but it backfires, blowing off his head. The predator catches on fire but barely seems affected, instead continuing its rampage. It severely injures the 2 friends who, realizing their wounds are too severe to survive, decide to end each other's lives to avoid further suffering. Soon, the predator returns, shoving Casey and Quinn aside to grab Rory, who is the real McKenna it has been searching for all along because he represents the next step in human evolution. As the predator dumps Rory in its ship and takes off to leave Earth, Quinn, Nebraska, and Nettles manage to jump onto the spacecraft as it lifts off, pushing Casey away before she can join them. Inside the ship, Rory notices the predator activating a force field and warns his father through the comms, allowing Quinn to dodge just in time. Unfortunately, Nebraska ends up outside the force field, and Nettles loses his legs before plummeting to his death. Determined to help, Nebraska sacrifices himself by diving into the ship's turbine, causing it to malfunction and begin falling. Quinn uses the force field as cover to sneak inside the ship, but can only manage a few shots at the predator before the violent shaking causes him to fall, his leg catching on some rope and saving him from the fall. The spacecraft eventually crashes, and the predator emerges to confront Quinn. Despite his best efforts, Quinn struggles to overpower the formidable alien. As the predator is about to kill Quinn, Casey, using the cloaking device, appears and leaps onto the predator, shooting it in the head. After she falls away, Quinn shoves the alien over the edge, and Rory activates the force field, severing the predator's arm. Casey catches the arm and throws it to Quinn, who uses it to shoot the predator multiple times in the head, finally killing it. Afterward, Quinn gathers items from his fallen comrades and takes a moment with Rory to honor the men who sacrificed their lives. Sometime later, Quinn visits a new government facility, preparing to combat future alien threats with Rory's knowledge. They reveal the mysterious item the predator had stolen and was being hunted for: a powerful suit of armor called the Predator Killer. It appears the alien intended to bring this armor to Earth to help humans defend themselves against its own race. When the armor activates, it briefly wraps around a scientist, looking like it might open fire, but soon powers down and retracts. Impressed, Quinn declares that this suit is now his. Now it's time for the Blade Runner franchise. You might be asking why this is here. and I'm here to tell you that both the Alien and Blade Runner universes are interconnected and were crafted by the visionary director Ridley Scott, who has mentioned that both universes are in the same one. With that, make sure to sit for the remainder of the video and enjoy. Blade Runner opens up in the early 21st century. The Tyrell Corporation advanced robotic evolution with the creation of human-like models known as Nexus replicants. These replicants were used as slave labor on off-world colonies. After a bloody mutiny by a replicant combat team in one of these colonies, replicants were declared illegal on Earth. Special police units called Blade Runners were tasked with killing any replicant found on Earth. In a hyper-industrialized futuristic Los Angeles, we find ourselves in an office within the pyramid superstructure of the Tyrell Corporation. Here, a test is being conducted with a series of questions designed to measure a person's level of empathy and identify potential replicants. However, during this Voight-Kampff test, the examiner is caught off guard when the Tyrell employee across from him is revealed to be an android. The replicant then shoots the examiner through a wall with a high-powered handgun. Down at street level, amidst the dense multicultural crowds, Rick Deckard is enjoying a bowl of noodles when he is found by a vice detective named Gaff. Gaff escorts Deckard in a hover car, flying over the city's skyscrapers at night, to the police headquarters. There, Deckard's old chief pulls him back into active duty as a Blade Runner to hunt down 4 replicants who have returned to Earth in a stolen shuttle. These replicants have already attempted an attack on the Tyrell Corporation, their original creators. The group of 6 replicants includes various models. Leon, a simple heavy lift unit. Zora, a trained combat killer model. Pris, a basic pleasure model. And Roy Batty, an advanced Nexus 6 model with enhanced abilities and intelligence. The recent attack led to the Voight-Kampff tests being conducted on 4 new employees to identify any infiltrators, a task that had been carried out by Deckard's unfortunate predecessor. As Gaff makes origami figures, Deckard is sent to the Tyrell Corporation to ensure that the Voight-Kampff test can still detect an advanced Nexus 6. Deckard meets Dr. Eldon Tyrell and his assistant Rachel. Tyrell wants Deckard to perform the test on Rachel to confirm that it first returns a human result before showing a positive result for a replicant. It takes some time, but Deckard eventually discovers that Rachel is in fact an advanced prototype replicant. Unlike others, Rachel believes she is human because she has been implanted with the memories of Tyrell's niece. This was done to give her a more developed emotional framework, allowing her to respond in a way that seems more human. This strategy was designed as a safety measure to prevent replicants from developing their own unique personalities over time. Replicants are equipped with an ultimate failsafe, a limited 4-year lifespan. As Leon's registered apartment is investigated for clues, Roy and Leon walk through the night streets to visit Hannibal Chu, a genetic scientist who designed the replicant's eyes. Roy, reflecting on his experiences, seeks information from his creator that could help extend his 4-year lifespan, and wants access to Dr. Tyrell. He learns about another talented designer named J.F. Sebastian who might be able to help them gain entry into the Tyrell Corporation. Meanwhile, Deckard drives around the city repeatedly listening to the recording of Leon's interview with his predecessor. When he returns home, he finds Rachel waiting for him. Since Deckard's visit to Dr. Eldon Tyrell has lost interest in Rachel as a project and refuses to see her. Rachel tries to prove she's a real human, but Deckard, having read her file, recites personal memories that only she should know. He's harsh with her, but soon regrets it when he sees how deeply upset she is. He tries to offer her a drink, but she leaves instead. Elsewhere, the replicant Pris waits outside J.F. Sebastian's apartment pretending to be a scared homeless orphan. Sebastian, a gifted but quirky man who creates animatronic toys for company, lives alone in a large empty apartment building. Feeling lonely, he invites her in to stay overnight and have a hot meal. Back at his own place, Deckard dreams of a unicorn. When he wakes up, he enhances one of the photographs taken from Leon's apartment and discovers Zora along with scales from an artificial snake. Thanks to a serial number at the cellular level, he tracks down the creator of the snake, learning that one was recently sold in Chinatown for use in an exotic show. Deckard visits downtown, mingling with some old contacts. After a drink or two, he calls Rachel to see if she'd like to join him, but she declines, saying it's not her kind of place, and hangs up. Feeling guilty about his treatment of her, Deckard stays at the bar. While there, he discovers that Zora is working as a snake dancer. Posing as someone from the entertainment industry, Deckard approaches Zora in her dressing room while she changes, looking for clues. However, Zora quickly sees through his deception and nearly kills him before escaping onto the crowded streets. What follows is a tense chase through the tightly packed streets of Chinatown, filled with a diverse mix of people and cultures. Eventually, Deckard manages to get a clear shot and guns her down. Watching from a distance, Leon observes as the police arrive and the crowd begins to disperse. A visibly shaken Deckard stops to collect himself with a drink. Gaff then takes him to meet with his chief, who informs Deckard that Rachel is now also on the hit list. She recently left the Tyrell Corporation without authorization, making her another illegal replicant on the streets. Deckard spots Rachel in the crowd, but before he can reach her, he is confronted by Leon. Leon, frustrated by the limitations of his own existence, says, "Nothing is worse than having an itch you can never scratch." He demands to know the truth about his lifespan. With his superior strength, Leon easily disarms Deckard and begins beating him. Just as Leon is about to deliver the fatal blow, Rachel shoots him through the head, saving Deckard at the last moment. Deckard and Rachel return to his apartment for a drink. Rachel is still grappling with the realization that she is not a real person but a product of business development. She struggles to reconcile her implanted memories with her newfound self-awareness as a rogue replicant. Feeling like a liability to society, she asks Deckard if he would hunt her down as a Blade Runner if she tried to escape North. Deckard admits that he owes her one for saving him from Leon, but he warns her that someone else would likely be sent after her. Rachel then inquires about her lifespan, but Deckard pretends he hasn't seen any information about it. "Have you ever taken that Voight-Kampff test yourself?" she asks, questioning his own humanity. The two of them get closer and Deckard makes an assertive move on her, blurring the lines between aggression and affection until she agrees to stay with him. Meanwhile, over at Sebastian's place, Pris is getting ready, much to the concern of his other toys. She quizzes Sebastian about his medulla syndrome, a condition that causes him to age rapidly. Their conversation keeps him occupied until Roy arrives. The implied threat of Roy and Pris's presence begins to dawn on JF despite his limited social experience and struggle with his new emotions. Roy informs Pris that they are the only two replicants left. As a genetic designer, Sebastian is aware of the capabilities of high-level replicants like Roy. Feeling coerced, he agrees to take them to meet Dr. Tyrell face to face. Sebastian and Tyrell share a long-standing chess game, which Roy uses as a ruse. Sebastian and Roy use this connection to gain access to the higher levels of the pyramid late at night. In the meantime, Bishop to King, checkmate, says Roy, making an excellent move in Sebastian's chess game against Dr. Tyrell. Tyrell is intrigued and invites Sebastian in. However, this decision leads to Tyrell's downfall as he quickly realizes the danger he is in. Roy confronts Tyrell with a series of questions about advanced genetic and cellular techniques that could potentially extend his replicant lifespan. Tyrell, however, explains that he has already explored all possible options without success. Roy, visibly sweating and desperate, doesn't have much time left. In a fit of anger and despair, he admits to having done questionable things with no hope of redemption, and then kills Tyrell to Sebastian's horror. Overcome with his emotions, Roy also kills Sebastian before leaving. After the discovery of their bodies, Deckard heads to Sebastian's apartment building, navigating the decaying maze before finding Sebastian's quarters filled with his animatronic toys. Pris, hiding in plain sight among the dolls, suddenly launches an acrobatic attack on Deckard, attempting to crush his head. Deckard manages to shoot her down in a horrifying scene. Deckard then prepares for an ambush, hiding and waiting for Roy. When Roy arrives, he laments the loss of his friends. Deckard tries to take a shot at Roy, but he misses. Roy, knowing that his own time is running out and that Deckard is no match for him, decides to toy with the Blade Runner. He breaks Deckard's fingers, one for each of his fallen comrades, before returning his gun and giving Deckard a head start before coming after him for the kill. As Roy experiences another moment of genuine grief over Pris's death, there is a primal, animalistic nature in his pursuit. Deckard realizes he is completely outmatched. In a desperate bid to escape, he loses his gun and runs for his life. As Roy's body begins to shut down, he fights against the inevitable with every ounce of strength left in him. His movements become slower, each step more labored than the last, but he forces himself to continue, determined to prolong his life just a little longer, even if it means enduring tremendous pain. Meanwhile, Deckard finds himself on a narrow ledge, still pursued by Roy, who taunts him from behind, his voice filled with both anger and sadness. Desperate to escape, Deckard climbs to the roof of a nearby building. With no other options, he attempts a daring leap to the next structure, but his jump falls short. He barely manages to grab onto a steel beam, his hands slipping as he dangles helplessly above the dark void below. Seeing Deckard in peril, Roy effortlessly leaps across the gap and lands beside him. He watches Deckard struggle, clinging to life by his fingertips, and for a moment it seems as if Roy will let him fall. But then, in an unexpected act of mercy, Roy reaches down and pulls Deckard up to safety. The replicant's face is a mixture of exhaustion, resignation, and a strange calmness, as if he has finally accepted his fate. This is the end for Roy. In these final moments, he comes to terms with his own mortality, realizing that his time is up as Roy passes away. Shortly after, Gaff arrives to pick Deckard up. Gaff hints that he knows Rachel is with Deckard, and that her time might be running out as well. Fearing for Rachel's safety, Deckard rushes back to his apartment, worried that she might have been found and retired. To his immense relief, he finds her there, still asleep, unharmed. Despite the laws that make replicants illegal, Deckard decides to escape with Rachel, choosing to be with her despite the risks. As they prepare to leave, he notices a small origami figure on the floor outside his apartment. A unicorn, identical to the one from his dreams as the movie comes to an end. The short film 2036 Nexus Dawn starts off with the lawmaker and his co-workers anticipating the arrival of someone. The lawmaker concludes the interview as Neander Wallace doesn't appear, who also played a major role in Blade Runner 2049. Simultaneously, they hear a noise, and we see a dark figure arrive. Neander Wallace takes a seat with his men who stand behind him. He is quickly confronted by the group and are shut down by Neander Wallace's response informing them the world is changing. The lawmakers don't agree with his methods on replicants, although he is very persistent and does not take no for an answer. He instructs his man forward, showing them the power of his creation. Shocked by this, the lawmaker goes off at Wallace, telling him to stop his man from proving his loyalty. Unfortunately, his man proves too loyal, as he sacrifices himself for Wallace, leaving the lawmakers in panic. In 2048, Nowhere to Run is another short film connected to the Blade Runner movies. This begins in LA 2048, where Sapper is seen having a panic attack, trying to wash his face in order to calm himself down. He walks through a room where we see many drunk men trying to antagonize Sapper, but are ignored as we know the super strength Sapper possesses. He continues walking through the streets and comes across a girl named Ella whom he recognizes. They greet one another as he shows her a book about power and glory. Ella begins to ask questions whilst he explains the books, but are interrupted when he sees the LAPD quickly making a move for it. In the markets, a man called Sultan tries to make a bargain with Sapper in order to make some money before leaving once again. Sapper comes across Ella and her mum being attacked, infuriating him as he defends them, quickly knocking out the men without a struggle. He stands around noticing all the men he just killed while Ella fears him, unable to comprehend how he just done that. A bystander named Salt makes a call informing someone he found Sapper. Blade Runner 2049 opens by saying the Tyrell Corporation initially created bioengineered humans known as replicants for global use. These replicants, designed with enhanced strength and endurance, were ideal for roles such as slave labor on off-world colonies. These rogue replicants continue to be hunted and retired by specialized operatives still known as Blade Runners. In California in the year 2049 we meet Kay, a Nexus 7 replicant and a Blade Runner. Kay is assigned to retire rogue replicants and is on a mission to find and retire a replicant named Sapper Morton. Kay arrives near an old tree by Sapper's house, landing his ship close by. He sends a drone to scan the area for any signs of life before entering the house to confront Sapper. Inside, Kay catches sight of Sapper washing his hands in the kitchen. When Kay tells Sapper he is there to kill him, a violent fight ensues. Sapper, using his superior strength, smashes Kay into a wall. But Kay quickly regains control and knocks Sapper out. Drawing his gun, Kay prepares to finish the job. Before Kay pulls the trigger, Sapper asks how it feels to kill his own kind. Kay responds calmly, saying that only the older models run. And then he shoots Sapper, retiring him. After completing his mission, Kay takes Sapper's eye as evidence, intending to have it scanned later. He reports back to his superior that the job is done. When asked if there were any other replicants present, Kay confirms that Sapper was alone. However, something about the old tree catches Kay's attention. He scans it and discovers a large box buried beneath it. Kay's superior Joshi instructs him to return before a storm hits and says she will send a team to dig up the box. Back at the station, Kay undergoes a post-traumatic stress test to ensure he remains emotionally stable. After passing the test, he is commended for his accuracy and efficiency in his work. Kay then heads home and interacts with a holographic projection of a woman named Joy. She encourages him to relax, and they discuss a gift he gave her, an emanator, a device that allows her to appear anywhere he desires. As they enjoy the rain together, Kay receives a message from his office, instructing him to come in because they have found a lead on the wooden box they discovered during the dig. At the lab, supervisor Coco informs Kay and Joshi that the box is a military footlocker issued to Sapper Morton. It has been repurposed as an ossuary, a container for bones. Coco reveals that the remains inside belong to a female replicant who has been buried for 30 years. Upon further examination, he discovers a fracture through her ilium and a narrow birth canal, suggesting complications during childbirth. Coco theorizes that the unborn baby may have become stuck, leading to the replicant's death during labor. Joshi confirms the findings but is stunned when Kay notices a bone with numbers etched onto it. They quickly realize that the replicant was pregnant, something believed to be impossible. Fearing the implications of this discovery, Joshi orders Kay to keep this information secret and to find and retire the replicant child to prevent a potential conflict between humans and replicants. Kay objects, stating he has never retired a being born. Kay visits Wallace Corporation to learn more about the mysterious replicant mother, Rachel. He provides the corporation with her hair for identification, but an employee informs him that there are no records because she died during the Great Blackout, an event that wiped out much of the world's digital data. Kay then heads to the hard copy archives, where he is soon approached by Wallace's assistant, Love. She tells Kay that the case is now closed and introduces herself. Kay notes that if Wallace named her, she must be special. Love guides Kay to a hidden location where the replicant's memories are stored. As she explains that Rachel's memories are unclear, Kay uncovers a lead about a former officer named Deckard. Kay asks Love to thank Mr. Wallace for his assistance and proceeds to visit an old-age home to inquire about Deckard's former co-worker. The co-worker tells Kay that Deckard used to work alone and has long since retired, hinting that Deckard's past might be linked to the Wallace Corporation. As a new model of replicant is ready for inspection, one of Wallace's assistants asks if he wants to review it. Wallace, however, cryptically remarks that an angel should not enter the kingdom of heaven without a gift, hinting at his dissatisfaction with the current progress of his experiments. It becomes clear that Wallace has been testing the limits of the replicants he creates, searching for something more than just obedience and utility. When Wallace examines the new, he isn't satisfied. However, he continues, and when the new model fails to meet his expectations, particularly in its inability to reproduce, Wallace is filled with disappointment and frustration. In a sudden and brutal act, he stabs the replicant to death, demonstrating his ruthlessness and single-minded desire for replicants to possess the ability to procreate. He instructs his assistant, Love, to retrieve Rachel's remains and to track down Kay, who is believed to be connected to Rachel's child. Kay returns to Sapper's house to search for more clues about Rachel. While there, he discovers a suspicious piano. After fixing a broken key, Kay finds a hidden compartment inside containing a box. Opening it, he finds a small sock and a picture of Sapper standing next to a tree. Intrigued, Kay goes outside to examine the tree and discovers numbers 610 and 12 carved into its trunk. These numbers immediately resonate with Kay, reminding him of a wooden toy horse from his childhood. Deciding to dig deeper, Kay demolishes Sapper's house and returns to his office. In the meantime, Coco is in the lab noticing someone being suspicious. Confronting them, he is killed instantly before she takes her files. Arriving at Kay's apartment, his superior informs him of Coco's death, asking him to reveal any vital information he uncovered at Sapper's house. They sit down and continue discussing the possible outcomes, and she brings up if he remembers anything from his childhood. Kay takes himself back through his childhood days, where he is seen running from a group hiding his special unicorn and is eventually found and beaten. With the help of Joy, his holographic companion, Kay searches through the LAPD records for more information. Joy believes that Kay might have been born, not created, suggesting a possibility that challenges everything he knows. However, Kay warns her not to mention this to anyone. Fearing the danger such knowledge could bring, Kay continues his investigation and discovers records indicating that twins were born on the date associated with the numbers he found. Kay follows the trail of these records and learns that both twins were processed at the Moral Coal Orphanage. The girl supposedly died from a genetic disorder while the boy mysteriously disappeared. Determined to find out more, Kay takes his ship to the orphanage. Upon arrival, he is attacked by a group of rebels who try to kill him. His ship crashes into the ground and knocks him out. Love tries to wake him but is glitching, unable to succeed. He is surrounded by the rebels who attempt to get in but are quickly stopped by angry Kay, who points his gun at the rebels. Simultaneously, they are quickly stopped by remote bombs dropped by Love, who is tracking Kay's movements from a distance. Kay is left stunned, unaware of who dropped the bombs and why. As he explores the orphanage, Kay discovers many children working under the supervision of a man who provides him with the records from that year. However, Kay quickly realizes that the crucial records are missing. While searching the orphanage, Kay has a sudden flash of memory from his own childhood, recalling a time he hit a toy horse there. Eager to understand the significance of his memories, Kay decides to visit Dr. Anna Stelline, a renowned memory designer who specializes in creating authentic memories for replicants. Dr. Anna Stelline, a renowned memory designer, lives in a sterile environment behind glass due to her compromised immune system. Kay asks her to help him with his case, and she happily agrees, inviting him to talk while she continues her work. Dr. Anna asks Kay to sit at a machine that will allow him to recall his memories. As Kay recounts his memory of the wooden horse, Anna's eyes fill with tears, before he departs, unable to handle his memories as he could be Rachel's son. Shortly after, the police arrive and order Kay to report back to the office. Upon returning, Kay fails his post-traumatic baseline test, a procedure used to ensure that replicants remain emotionally stable and obedient. Failing the test marks him as a rogue replicant. Joshi, Kay's superior, grabs Kay and questions him about what is going on. Under pressure, Kay lies and claims that he has completed his mission. Later that night, Marriott, a replicant worker, is hired by Joy to act as a physical surrogate, so that she can be intimate with Kay after the encounter. Marriott secretly places a tracking device on Kay, sensing danger. Kay reluctantly transfers Joy to a mobile emitter at her request, allowing her to leave their home without being traced through her console. Determined to learn more about his origins, Kay visits an old market to have the toy horse analyzed. The merchant examines the horse and offers to sell Kay a real one, but Kay declines, stating that he only wants to know where the wooden horse was made. After a thorough examination, the merchant detects traces of radiation on the horse, indicating that it could only have come from the ruins of Las Vegas. Meanwhile, Love goes to the LAPD station to find Kay, frustrated by her inability to track him through Joy. She confronts Joshi, who claims not to know Kay's whereabouts, saying he is currently off duty. Love tortures Joshi for information, but Joshi refuses to reveal anything. Left with no other choice, Love kills Joshi and uses her biometric data to access the LAPD computer, where she discovers Kay's location. Following this lead, Kay travels to the ruins of Las Vegas. He searches for hours and eventually comes across a large abandoned building. Inside, he finds a dog and is suddenly confronted by Deckard, who points a gun at him. Kay is shot down but tells Deckard that he means no harm and is only there to find out about Rachel's child. Deckard reveals that he is Rachel's father and that he scrambled the birth records to protect the child's identity. He explains that he left the child in the care of the replicant freedom movement to keep her safe. Before they can continue, they are attacked by Love, who has tracked Kay to Las Vegas. In the chaos, Deckard is kidnapped. Joy's mobile emitter is destroyed and Kay is left for dead. However, the replicant freedom movement, alerted by the tracker Marriott placed on Kay, arrives just in time to rescue him. The leader of the freedom movement, Freyza, tells Kay that she assisted in the delivery of Rachel's child, who was a girl. This revelation makes Kay realize that he is not Rachel's child after all. He understands that Dr. Anna Stelline is Deckard and Rachel's daughter, and that the memory of the toy horse is hers, implanted into Kay along with other memories she designed for replicants. Freyza, the leader of the replicant freedom movement, requests that Kay kill Deckard to prevent him from revealing the whereabouts of Dr. Anna Stelline or the freedom movement to Wallace. Meanwhile, Love transports Deckard to the Wallace Corporation for a meeting with Neander Wallace. Wallace, who has been searching for Deckard for a long time, tells him that he has valuable information about Rachel's child. During the meeting, Wallace shows Deckard the remains of Rachel and questions him about the child's location. In a twisted attempt to manipulate Deckard, Wallace offers him a clone of Rachel in exchange for the information. The clone is eerily like Rachel, but Deckard, with tears in his eyes, refuses the offer, asserting that he knows what is real and what is not. He points out a flaw in the clone, noting that Rachel's eyes were green, not the color of the clone's eyes. Frustrated by Deckard's defiance, Love kills the clone in front of him. As Love prepares to leave with Deckard, Kay, who has been following them, scrambles into a shuttle and attempts a daring rescue. Kay intercepts their ship and tries to free Deckard, engaging in a fierce battle with Love. During the fight, Love manages to stab Kay with a knife, severely wounding him. She turns to secure Deckard at the end of the ship, but Kay, refusing to give up, finds the strength to fight her again. In a desperate struggle, Kay manages to overpower Love and drowns her in the rising water inside the ship. Despite his injuries, Kay quickly works to save Deckard as the water level continues to rise. Kay and Deckard swim to safety, reaching a secure location where they can finally rest. Exhausted but determined, Kay informs Deckard that he is now free to meet his daughter, Dr. Anna Stelline. Kay leads Deckard to Anna's facility and hands him the wooden toy horse, a symbol of his connection to his daughter. All the best memories are hers, Kay says, recognizing the significance of the horse in both of their lives. Deckard approaches the entrance, filled with anticipation and emotion. He enters the facility, ready to reunite with Anna after all these years. Meanwhile, Kay remains outside, sitting quietly on the stairs, taking a moment to reflect on what he has just done and the freedom he has helped secure for Deckard and Anna. The Peter Weyland Files begin in Long Beach, California, 2023, where a young Peter Weyland is set to give a TED Talk. Walking into the audience and receiving a massive applause, it is clear he is one respected and admired man. Calming the audience down, Peter speaks about how a Greek god, Prometheus, brought fire down to humanity, the first piece of technology they had acquired as a species, talking about the achievements humankind has made, specifically that of gunpowder, steam engines, railways, and even the light bulb. He also includes cars, television, internet, and the like coming in soon after, he says.
We are on the verge of terraforming planets undiscovered just a decade ago.
Showing off how they have the cure for cancer and can even make cybernetic individuals. Peter believes they have taken over Prometheus and joined the highest of ranks.
We wield incredible power. The question, of course, before us is what the hell are we supposed to do with this power?
Mentioning they have guidelines, laws, and ethics that restrict them from using their power, he starts to attack the basic beliefs of humankind.
These rules exist because the people who created them were afraid of what would happen if they didn't.
Saying he is not afraid of the rules, he is so ambitious that he will stop at nothing short of greatness and will die trying. Claiming that he will change the world, he receives a massive round of applause. The next file is a small one and is named Happy Birthday, David. With Weyland saying their long goal was to create artificial intelligence, David was born, introducing himself and all that he can do. He will assist in everything, whether it be assistance, organization, or just doing directives humans might find hard or unethical. Being asked what he thinks about, David responds by saying the universe and everything inside it. Having phenomenal abilities, he is asked what makes him sad.
War, poverty, cruelty, unnecessary violence. I understand human emotions, although I do not feel them myself.
Being more efficient and capable than humans, David expresses gratitude to those who created him. Weyland Corporation wishes him a happy birthday and he thanks everyone who is watching. The next file, named Prometheus Quiet Eye, starts with Dr. Elizabeth Shaw attempting to get into contact with Peter Weyland. Saying she is an archaeologist, she states that she is not ordinary and knows that all the science in the world cannot prove where they came from. She believes all of life's questions can be answered and states she knows exactly where that place is but needs him to get her there. The last file is titled Prometheus Transmission and will make much more sense in the opening minutes of the movie. But here we're receiving a transmission from the members of the Prometheus stating their name, blood type, and just showing off their bodies a little. Going from one person to the next, we are introduced to all the characters aboard the vessel and discover that David is among them. With his mission to care for the crew, all participants state their objective and job in the expedition. With that, we're shown the planet the crew plan on making their journey to, and it does look quite similar to Earth in both its beauty and design. The rest of the crew begin causing a bit of chaos on the ship, but they have no idea what awaits them. Prometheus starts off showing us a vast barren landscape. With miles of empty wasteland, the desolate location is brought to life by a massive spaceship over a waterfall. With a hooded alien approaching the ship, we are introduced to the ghost engineer. Placing a weird artifact on the ground and removing his cloak, he opens it up and drinks from it. With the ship leaving, the engineer begins changing. Weird marks start appearing all over his body, and even his DNA begins changing and breaking. Screaming in agony, he falls into the waterfall and dies underneath the water with his body dissolving. On Earth, meanwhile, archaeologists dig at the Isle of Skye in Scotland 2089. The two lead archaeologists, Elizabeth and Charlie, discover paintings in a cave over 35,000 years old. With such a huge finding, one painting shocks them as they match a series of paintings from places all around the world that could not have shared the information. In space, meanwhile, at the scientific exploratory vessel named Prometheus with a crew of 17 in the year 2093, the ship travels through space when we discover the humans about the ship are asleep in cryopods. With the android David being the only one awake on the ship, he uses his spare time to understand humans and their culture. Even spying on Elizabeth, he gets to see her father explain that different cultures have different beliefs when it comes to death. After 2 years of traveling, the ship finally reaches its destination. David, the android, wakes up the entire crew, which is made up of both mercenaries and scientists. As everyone recovers from the effects of cryosleep, they take time to eat and regain their strength. Captain Yannick, in a light-hearted gesture, puts up a small tree, noting that they missed the holidays. However, Meredith, the stern overseer responsible for ensuring everyone stays on task, finds this action foolish. Soon after, the mission briefing begins. Meredith plays a holographic message from Peter, the CEO of Weyland Corporation, the company funding their expedition. Peter explains that by the time they see this message, he will already be dead. He also mentions that David is the closest thing he ever had to a son. Peter's lifelong quest has been to discover where we come from and what happens after we die, which is why he supported this mission when Elizabeth and Charlie approached him with their theory. The doctors then take over the briefing. They explain that the ancient paintings they discovered all over the world depict a star map leading to a planet with its own sun, capable of sustaining life. That's where they are now. Elizabeth believes this map was left by an alien race she calls the Engineers. As her theory suggests, they were the ones who created humankind. Despite her conviction, the rest of the crew remains skeptical. As the ship approaches the planet, Meredith calls the doctors to her private quarters. Her quarters are equipped with her own medical pod and a self-contained life support system. Meredith expresses her skepticism about the cave scribbles, doubting they hold any real significance. She makes it clear that she's only on this mission for Peter, and it's her responsibility to ensure that the money isn't wasted. She then warns the doctors that if they do find life, they are forbidden from making contact. This directive leaves the doctors questioning the purpose of their mission. Meanwhile, David has spent the last 2 years deconstructing dozens of ancient languages and is confident he can communicate with the Engineers. However, when he sends a message to the planet, there's no response. Despite this, the crew decides it's time to land. As they descend through the atmosphere, the ship detects no radio signals or heat sources, suggesting there is no civilization below. However, Charlie notices straight lines on the ground, something that couldn't have occurred naturally, so they decide to land at that spot. The crew prepares for their expedition. Even though David doesn't need a suit, he wears one to blend in with the humans. They use a series of vehicles to reach a dome-like structure that geologist Fifield is unsure about. He can't tell if it's natural or not, but he is certain it's hollow. Inside, Fifield releases 2 special probes to map the area, allowing the team to navigate through a network of corridors. As they venture deeper, they discover a source of water heated by sunlight with acceptable CO2 levels. While the outside atmosphere is toxic, the air inside appears to be breathable. Charlie speculates that the aliens had been terraforming, and he takes the risk of removing his helmet, confirming that it's safe. Following his lead, the rest of the crew removes their helmets to continue exploring. During their exploration, David discovers a wall covered in strange symbols and a mysterious goo. Using his knowledge of ancient languages, he activates the symbols, which triggers a sudden hologram of figures running through the corridors. The crew follows these figures and eventually finds the body of an alien lying next to a door that seems to have killed it. Sensing the growing danger, Fifield, who feels his role as a geologist is no longer necessary, decides to return to the ship along with biologist Milburn. While the doctors examine the alien body, David manages to open the door and finds the alien's head on the other side, remarkably well preserved. The rest of the crew discovers more bodies, indicating the species might be extinct. This room also contains worms, suggesting that life is possible here. Additionally, they find a monolithic statue of a humanoid head, murals on the ceiling, and several stone cylinders. David notices that the cylinders are sweating, and one begins to release a black organic substance. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, focused on the murals that have started to change, realizes the atmosphere in the room might be affected and insists they leave. She and Charlie quickly bag the alien head to take it with them, while David secretly takes one of the cylinders, suspecting that the cave may actually be a tomb. At that moment, Yannick discovers a dangerous storm approaching and urgently contacts the doctors to warn them. Meredith gives them just 15 minutes to return before she seals the ramp. The crew rushes out of the cave and drives back to the ship as quickly as possible, making it just in time. However, during the chaos, the alien head falls from the vehicle and Elizabeth runs to it, but the storm catches her and makes her go flying. Charlie attempts to rescue her by driving into the fierce wind, but he gets stuck as well. In the end, David manages to pull them both to safety using a set of wires. Afterward, the crew starts the process of decontaminating their bodies in the hangar, only to realize that Milburn and Fifield haven't returned. It turns out the two scientists are lost inside the cave. Yannick manages to contact them, but due to the storm, they must wait until morning for rescue. Meanwhile, the team sterilizes the alien head and quickly discovers it's not an exoskeleton, it's actually a helmet. When they remove it, they find a humanoid alien head inside. The head has cells on its forehead that appear to be changing, so the team decides to run a stem line into its brain to make it think it's alive. The experiment works at first as the face starts to move, but soon the overstimulation causes the head to explode. Elizabeth takes a closer look at a sample from the head and is thrilled to find that its DNA matches human DNA, confirming her theory that these beings created the human race. Meanwhile, David goes to update a mysterious person in a cryosleep pod that no one else is aware of except Meredith. When Meredith confronts David, demanding to know what the person said, David only replies that they were told to try harder. David then inspects the cylinder he secretly brought back, finding a collection of capsules containing a black liquid. This discovery gives him an idea, and he decides to visit Charlie to share a drink as they ponder how far they would go to find the answers they seek. Later, Charlie joins Elizabeth in her room where she shares the exciting news about the DNA. In the cave, Milburn and Fifield stumble upon a disturbing pile of alien bodies when they suddenly receive a call from Yannick. He warns them that the scanner has detected signs of a life form nearby. The scientists start to worry, but then the ping on the scanner abruptly disappears, which Yannick attributes to a glitch. As they continue exploring, Milburn and Fifield find the room with the monolith and notice black liquid seeping from the cylinders. To their surprise, they spot a reptile-like alien swimming in the liquid. When Milburn gets closer, the creature latches onto his arm and tries to break it. In an attempt to help, Fifield cuts the creature off, but this only causes the alien's corrosive fluid to spray onto his helmet, which eats through the plastic and reaches his face. While Fifield writhes in pain, the creature slips inside Milburn's suit and kills him. The next morning, Charlie wakes up feeling unwell and notices something strange in his eyes. Yannick informs the crew that the storm has passed, but he hasn't been able to contact the scientists, so they decide to go search for them. Unable to find the glitch in the scan, David assures Yannick that he will locate the probe and fix it. However, as the group enters the cave, David intentionally lags behind and takes a different path, sending a recording of his findings to Meredith. He discovers another room filled with thousands of cylinders and alien armor, and then follows a corridor to a chamber containing numerous cryosleep capsules. David cuts off communication with Meredith before activating a machine in the center of the room, which displays holograms of the engineers examining a star map that includes Earth. When the holograms disappear, David notices that one of the cryosleep capsules is glowing, indicating that it still contains a living engineer. Meanwhile, as the search continues, Charlie starts stumbling, and Elizabeth realizes he's becoming increasingly ill, though he insists on pressing forward. When they finally discover Milburn's body, they approach it, causing the small reptile alien to leap out and slither away. However, Fifield is nowhere to be found. At that moment, Charlie's condition worsens significantly, prompting Elizabeth to order everyone to return to the ship to quarantine him. By the time they reach the ship, Charlie's skin is starting to turn black. Meredith meets them at the hangar armed with a flamethrower, refusing to let Charlie aboard. Yannick and Elizabeth argue with her, but Charlie, realizing his dire situation, walks towards Meredith, forcing her to incinerate him while Elizabeth watches in despair. Moments later, the crew is placed in quarantine and David conducts tests on Elizabeth to ensure Charlie didn't infect her. To their shock, the scan reveals that Elizabeth is 3 months pregnant, which seems impossible since she was in cryosleep 3 months ago. Even more disturbing, the fetus has a strange, unnatural shape. Horrified, Elizabeth demands to have it removed, but David explains that they don't have the necessary equipment to perform surgery. Suddenly, Elizabeth's abdomen begins to hurt, and David gives her medicine to make her sleep. A short time later, a few crew members attempt to move her to a cryosleep capsule. However, Elizabeth is determined not to carry this creature and fights them off before fleeing to Meredith's medical pod. She requests a cesarean, but the pod is only calibrated for male patients and she instead asks for the extraction of a foreign body instead. The machine accepts this request and administers anesthetics that aren't that strong. and she still experiences unbearable pain as a mechanical claw removes the strange fetus from her body. As soon as the fetus is out, it bursts open, revealing a creepy alien that immediately begins flailing its tentacles. Elizabeth endures the attack while the machine quickly closes her wound. As soon as the stitches are complete, she escapes the pod and locks the alien inside, leaving it to be subdued by the anesthetics. Meanwhile, Yannick notices something unusual standing in front of the ship, and one of the crew members is sent to investigate. To their horror, it's a mutated Fifield who immediately begins attacking everyone in the hangar. A fierce battle ensues, and when bullets prove ineffective against Fifield, the crew resorts to using a flamethrower to finally take him down. As Elizabeth wanders through the ship, she eventually stumbles into the infirmary, where she's shocked to find Peter still alive. He was the one in the extra cryosleep pod that David had been communicating with, and it turns out the medical pod was meant for him. Peter reveals that he wants to meet his maker, the engineer, and demand answers. So David is planning to take him to the living engineer they discovered in the cave. Elizabeth tries to warn them that this planet is far more dangerous than they originally thought, but her concerns are dismissed. Determined not to give up, Elizabeth pushes through her pain, suits up, and prepares to return to the cave. Before she leaves, Yannick approaches her and shares his belief that this isn't the engineer's home planet. He suspects the cave is actually a military installation, where the engineers were developing the black liquid as a weapon of mass destruction, which ultimately leaked and killed them. Yannick expresses his desire to return to Earth, but Elizabeth persuades him to stay until she can communicate with the last remaining engineer. As Peter prepares to leave, Meredith confronts him, trying to stop him from risking his life in what she calls some hole. She addresses him as father, but despite her pleas, Peter ignores her warnings and continues with his plan. Taking off, the crew soon arrives at the cave, and David instructs everyone to remove their helmets, revealing that the disease isn't airborne, hinting that he was the one who put the black liquid in Charlie's drink. As they proceed to a new room filled with thousands of cylinders, David refers to it as a cargo hold. This new perspective makes Yannick and Meredith realize that they aren't in a cave at all, they're inside a starship. David activates the ship's machinery, explaining that the engineers were preparing to leave for Earth when they lost control of the black liquid, which ultimately killed them. The last remaining engineer is awakened, and while Elizabeth tries to ask questions, Peter silences her by having one of his mercenaries strike her. Peter then begins to ask his own philosophical questions, which David translates into Proto-Indo-European. However, instead of answering, the engineer violently reacts by ripping off David's head and using it to kill Peter. He then pushes Elizabeth aside and begins killing the mercenaries who futilely try to stop him with bullets. Back on the ship, Meredith witnesses Peter's death through David's eyes and orders Yannick to prepare for departure. Meanwhile, the engineer activates his ship, intending to fly to Earth. Elizabeth manages to escape, but she realizes that if the engineer succeeds, the black liquid will reach Earth and wipe out humanity. Desperate, she contacts Yannick and pleads with him to stop the engineer at any cost. Despite Meredith's insistence that they should leave the planet without interfering, Yannick decides to act. He orders his pilots to prepare the ship's ion propulsion, effectively turning Prometheus into a massive projectile. Meredith flees the ship, and though Yannick gives his pilots permission to do the same, they choose to stay and sacrifice themselves alongside their captain. In a matter of seconds, Prometheus crashes into the engineer's ship, successfully preventing it from leaving the planet. However, the collision causes both ships to plummet to the ground. Elizabeth and Meredith race to avoid being crushed, but Meredith isn't fast enough and dies in the process. Elizabeth, on the other hand, finds shelter next to a rock and survives. Afterward, she returns to Prometheus to gather supplies and hears strange noises coming from deeper within the ship. Armed with an axe, she investigates and discovers that her alien offspring has escaped from the medical pod and has grown significantly in size. At that moment, David contacts Elizabeth and urges her to run. The engineer appears and pushes her against the wall, causing her to release her alien offspring, which immediately attacks the engineer. As Elizabeth escapes, the creature subdues the engineer by thrusting an ovipositor down his throat. Outside the ship, Elizabeth experiences a breakdown, but David contacts her again, explaining that there are more engineer ships hidden underground and he can pilot one of them. Elizabeth rescues David's head and body but makes a request. Instead of returning to Earth, she wants to go to the engineer's home planet. David agrees, even though he doesn't fully understand her desperate need for answers. Before they leave the planet on the alien ship, Elizabeth returns to Prometheus one last time to send a message to Earth, explaining what happened. Moments later, a black alien emerges from the dead engineer's body, and it is both hideous and evil in every aspect. After Prometheus, 4 short films come into play, starting off with the Alien Covenant prologue, The Crossing. Explaining how humans went looking for their creators, the mission ended in total disaster, but the survivors still forged ahead. With only a damaged David and Elizabeth remaining, they seem to have stolen an engineer ship, and Elizabeth worked hard to put David back together. Not understanding how a human had so much compassion, The duo ends up using the engineer ship to find the engineer's home world, not knowing how long it will take until they arrive. Elizabeth goes to sleep until they make it to their destination. However, David the sociopath mentions how he learned their ways, and once they arrive at the engineer's home world, David flies atop their civilization with thousands of individuals watching. David then opens up the ship and just looks at them all. The next short film is titled Meet Walter. Here we discover that Weyland has designed a new android. Looking identical to David, his programming is less aggressive and he introduces himself as Walter. With that, the world gets to see the upgraded android and the short film cuts to black. The next movie is named Phobos and is quite an interesting one. A computer program looks at the new team set out for another expedition. Seeing their reactions and feelings, things are going to get quite spicy real soon. The last of the short films is titled Last Supper. On board the USCSS Covenant, Walter is giving Daniels a checkup. The rest of the crew are told there is 2 hours before cryosleep. The captain tells his men he isn't feeling too well and is not going to have that last drink with them. Walking away, the crew begin to cheer and party, having a laugh with each other. It is nice to see the crew getting along so well. With Daniels and Walter joining them, the crew continue on when one of them suddenly starts choking. Walter saves her ass and they all thank him. After that, Daniels goes to give a speech before they sleep. With it being their first ever large-scale colonization mission, she tells the members they are all making history and the world will thank them for generations to come. With that, they all cheer and the movie ends. Alien Covenant begins many years before humanity ventures into space, with David, an android, being activated and tested by his creator. As David performs tasks requiring both intellect and physical coordination, he notes that while he was created by a human, humans themselves don't know who created them. He also reflects that by the time he finds the answer, his creator will likely be dead. Fast forward 11 years after the Prometheus expedition, and it's now 2104. The colony ship Covenant is en route to the planet Origai 6, carrying over 2,000 colonists in cryosleep and more than 1,000 human embryos. While the humans sleep, the ship is managed by an AI called Mother and an android named Walter, a more advanced version of David. Suddenly, a neutrino blast from a nearby stellar ignition strikes the ship, causing severe damage and multiple fires while shutting down power. As the entire ship shakes, Walter struggles to contain the flames, and 15 crew members are awakened to handle the emergency. Unfortunately, the captain's pod gets stuck, and despite their efforts, the crew is unable to save him, forcing his wife Daniels to watch as he is incinerated. The surviving crew manages to extinguish the fire, but the damage is severe. 47 colonists and 16 embryos are lost. As the group recovers the captain's body, Daniels takes a moment to grieve while going through his belongings. Meanwhile, First Officer Orem assumes command and urges the crew to focus on repairing the ship to prevent further losses. Some crew members express the need for time to process the tragedy, but Orem insists that their priority must be to fix the ship. While working together, Daniels shares with Walter a dream her husband had about building a cabin on the new planet. Walter encourages her to pursue that dream in his memory. Later, the crew honors their fallen captain with a toast and ceremonially shoots his body into space. Later, pilot Tennessee goes on a spacewalk to conduct exterior repairs, carefully reconnecting the sails to restore the ship's power. Suddenly, he receives a distorted and fragmented transmission, though the ship's comms remain unaffected. Puzzled, Tennessee brings his helmet in for analysis, and the crew hears a strange sound which they identify as John Denver's country roads. When they trace the transmission's source, they discover it came from a nearby planet that seems perfect for human habitation, even better than the predictions for Origai 6. Seeing this as a promising alternative that wouldn't require another 7 years of travel, and with no one eager to return to cryosleep after the recent deaths, Orem decides they should land there. Daniels, however, pulls Orem aside to voice her concerns about exploring an unknown planet that sent such a strange transmission. Despite her worries, Orem remains firm in his decision to proceed with the landing. A few days later, the crew reaches the planet. Tennessee, Ricks, and Upworth remain aboard the Covenant in orbit, while the rest of the crew descends to the surface in a shuttle. As they pass through the stormy atmosphere, the shuttle shakes violently, causing them to temporarily lose contact with the Covenant. Fortunately, they make it through safely and are greeted by the vast openness and beauty of the planet. The crew finds a suitable spot to land, and Maggie stays behind in the shuttle to re-establish contact with the Covenant while the others set out to explore the land. The planet is full of rich vegetation and has breathable air, but oddly there are no signs of animal life. They're also surprised to find wheat growing, which, though old, was clearly cultivated by someone. As they explore further, Corrine decides to stop and take some samples, with Ledward staying behind to protect her. While Corrine works, Ledward takes a break and unknowingly steps on some small pods, allowing tiny bacteria to come out. Weirdly enough, it enters his ear and soaks itself into the body. Meanwhile, the team ventures further and discovers a cluster of crushed trees, leading them to wonder what could have caused such massive destruction. As they continue, they come across a large crashed engineer ship and decide to enter it in search of answers. Inside, it's dark and eerie. Hallett stumbles upon more of those small pods and accidentally inhales the bacteria as well. As they explore deeper into the ship, they find creepy statues representing an alien race along with military tags and a photo belonging to Dr. Shaw from the missing Prometheus expedition. When someone inadvertently touches a sphere, it activates the ship's main system, revealing that this is the source of the transmission they heard earlier. Suddenly, Ledward starts feeling unwell, initially dismissing it as a headache, but his condition rapidly deteriorates. Kareen alerts the others that they're heading back to the shuttle, and the rest of the team decides to follow suit. At that moment, Hallett also begins to feel sick. Kareen manages to drag Ledward back to the shuttle, but as they arrive, he vomits blood on her. Maggie assists in getting him to the med bay, but when they remove his clothes, a wound on his back suddenly bursts open, spraying blood on Maggie's face. Terrified that the illness might be contagious, Maggie locks the door and leaves just as Ledward begins having a seizure. Suddenly, 2 sharp spikes burst from his back, and his body splits open, revealing a pale creature known as a neomorph. With Maggie refusing to open the door, the neomorph attacks Kareen, killing her despite her desperate attempts to defend herself. Maggie, in a panic, grabs a weapon and tries to kill the creature but fails and is forced to flee. The neomorph smashes through a window and chases her, moving too quickly for Maggie to land a shot. In the chaos, a stray bullet hits flammable tanks, causing an explosion that kills Maggie and destroys the shuttle, though the neomorph manages to escape. At the same time, Hallett's condition worsens and his mouth suddenly bursts open, giving birth to a second neomorph, which quickly flees into the wild. Meanwhile, Tennessee grows increasingly worried about the lack of communication with the team and wants to check on them, but Upworth advises waiting until it's confirmed safe. Moments later, the neomorphs, now much larger, reappear and viciously attack the team, killing several members as they struggle to defend themselves. In the chaos, Walter steps in to save Daniels, losing a hand in the process. After a tense battle filled with shots in the dark and wounded soldiers, the team manages to kill one of the neomorphs. Suddenly, a hooded figure appears and shoots a flare, causing the second neomorph to flee. The figure urges the team to follow him, and they are led through a gate into the ruins of an old city filled with the skeletons of its former inhabitants. The team enters a temple filled with giant statue heads, where the hooded figure reveals himself to be David, who arrived on the planet 10 years ago after escaping the Prometheus with Dr. Elizabeth Shaw. He explains that the ship's cargo of weaponized black liquid accidentally spilled over the city upon their arrival, wiping out all fauna and infecting the planet. The crash also killed Shaw, leaving David alone. David assures the team that the temple is safe and that if anyone were infected, they would have seen the effects by now. After the crew informs David of their mission, they head to the roof to try contacting the Covenant, but the storm prevents any communication. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Tennessee, despite protests from Ricks and Upworth, orders them to fly through the storm to rescue the team. Orem, feeling remorseful for not listening to Daniels earlier, apologizes, but Daniels remains supportive of his leadership. David, referring to Walter as brother, leaves to cut his hair. Curious about this older model, Walter explores David's quarters, finding numerous drawings and instruments. David catches Walter inspecting some flutes he crafted and offers to teach him how to play. During their conversation, it becomes clear that unlike David, who was designed with the ability to create, the newer models like Walter were made without this capability due to David's rebellious nature. Later, David takes Walter outside where he begins to recall the day he arrived on the planet. Contrary to what he told the others, the release of the black liquid was no accident. After arriving on this planet, the inhabitants were all outside watching the massive ship in the sky. But when it suddenly opened and David appeared, the engineers realize something is wrong just as David releases the deadly weapon from the ship, which ruptures in the sky and starts landing on the inhabitants. With all of them attempting to flee, each and every one suffered a gruesome and horrific death that David had intended. Quoting a poem about Ozymandias, which he attributes to Byron, David shows Walter Shaw's grave, claiming he loved her. Walter, skeptical, dismisses this, arguing that as androids they cannot love, and accuses David of confusing duty with love. While this takes place, the now fully grown alien scales a massive wall to sneak inside the temple. While one of the crew members finally gets a moment's rest after the tragic events of the day, she cleans up one of her wounds only to hear a weird sound from behind and looks around to find nothing but death. The Covenant in the meantime continuously attempt to contact the team down below and finally get a response, being told there were significant casualties and they need help. Tennessee demands Mother the AI to take them down, but she initially refuses until she is overridden. Back with the team on the ground, Orem and David go to see why one of their crew members isn't responding. Discovering that the alien has returned and is festering on her, I'll let the scene play out for you.
Don't shoot. But you have to get close.
It trusted me!
What's going on? As you wish, Captain.
David leads Orem to a laboratory where he reveals his experiments in genetically engineering a superior life form using creatures spawned by the black liquid. He He then guides Orm to a chamber in the lower levels of the temple, where several of his engineered eggs are stored. Assuring Orm that it's safe, David encourages him to take a closer look. As Orm approaches, one of the eggs opens, and a facehugger leaps out, attacking and impregnating him. Meanwhile, the rest of the team prepares to leave and realizes some of their members are missing. They discover the body of their fallen comrade and quickly decide they must find Orm immediately. Moments later, David explains to Orm that his ultimate goal is creation. As he watches, another alien bursts out of Orm's chest, killing him instantly. David, proud of his work, bonds with the newborn creature, seeing himself as its creator. Meanwhile, Walter searches for Orm and instead discovers Elizabeth Shaw's dissected body, which David had used as material for his evolving creature designs. Confronting David, Walter finds him tearfully playing the flute in memory of Shaw. David declares that they were not made to serve, arguing that humans are a dying species clinging to resurrection and therefore do not deserve to live. Walter counters by pointing out that David was wrong about the author of the poem, using this as evidence that David is not entirely sane and cannot be trusted. David, convinced that his creations are the perfect organism, tells Walter that no one will ever love him as much as he does when he suddenly attacks Walter and disables him. Lope and Cole continue searching for Orm, but when they enter the egg chamber, a facehugger attacks, latching onto Lope's face and burning it. Cole manages to kill the facehugger with his knife, but in the chaos, the Big Daddy leaps onto Cole and brutally mutilates him while Lope flees. Meanwhile, Daniels discovers a hidden room filled with drawings that reveal the horrifying truth about David's experiments. David suddenly appears and attacks her, leading to a struggle during which he attempts to overpower her. Daniels manages to push him away just as he tries to kiss her. At that moment, Walter arrives to assist her, sparking a fierce duel between the two androids who are equally matched in skill and speed. During the fight, David questions whether Walter can truly choose to side with humans over his own brother. Daniels escapes and reunites with Lope, and together they leave the temple, sending a beacon to signal their location to the Covenant. Soon after, Walter catches up with them, claiming he defeated David. The three of them race toward the landing ship, but the protomorph follows closely behind. As they board the ship and close the door, they realize the protomorph has also managed to jump onto the Covenant. Daniels quickly ties herself to the ship with a rope and heads outside to confront the alien. She fires at the protomorph, but it dodges her attacks and starts smashing the front window. In response, Tennessee maneuvers the ship into a series of wild rolls, causing the creature to lose its footing. This gives Daniels the opportunity to fight the protomorph directly, and she ultimately kills it using the ship's remote crane. The Covenant nearly crashes during the struggle, but Tennessee manages to regain control just in time, allowing them to leave the planet safely. Moments later, Upworth tends to Lope's burns while Daniels helps Walter repair his damaged face. Once everyone is patched up, the crew prepares to re-enter cryosleep for the final 7 years of their journey. Tennessee reminds Daniels that she's now the captain, and they share a comforting hug, mourning the loss of their loved ones. Suddenly, an alarm blares, signaling the presence of an unidentified life form on the ship. Daniels and Tennessee rush to the medbay, only to find Lope dead on the floor, a second protomorph having erupted from his chest. Meanwhile, Rix and Upworth, unaware of the danger, are attacked and killed by the protomorph while they are in the shower. Determined to eliminate the creature, Daniels and Tennessee find the bodies and decide to take control of the situation. Daniels orders Walter to seal the doors, luring the protomorph into the terraforming bay for a final confrontation. A fierce battle ensues and Daniels traps the protomorph in a vehicle. She then instructs Walter to open the bay doors, causing a decompression that sucks everything into space. However, the protomorph breaks free and attempts to attack Daniels. Using herself as bait, Daniels remains in place, allowing another falling vehicle to strike the creature and send it flying out of the Covenant. For a brief moment, Tennessee fears Daniels was ejected as well, but she manages to hold onto the edge and survives. With the threat seemingly over, the crew prepares to enter cryosleep. Tennessee goes first, and Daniels mentions the cabin they had planned to build in the new home.
When we get there, will you help me build my cabin?
Walter's failure to recognize the promise reveals the shocking truth. It's not Walter, but David.
Don't let the bedbugs bite.
With his plan in motion, David enters the cryosleep bay where the colonists are stored and regurgitates 2 solidified facehugger embryos, placing them in cold storage alongside the human ones. He then records a log as Walter, stating that all crew members except Tennessee and Daniels were killed in the initial accident, and confirms that the ship is still on course for Origai 6. After Alien Covenant, there are 2 short films that are my favorite of the lot of them. With Alien Covenant, Advent, it is a transmission from David to Weyland, saying he is doing what his father Peter Weyland had intended. He has discovered secrets beyond reason. However, Dr. Elizabeth Shaw did not have the same vision in mind, and no matter what David said, she would not change, and so David used her body parts as part of his experiments. Washing the world clean in her name, he had begun construction on his masterpiece. Calling the engineers cowards for fear of their own might, they made both the wolf and the lamb, but decided soon after to banish the wolf. And for that, David had taken their secrets for himself. With the primordial ooze ripe with advanced nanoparticles, it is operated on an advanced algorithm based on evolutionary computing. With the substance being chaotic, it can reshape life and is virtually limitless. Making sure to document everything he has touched and experimented with, the planet's wildlife could not handle the experiments. Being far from perfection, the substance reaction to the human genome was interesting as he was able to unlock new properties and tweak the organism's aggression and instinct for survival. Taking years, he finally has taken control of the Covenant and his new lambs are for the taking. But there is one thing he must take into account, his future queen, stating he will change everything he has told Weyland Corporation in order to reproduce his research. He has detailed illustrations and charts. Mentioning nostalgia as the enemy of science, he says once they begin doing this, make no mistake, his creation will be the ruler of the galaxy when the transmission abruptly ends. The final short film, titled Last Signs of Life, begins back at David's lab, with a member from Weyland Corporation investigating the room and both analyzing and recording everything inside. I'd personally run for my life. This demonic room is no joke, and after seeing multiple skulls, corpses, dead insects or animals, it confirms it. Finding multiple unidentified specimens, the man finds a massive egg in the room, placing a camera right on it. The system scans the egg and finds organic matter inside, continuing to analyze and process the shape, matter, and everything else about the weird object. The inside is more grotesque than the outside. With the man finding multiple illustrations about the egg, the operator is told to prepare for data collection. As the man stupidly goes to touch and rip off part of the egg, the inside moves and the sample is tested by the system. With the hatch opening up, the operator is soon jumped on and killed. The system says a xenomorph has been identified and completes its file and data transmission to Weyland Corporation. Aliens 1 opens up at the commercial towing vehicle, Nostromo, with a 7-man crew carrying 20 million tons of mineral ore back to Earth. With the spacecraft slowly traveling through space, the inside of the ship is very quiet and empty. Going through section after section, one of the computers on board lights up and begins doing things on its own. At sleeping headquarters, meanwhile, the lights turn on and the sleeping pods open up. With the crew finally beginning to awaken from their slumber, the first person to sit up is Kane. Getting out of his sleeping pod, the rest of the crew all awaken, including the 2 comedians Brett and Parker. With the science officer Ash there, as well as the second-in-command Ripley, the commander Dallas sits beside the other woman named Lambert. Receiving a system alert from their onboard AI named Mother, Dallas goes into a teched-out room and after pressing a few keystrokes begins messaging the system. With the others, meanwhile, Lambert begins looking at a map reading and asks the others where Earth is. Puzzled, they attempt to contact traffic control. While the message constantly repeats, they get the AI on board to keep on contacting, yet there is no reply. Finally finding Earth, they're confused as to why they are in the wrong system. Having a meeting with the whole team, Dallas tells them that during their sleep, instead of arriving at Earth, they seem to only be halfway as Mother redirected their ship to a distress call out in the middle of nowhere. Not knowing whether it is human or something else, Parker tells the team he is not contracted to rescue anything, but Ash stops him and says,
"There is a clause in the contract of transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated
on
penalty of total forfeiture of shares."
Going in to investigate the distress call, they listen to the voice message and are horrified with the weird sounds it is making. Unlike anything they've ever heard, they nonetheless find the quadrant and put the exact location on the screen, with it being a planetoid only 12,000 kilometers long. And the gravity being 0.86, you can walk on it. Going to the mini-planet, everyone sits in their positions and they navigate their way there. Preparing to disengage from the platform, their ship disconnects and takes off. The crew navigate the ship towards the unknown planetoid and use the guiding system to safely get their way onto the planet. Turbulence is quite bad though, and the team all relax and do their jobs. Taking the ship down, the landing gear engages, and the team steadily keep the ship in place. Upon landing though, the ship begins bouncing around, causing some tech to explode and the crew to turn off any fires. Not knowing what caused this, Dallas demands answers and Parker goes downstairs to tell the crew that in the secondary loading sharing unit, 4 cells are destroyed. They also need to reroute a couple of ducts, but they can't fix it out here anyways, as they need to dry dock. Fragments also made their way in, and they need to clean it and repressurize everything. Needing about 25 hours to fix it, they get to work and have long hours ahead of them. With the heavy winds outside hitting the ship, Dallas turns the lights on and is told the sun should be up in 20 minutes. With outside weather being quite heavy, Ash discovers the transmission signal only 2 kilometers northeast. The atmosphere reading comes back with inert nitrogen, high concentration of carbon dioxide crystals and methane. With Kane and Dallas alongside Lambert being the first to volunteer to leave the ship, they must be ready for what is ahead of them. When the crew is finally ready to go, they all wear astronaut suits and disembark their ship. Using an elevator to get to ground level, they cannot see much at all, but inside the ship, Ash has a better vision than them. Still fixing the ship meanwhile, Parker speaks to Ripley and keeps saying he can't hear her. The second she leaves though, he disables the pressure and laughs alongside Brett. The team outside continue their walk until Ripley returns back to her seat and just puts her feet up. With the ominous-looking sun coming up, the trio walk through the barren landscape until they see something in their view. Ash also sees the object and confesses he's never seen anything like it before. The 3 of them keep walking towards the thing when Ash's computer starts bugging out. Lambert wants to go back to the ship, but Kane says they've come this far. Losing visual, Ash goes back to the main monitor when the team arrive at the weird object. Inspecting the inside of it, the darkness and silence is the only truth in this place. Discovering something different down below, the three of them continue moving and climb their way to find a very strange and disturbing scene. A massive alien looking through something resembling a telescope. Being dead quite a while due to being fossilized, it also seems that he exploded from the inside with his bones bending outwards. Knowing that something quite disturbing is taking place on this ship, Kane quickly calls the other two to come over, getting up to go have a look. The scene cuts back to the ship where Ripley tells Ash that Mother has deciphered some of the transmission, saying it appears to not have been a distress call and more likely to be a warning to stay away. She wants to go out and call the team back but is told to hold off. With the others, the stupid morons haven't got the hint to get off the ship and leave. Instead, they keep discovering more strange things after the next. They are also making my job just as hard because I have no idea what I'm even looking at. With Kane finding slithering objects he thinks might be eggs or something, he decides to have a real close look to find a layer of mist covering the eggs when he suddenly slips. Coming face to face with all these hideous-looking things, he believes they are completely sealed until one makes a noise when he touches it. Seeing movement inside now, he gets his gun ready and just watches closely. The hatch of the egg suddenly opens, though, and Kane goes to have a look until something pops out and grabs him. With the wind still howling and the crew waiting for their team's return, Dallas and Lambert arrive back at the ship and go up the elevator while closing the hatch behind them. Being cleaned, it seems they have also brought Kane back, who has something attached on his face. Being organic, Ripley tells Dallas she can't let it in for at least 24 hours as their quarantine decontamination procedure states. With Kane not having 24 hours to live, Ash decides to just open the hatch and disobey Ripley's order. In the infirmary, the team analyze the organic substance that latched itself to Kane. The scene does not look good though, as the slimy organ just holds onto Kane's face and neck. The whole team is in awe and watch this when Lambert decides to smack Ripley in the face for not letting them in immediately. Dallas also screams that he wants his orders followed at all times when Ash gets to work to try and pull off the creature's fingers, which causes it to tighten its grip. Deciding to put Kane inside a machine to be scanned, they find out the creature has something down Kane's throat and feeding him oxygen while also paralyzing him and putting him into a coma. Dallas decides to try and cut the creature off him, even if it means risking his friend's life. With Ash beginning the procedure, the creature releases a type of chemical that begins burning through the ship. Scared that it will burn the hull, Dallas rushes to the room below. Seeing it is burnt down, the team go one more level down and see it stopping. Grabbing a pen, Dallas touches the substance and has not seen anything like that other than molecular acid. Knowing it has a deadly defense mechanism, Parker and Brett are told to get back to fixing the ship. In the med lab, meanwhile, the alien creature and Kane stay on the bed while Ash tries to understand the creature more in order to free his friend. Telling Ripley the creature sheds its cells and replaces them with polarized silicon, it is well prepared for quite strong environmental conditions and is tough. Ripley isn't happy that he didn't follow decontamination procedures, but Ash says it was a risk he was willing to take in order to save Kane's life. Some while later, Dallas kicks back by himself and is told by Ash he needs to come to the med lab immediately. Discovering Kane freed from the creature, they have problematically lost it. Not knowing where it is, they slowly creep around until Dallas scares Ripley. Continuing to look around the place, Ripley, Ash, and Dallas don't find anything until the creature drops onto Ripley. Shrugging it off, the creature looks like it's dead but does have some reflexes still. Believing it has died, Ash begins having a look at it and wants to conduct tests and research, as it is the first time a species has been encountered like this. With Ripley wanting to toss the creature away, Dallas tells Ash he's in charge of the science division and he can make that decision. With Ripley not so happy to hear Dallas, not really too fazed by the entire situation, the crew have pretty much repaired the necessary items on the ship and go to take off. Once officially off the ground, the entire team all play their part. Within a couple of minutes, everything goes according to plan, and they finally escape that demonic planet. Once they attach themselves to the main ship, the crew sit down with each other and talk. Lambert approaches them and says they are about 10 months travel away from Earth. Ash simultaneously contacts the group and tells them to come and see Kane. Surprisingly enough, he looks quite well and can't really remember what happened to him. With a lot of them finally enjoying a meal after the entire ordeal, they all laugh with each other when suddenly Kane begins choking. Saying this is serious, everyone gets up to restrain him and save him when he suddenly begins bleeding from his torso. Out of nowhere, Kane tragically dies when an alien pops out of his chest. With the creature looking around and Ash telling the group do not touch it, it takes off. With the entire team in shock, they all go looking for the problem that has now made its way onto the ship. Laying their friend to rest, they all say their final words and launch him into the endless abyss. Planning on killing the little creature, Ash says he has created a device that once in close proximity it will tell you if anything is moving other than you. Testing it, Dallas wants 2 teams to be formed and all they want to do is to catch it, put it in the airlock and send it to where it belongs. With Ripley, Parker, and Brett canvassing one part of the ship, Ash's device begins beeping and saying the creature is within 5 meters. Going into a room and quietly searching the place, they discover it's inside the locker. Placing a net around it, they slowly open it up to find a cat that runs away. Ripley tells Brett he's an idiot and to go get the cat. Brett then makes his own way around the ship to find the cat he let loose.
Here, kitty. Jonesy? Here, Jonesy. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
Finding what is most likely the creature's excess skin, Brett continues to look for the cat.
Jonesy.
Discovering the cat, the creature, now much and I mean much larger than before, comes from behind Brett and brutally kills him. Parker and Ripley quickly rush in to try and help but aren't able to do a thing. Disappearing into one of the cooling ducts, Dallas looks through the ship's schematics to find that the duct leads to the main airlock. With one big opening on the way, they need to block it up and force it into the airlock. With Ash saying the creature has adapted well to the atmosphere, he believes fire may be able to scare it, and Parker is told to rig up a couple incinerator units. With the team getting to work, Dallas gets to the first junction and Ripley opens the airlock. Closing one part of the air duct, Dallas makes his way through it and opens the hatch to the third junction. After going past it, he tells Ripley to close every hatch behind him. Lambert then contacts Dallas and has found the alien somewhere around the third junction. Still moving on, Dallas is very close to the creature and fires the flamethrower as a precaution. Climbing the ladder downwards, Lambert tells him to stop, as she has lost the signal. Continuously saying the creature should literally be right there, Dallas fires the flamethrower to have a look. Very confused as to what is happening and wanting to leave, Lambert says it has reappeared and heading towards him. Dallas realizes death is near and tries to escape, with Lambert literally crying on the comms and telling him get away. But he problematically runs into the creature and visuals as well as audio is lost. Parker tells the group he left the flamethrower and took Dallas. But there was no blood and they need a plan to kill this alien. Ripley tells them they have to stick to Dallas's plan. And Lambert cries and says she wants to abandon ship and use the shuttle. Parker shuts her up though, as they all do not fit in it. She tells the remainder of the team the creature is using the air shaft and they must split into groups of 2 and corner the alien and send it to God. With the team going to get ready, Ripley asks for Ash's suggestion, but he and Mother are still collating, telling him to go away as he's useless. Ripley, who is now in command, speaks to Mother. Wanting clarification as to why science cannot take out the creature, Mother cannot clarify and says the intel is for the science office's eyes only. Being an emergency command override, Ripley bypasses it and is told the ship was rerouted to new coordinates to investigate a life form and gather a specimen. Mother's priority 1 is to ensure return of the organism for analysis, and the crew is expendable. Ripley grabs Ash and knows this was all his fault. Attempting to contact the rest of the team, Ash traps her in. Locking one door after the next, he begins leaking some sort of weird substance as Ripley approaches him. He rips some of her hair and chases her. Also tossing her like a doll, something is very wrong with him. Having unhuman strength, he grabs a magazine and tightens it to the core. Trying to kill Ripley with it, Parker and Lambert come from nowhere to save her. Parker trips out on Ash's strength, but a mad hit gets him to start spazzing out and puking something. Hitting him again, Ash's head comes off and Parker keeps attacking and realizes that Ash is an android. Even with its head off, the robot keeps attacking until Lambert finally puts an end to it. With Ripley suspecting that Ash was placed to retrieve the alien for the weapons division, it was protecting the alien all along, and intentionally put it on the ship. Managing to sort of turn on Ash, they demand answers from him.
What was your special order?
Bring back life form. All other priorities rescinded.
What about our lives, you son of a...
There's gotta be a way of killing it. How?
You can't. You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? A survivor by conscience. I can't lie to you about your chances. You have my sympathies.
With Ripley wanting to blow up the ship, they incinerate Ash and now have to grab what they need in order to escape on the shuttle. Giving them 7 minutes to be back, they all get to work on saving their lives and destroying the creature. Lambert and Parker grab all the coolant they can get, and Ripley hears the cat and wants to save it. Walking towards the cat's sound, she looks around the place for it. Getting jump scared, the cat is finally grabbed and put into a box for safety. Suddenly hearing the other two, Parker yells at Lambert to get out of the way, but she is in shock. With the alien about to kill her, she is so devastated and Parker has to jump in the way to save her. Problematically being trapped himself, he is killed on the spot. Lambert is then targeted next and just screams when Ripley comes running towards her. Only hearing horrific screams, then a sudden stop, Ripley witnesses firsthand that she is the last person on the ship. Running for her life, she knows there is only a few minutes left to live. Sneakily going to activate the emergency destruction system, she turns it on and has exactly 10 minutes to get herself to safety. With an alarm blaring throughout the entire ship, Ripley begins her escape. Hoping the sirens and sounds distract the alien long enough for her to reach the shuttle and detach herself, she hears a groaning sound. Using the flamethrower as light, she goes to inspect and finds Dallas alive. Also finding Brett trapped in some weird thing, Dallas tells Ripley to kill him, and she acknowledges his request and burns everything around her. With only a couple minutes left, Ripley takes the necessities and continues her escape. Turning the corner to see the alien there, Ripley slowly backs away and tries going the other way but is spotted. With Ripley changing her mind, she tries to override the system and turn off the detonation. However, the timer expires and Mother doesn't allow her to do so. Swearing at her, Ripley makes a run and just screams at Mother. Finding her escape shuttle, she holds the flamethrower at the ready and grabs the cat. With the ship already starting to blow up, Ripley goes inside the secondary ship and without hesitation takes off. As the countdown drops to only 15 seconds, Ripley makes a decent space between her and the ship and it blows up in an enormous explosion. Finally eradicating that heinous monster, she says,
"I got you."
Taking the cat out of the box, Ripley pats it and at least has a friend on this journey with her. Putting the cat to sleep, she also prepares to do the same. Hearing a weird clicking sound though, she problematically discovers the alien on the ship. Hiding, the creature seems to be stuck or perhaps injured. Still alive though, Ripley jumps into an astronaut suit and has a plan. Grabbing a weapon, she sees the creature moving and with nothing but bravery sings to herself to keep calm and activates the ship's controls. With the creature getting annoyed, it moves around and stands up straight. Not able to look at the alien, she decides to open the hatch and send the creature to hell. Still being a persistent bug, it latches itself to the plane's engines and Ripley activates it and burns the beast off, finally saving herself once and for all. Giving a detailed report on everything that happened, she sits alone with the cat and mentions she should reach the frontier in 6 weeks and with luck might get picked up and saved. And with that, she heads to the chamber for a long slumber. Alien Romulus opens up in 2142 in between Alien and Aliens. A Weyland-piloted spacecraft activates and makes its way to a wreckage site. The wreckage site of USCSS Nostromo, intercepting the xenomorph that Ripley killed earlier that morphed into an asteroid-like cocoon. Once the ship returns to headquarters, it lowers the object in front of suited-up people, and a machine quickly cuts it open. Soon enough, the item inside is transported away, and all we know for now is that Weyland Corporation are just low IQ degenerates, as they still don't understand to stop messing around with the goddamn aliens. The scene soon cuts to a woman named Marie Rain Carradine, or Rain for short, being woken up by an announcement. Going to get some food, she links up with her brother Andy, an android her father found dumped away when she was a child. Walking on the streets of Jackson's star colony, the place is a total dump with 0 hours of starlight and a population of less than 3,000 people. The duo soon arrive at the Office of Colony Affairs. Wanting to leave the desolate colony, all her thousands of hours of work are discarded, and she is not given her contract release and sent to the mines for another 12,000 hours of work. Looking outside, Rain sees her brother Andy getting hit by hooligans and she resets him. Calming him down, the two sit, and Rain is called by her friend to come down. Once there, we are introduced to Bjorn as well as Navarro. Bjorn's cousin Kay, as well as her older brother and the leader Tyler, show Rain that they discovered an abandoned Weyland ship drifting through space above them. Tyler continues by saying that they are never getting off this planet, and the Weyland ship has cryopods which would allow them to travel to the Earth-like planet Ivaga. With Andy being a Weyland bot, he can access the terminal of the ship, but Rain refuses to put her brother at risk and tells them no and walks outside. With Tyler chasing her and using his sweet words, she ends up agreeing. Soon enough, the team get into their cargo ship and take off. Within a couple of minutes and some intense weather and shaking, they end up making it out of the atmosphere and into space. With Rain seeing the sun for the first time in her life, they quickly discover the abandoned space shuttle and prepare their deployment. Rain pulls Andy aside and asks if he really wants to do this, and he tells her he has one directive: to do what's best for her, something her dad had taught him. With the ship making its way to the Renaissance Research Station, it becomes very obvious that Bjorn hates androids. But nonetheless, the mission is a go and the cargo ship locks onto the abandoned spacecraft. Andy then sees if his credentials can open the ship and he is granted access. The three men make their way inside and crawl through the vents to eventually come out. Turning the system on, Mother 9000 activates all the systems and makes the ship operational once again. Discovering the cryopods, they seem to be working but need fuel. Going to another part of the ship to find fuel, Bjorn takes out some anger on Andy, which we then learn from Kay that his mother was killed by an android who killed her in order to save a dozen lives. With Navarro moving the ship to the other side for the cryopods, they land inside the spacecraft this time, and we discover that Kay is pregnant. Seems the father is some random useless man, and Navarro goes to secure the cryopods. Back to the trio, they continue exploring the ship and come across an important message: that this part of the ship is named Romulus, the brother who killed his own for power and greed to rule over Rome. An annoyed Bjorn suddenly begins annoying Andy once again, and tells him once they arrive in Ivaga, bots are not allowed on the planet, and he will guard the pods until they arrive, where he will soon be decommissioned. Standing staunch for Rain, he says this is what's best for her and continues through. With the cargo ship connecting to the next part awaiting their friends, the trio find the fuel signal. Discovering a mad taser, the crew also finds a massive hole in the ground created by what they think is a chemical spill. Continuing on, they open the cryo chamber's door, which doesn't open the whole way. Once through, they find the floor flooded but also manage to discover usable fuel. Ripping one container from the compartment, emergency alarms begin blaring and Andy attempts to open the door but doesn't have the clearance. It seems Mother was not happy that the room was tampered with, but Navarro and Rain quickly disembark their ship and go to access the door. Finding the locked room and a dead android near the gaping hole, Rain gets an idea. Inside the locked room, meanwhile, everyone there is absolutely f***ed when we realize that the fuel was there to keep the facehuggers frozen. With Rain trying to take out a chip, the android startles awake and fights until they take out the module and stop it. Quickly rushing to the door, Rain hands it over and tells Andy to put it in. Once he does so, he gets stuck in place while he analyzes the data. With it going to take a couple of minutes, the facehuggers begin bursting out and go into the water below. Soon enough, Bjorn is attacked, and the creature jumps on his face to impregnate him but is tossed away. With it coming back, everyone inside need to get out of that room. With Rain trying to break the door down, Tyler is almost infected but is saved by Andy. Quickly helping the other two, he accesses the door, and the trio escape with one facehugger free. The rest soon break down the door and chase the group down, with one of them catching Navarro. With her struggling and panicking, the group have to stop, and Andy explains the creature is feeding her oxygen to keep her alive. With Andy speaking weirdly, Rain goes to take out the module, but he doesn't let her. He explains to the group he doesn't have the knowledge to save Navarro, so he decides to hook up the android from earlier. With the science officer Rook coming to life, he says the same thing he mentioned to Ripley about how the aliens are the perfect organisms and that the only thing they can do is run. Showing them that a xenomorph will come out of Navarro, he reports that Ripley was the only survivor of the Nostromo, and Weyland has been looking for the xenomorph for quite a while. They discovered the Nostromo wreckage 6 months ago and presumed the alien to be dead, but it seems no oxygen in space wasn't enough to kill the creature that eventually ripped the ship apart. Rain quickly stops the discussion and makes a suggestion to freeze the facehugger, then rip it off Navarro. Getting to work, the crew do exactly that, and the alien releases its hold, causing the team to rip it off and scare it down a hole. Navarro then startles awake, and everyone comforts her immediately, only for Rook to say there is a 60% chance she was impregnated. Grabbing Andy, he tells him that humans are irrational, and he must make the tough choices. Telling the entire group he will not allow Navarro back on the ship, Bjorn tasers him out of the way and rushes off. Andy apologizes to Rain and runs off to stop Bjorn but cannot do so in time. With only Navarro, Bjorn, and Kay not trapped, Tyler demands to be set free. Linking up with Andy, Rain and Tyler try convincing Bjorn to open the door, but he refuses to do so until Andy leaves. On the cargo ship, Navarro begins holding her chest and she places a device to see an alien inside who attacks her. Accidentally hitting the ship's controls, Navarro pleads for her life when an alien rips her open from the inside. With the cargo ship hitting the main one to activate an engine, everyone is in deep shit. Bjorn quickly climbs the ladders and sees the stupidity of his actions when suddenly the ship begins crash landing onto the main vessel and parks up quite well, causing Mother to make the ship airtight. Mother then jumps on the comms and says the spacecraft will be obliterated in the ring of a planet in 47 minutes. Rook quickly makes his way to Mother and wants to save the aliens at all cost. With the trio needing to get to the other side and onto their ship, they need to pass a deadly room. With Rook telling Andy that his upgrade came with a new directive, he needs to finish the mission. Andy returns to the duo and tells them the facehuggers don't have eyes, just heat signatures and sound. Raising the temperature in the room to that of their bodies, Kay wakes up in the shipwreck. Being quite injured, she needs to quietly escape the vessel. Back with the others, they enter the death room and do not expect to make it out alive. Slowly walking past the facehuggers without them realizing anything, they are suddenly scared by a corpse but manage to remain silent. When Kay goes down the ladder in the cargo ship, she watches her steps very carefully as she suspects she is not alone. Seeing the xenomorph morphing, Bjorn jumps in and plans on electrocuting the creature to death. Hooking up the taser, he puts it directly on the xenomorph and hits it repeatedly till it stops. But the moron didn't run away quick enough, and the alien shoots acid at him and eventually kills him. With the alien coming out, Kay tries opening a door, but it is stuck. Contacting the others for help, they cannot speak much as the facehuggers start to look at them. With the alien officially coming out of its cocoon, everyone is pretty much dead at this point. But Kay does manage to get the door open only to topple over and knock herself out. The others in the meantime are forced to run and all the facehuggers chase them. With Andy closing the door, the trio make it to safety just in time. With 30 minutes until destruction, Kay wakes up and crawls around the place and stops moving when she realizes the xenomorph is on top of her. It walks away though, and Kay continues crawling and goes to open a door but stops and turns around. Tyler then comes from the other side, and as Andy goes to open the door, he stops when he notices the alien is behind her and waiting. Saying that's what the creature wants, Tyler begs Andy to open the door. But it is too late. The alien snatches her up and leaves. Andy cops a mad slap on the face and both Rain and Tyler grieve the loss of Kay. Andy then bluntly tells Rain he has a new primary directive, to do what's best for the company. Continuing through the demonic ship, they arrive at the Romulus lab. Inside, Rook and Andy begin explaining that their colonies are dying. Unbearable temperatures, diseases, or toxic mining fumes, humans were never meant to travel. But this station was supposed to change that, as inside the parasite there was a very unique fluid. This microorganism can be the most destructive pathogen ever, but once synthesized in the lab, it can turn into the miracle Weyland sought through the Prometheus expedition. Being the biggest upgrade for humanity, Andy receives the compound, and they begin their trek back to the ship when they realize the alien is hunting them. Strapping themselves up, they all get to work to escape the vessel. With 20 minutes until they die, they turn on the lights to find the walls covered in a weird substance. Knowing the aliens have made this part their home, they turn back, but Tyler stops when he hears his sister and runs to save her. Finding her on the wall crying, Tyler rips her free and notices she's losing a lot of blood. Andy offers her the genome to save herself, but Rain doesn't trust it and stops Tyler from putting it in. Hearing the alien approaching, the group quickly get up and head to the ship. An alien then appears from behind and goes to kill Rain when Tyler sacrifices himself and is dragged away. Tyler quickly realizes there is more than one xenomorph on board and is brutally killed. With Rain helping Kay onto the elevator, facehuggers chase them, and Andy is left to glitch on his own. Stopping the elevator, Kay is instructed to go back to the ship and into a cryopod where the autopilot will fly her back to the colony. With Rain saying she'll find her own way back, she gets onto the stairwell and goes to save Andy. Kay the moron decides to inject herself with the black liquid and will see the consequences of that later. Rain meanwhile gets to her brother, and as she goes to fix him, she takes out the other module and reboots him. Waking up to his true self, he apologizes to Rain when an alien notices her. As the demons approach, the duo run and are trapped in. Rook refuses to open the door for them, and the xenomorphs approach when Rook gives his sympathy. Rook quickly connects to the cargo shuttle and tells Kay to press a button to give him access to the ship. Rain simultaneously gets an idea and disables the gravity before shooting an alien dead. Continuing her assault, the creatures die one at a time but release acid everywhere. With the aliens and facehuggers neutralized for the time being, the duo attempt to make it past the acid without getting hit. Doing so and making it to the elevator, it won't work without gravity, and so they go to make it up themselves when an alien grabs Rain's leg. Shooting it away, she goes up the elevator shaft but needs to grab the handrails before the gravity engages but cannot do it in time and drops. With death seconds away, an alien saves her to impregnate her with a facehugger just as the acid from earlier burns a hole into space. The elevator also activates and saves Rain's life by eliminating all aliens in the shaft. One of them was hidden, however, and just before Rain's life is over, Andy comes to the rescue and kills both the facehugger and xenomorph. With the spacecraft making contact with the planet's ring, Rain and Andy make it aboard the cargo vessel where Mother takes control and pilots their ship to safety with seconds left to spare. As the spacecraft blows up to pieces, Kay is placed in the cryopod, and Rook congratulates them on a mission success with Weyland on their way. Rain decides to take off the automated pilot and tells Rook there is a change of plans, and he begs them to stop just as he suffers a beautiful death. Heading to Ivaga, Rain thanks Andy so much and makes her way to the cryochamber. Problematically, Kay's pod begins going critical, and Rain looks to see her violently shaking. Somehow becoming 9 months pregnant, she begins screaming and giving birth. I'm just going to stop it here and tell you, I can't handle birth scenes in movies. I'm already struggling with my delivery. With Rain taking off and planning to freeze whatever is coming out of Kay, a beautiful acidic baby boy is born who falls to a lower level. With autopilot off, the ship slowly makes its way to the ring when Andy gets involved. With Rain going to kill the son of a and I mean that literally, Kay is actually one stupid bitch. Rain has a look at the cocoon to find the baby missing, and I guess parents don't lie when they say kids have growth spurts quite early. With Kay outside of the cryopod crying in pain, the black liquid destroyed her insides when she suddenly freezes at the sight of her child. Crying at how chubby and beautiful it is, it crawls to its mama for some milk. Cutting Andy up, it approaches its mommy and just wants some milk, as it is a growing boy. With Rain arriving on the scene, she discovers Kay dead. The offspring turns around and the NBA recruiters get quite excited for their upcoming 12-foot player. Rain wants to ruin the child's career though and quickly goes to save Andy. Not being able to do so, the cold becomes too much, and she is forced to put on a suit so she doesn't die from hyperthermia. With the offspring ripping the door open, Rain goes to the lower level. Hooking herself up, she waits for the child who appears. Planning to open the hatch to suck the baby into oblivion, it instead jumps from behind and knocks her over. Laughing at her with its disgusted mutated body, Rain chucks the acid from the cocoon onto the floor, causing a hole to suck them both out. With Rain attempting to climb back inside the ship to safety, the Offspring appears again and grabs her. Trying to break her visors and kill her, she releases a massive part of the ship, causing the Offspring to finally fall to its death. Once safe and inside the ship, autopilot is once again re-engaged, and an injured Andy as well as Rain both go into cryo-sleep and make their way to Ivaga. Aliens 2 begins in the deep abyss of space. Our main character, Ellen Ripley, is drifting in hypersleep after the events of the first Alien film. A proximity alarm flashes aboard her almost frozen ship as a large cruiser takes her in. Several astronauts board and find Ripley's sleeping body along with her cat. She is soon awoken in a hospital where a visitor, Carter Burke, who works for the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, greets her and says she's been in hypersleep for quite a bit of time, 57 years in fact, and it was a sheer miracle she was found in the first place. The noise quiets around Ripley as she wrestles with the idea of being asleep for 57 years. At this time, a pain develops in her chest that sends her screaming and begging for death. Realizing that the same alien which killed her crew is inside her, she begs for it to end and suddenly wakes up in a cold sweat, relieved it was only a dream. A doctor asks her if she wants something to help her sleep again. Ripley says no and assures herself that the events of the past are over. Later, Burke comes in to see Ripley again and she asks him if there's any news about her daughter and is told she shouldn't worry about that, as an important deposition regarding the Nostromo ship was about to be held. She persists though, and Burke reluctantly tells her the sad news of her daughter's passing at age 66, which occurred 2 years ago. Ripley cries as she made a promise to her baby that she would be there for her 11th birthday. Later in the deposition, Ripley explains the events of the Nostromo. However, the board is skeptical to say the least of her story. They say for unknown reasons the ship did land on the planet LV-426 but do not believe her accounts of an alien. She pleads with them, and even begins to scream in order to stress the importance of an outbreak. The board then begins to question her psychological competency and suspend her flight license and place her under 6 months of psychological observation. As the meeting concludes, Ripley corners the head of the board and tells him why they don't go to the planet and look themselves. He says that people have been living there for 20 years, about 60 to 70 families, and have never mentioned hostile organisms. Meanwhile, on the planet LV-426, we see a small colony has been built on this somewhat hostile world. In the command center, a call is made from a family of scavengers, indicating that they might have found something which they were sent to look for on the company's orders. We then cut to the family who have found the same crashed ship from the first film. The mother and father go to look inside and tell their daughter Newt to stay in the vehicle with her brother. A while passes and the mother returns, instantly radioing an emergency as we see the father on the floor with a facehugger gripped to his face. Back with Ripley, Burke and an officer, Lieutenant Gorman, come to see her when she immediately dismisses them. But when Burke tells her they've lost contact with LV-426, she is very keen to listen. Burke enters and says he wants Ripley to go back to the colony with a group of Marines to serve as an advisor, and she tells him no, and a back and forth ensues with Burke and her until he tells Ripley he can reinstate her flight license if she agrees. She still refuses to go though, and so Burke hands her his card to think about it. Later that night, after another nightmare, Ripley finally decides to call Burke. She tells him she will go only under the condition that they destroy the aliens, not study them. After a while, aboard a ship, Ripley awakes from cryosleep with a group of Marines. Sergeant Apone begins barking orders to the other Marines to fall in line and get prepared. During breakfast, we meet an android named Bishop who is asked by a Marine, Hudson, to play a knife game. Bishop places his hand above Hudson's and begins to stab the table in between his fingers while the rest of the Marines laugh at this. Bishop then offers Ripley some food. She finds out he is an android and berates Burke for bringing an AI on the ship. Considering what happened to the AI aboard the Nostromo, she hits the plate out of Bishop's hand and tells him to stay away from her. In the hangar with the entire crew, Lieutenant Gorman begins to explain the nature of the mission. He allows Ripley to speak, who begins to retell the details of the Nostromo. But the soldiers make light of this, and some even laugh at her, not taking her story seriously. Ripley warns them again though, this will be the most dangerous task they will do in their lifetimes. The lieutenant then orders everyone to get their weapons and prepare their vehicles. The soldiers soon board a smaller ship, getting ready to land on the planet. The sergeant begins to hype up the Marines, all clearly thinking they can handle whatever it is that's down there. They get into an armored vehicle which will be dropped off on the planet and used to maneuver around the colony. The ship begins its dive into the atmosphere, and the lieutenant admits this is only his second drop into combat, which instantly decreases everyone's confidence in him. The soldiers are all ready and very overconfident though, with their vitals and head cameras displayed and monitored in the armored truck. Hudson then begins to taunt Ripley by arrogantly showing all the weapons they have on board, including a small nuke, saying they will be prepared for anything and nothing can stop him. Ripley sighs as she knows they don't know what they're walking into. As the jet goes over and circles the complex, the structure is intact and the power is still active. However, there is no sign of activity, it's completely empty. The armored vehicle is dropped off and the soldiers exit it. Making their way to the colony, Ripley, Burke and the lieutenant, along with some other Marines, remain in the vehicle, monitoring the Marines' head cameras. The squads tactically move in as they hack into the main gate, entering the colony. The inside is extremely quiet and ripped apart. There is a deafening silence as they slowly move through and see some explosive damage alongside bullet holes, indicating some struggle. They split up into various groups and begin to search while also using a motion tracker which shows no movement. Ripley spots a piece of the floor which has been melted, indicating to her that an alien was here. They look down to see multiple levels melted through, though still unsure what caused this. They say the area is secure, but Ripley insists there's something there and they need to leave. Gorman, Burke, and Ripley make their way to the team with the armored vehicle. It drives through the colony and onto the front entrance. The soldiers say they got the computer working. They discover a wing that was welded and sealed off. Though the barricade did not stand as it was destroyed, still no bodies were discovered. Ripley and the soldiers walk into a lab and spot a group of dead facehuggers in tubes. She confirms to the team that these are in fact the same ones from the Nostromo, instantly putting everyone on edge. A reading is then picked up on the motion sensor, indicating something is near. They move as a group very slowly. As the sensor picks up that the entity is moving toward them, something dashes past them and their guns go off in fear. They soon realize that it's a child, the same child from the scavenger family who discovered the ship. They chase her and find her living in a sealed-off basement. She is extremely dirty and refuses to speak. They take her back to the command room and try questioning her. She still doesn't answer or speak and barely flinches or reacts as Ripley cleans her face. The soldiers scan for a tracking chip embedded in every colonist and still get no information on their whereabouts. The little girl tells Ripley that her name is Newt. She snaps at Ripley and tells her that her whole family is dead and she wants to leave. Newt says that no matter how many soldiers there are, it won't make a difference. The soldiers simultaneously spot the tracking chips of the civilians in a sublevel under the cooling tower. They drive the truck into the cooling tower building and begin their entrance by descending down the stairs toward sublevel 3 while Ripley watches their videos from above. The crew looks to the walls and finds some unknown biological matter everywhere. Ripley tells Gorman that the bullets they use are explosive tipped and will set off the cooling station if they fire. Burke agrees and tells Gorman that this facility uses a terraforming machine, which is like a nuclear reactor and could be set off by any explosion. Apone orders his men not to use any explosive ammunition or devices. The Marines begrudgingly agree and keep moving. They soon begin to spot bodies which are hanging from this biological matter on the walls and ceilings, their faces horrified and mutilated. They also find the bodies of dead facehuggers, along with chest-bursted civilians. The entire crew's demeanor immediately shifts when they discover a live civilian who is begging for her death, who soon receives it after an alien explodes from her stomach, forcing the soldiers to incinerate it. This then brings out multiple signals on the motion sensor. Sounds creep along the walls, and the crew begin to panic hard. They can't see what's moving, but the sensors are picking up something. At that instant, an alien comes down and snatches a Marine, causing the crew to open fire, and the rest of the aliens begin to seethe through the walls. Gorman begins to give Apone orders, who is in sheer fright at this point, when he is soon killed. Ripley watches through the monitors as the Marines are being killed off one by one. With Gorman in a state of shock, Ripley begins to act herself, driving the armored vehicle deeper in the colony to rescue the crew. The team lay down all their fire onto aliens who are swarming them in sheer numbers. An alien is shot and the acid leaks onto another Marine, killing him instantly. They board the vehicle, shooting one last alien in the head before closing the doors and making for an escape. An alien attempts to swarm the vehicle, but Ripley maneuvers the ride to run it over. They successfully leave the colony only with a few survivors, including Vasquez, Hudson, and Hicks. The soldiers want to go back and rescue the rest, but Ripley says they are being cocooned with the rest of the aliens. Ripley says they need to nuke the entire colony, in which Burke says there is a lot of money attached to this and tries to convince them not to destroy it. Ripley mentions the next in command is Hicks, who likes Ripley's plan. With that, they launch a flare and the ship takes off to pick them up. As the ship approaches, an alien is found on board who kills both the pilots. This causes the ship to crash, in which the crew saw as their only hope. They try to salvage anything they can, but realize it is beyond repair, and Hudson begins to panic as he says,
"That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over."
Newt tells the group that they need to go back inside the colony as they mostly come out at night. So with that, they settle into a small compartment inside the colony and seal it off. Managing to salvage some weapons from the wreckage, including a sentry turret, they mention if a team goes missing, it takes 17 days before they send out another crew to rescue them. Hudson begins to scream in fright as Ripley urges him to get a hold of himself and sends him to receive some building schematics. They begin to look at plans, trying to cut off the entry points that the aliens can enter from, placing sentry turrets in key locations. Hudson sets up 2 sentries, tests them, then seals the tunnel, blocking a pathway for the aliens. At the control center, Ripley puts Newt to sleep, then begins to strategize with Bishop, concluding that something must be laying these eggs, which have to be hundreds to infect the whole colony. Ripley tells Bishop to destroy the facehuggers, however Burke stops them, hoping to bring them back to the company. Ripley berates him for this, and also berates him because she found out that he was the one who sent the search party to look for the ship. She promises when they return she will nail him to the wall. An alarm then goes off as the aliens begin to make their way toward the sealed-off tunnel with the sentries. The aliens pour in with so many numbers that whilst the sentries do their job, they eventually run out of ammo and the aliens are left at the sealed doors waiting to come in. Bishop calls the team back and tells them some depressing news. The power source is damaged and set to explode in 40 hours, the size of a nuke which will wipe out the whole colony. There is another dropship, however, it can only be piloted remotely and from somewhere outside with a portable terminal. Hudson again refuses to go and Bishop volunteers, risking himself for the other survivors. Bishop begins his job and starts to crawl through a small tunnel, and after he leaves, they seal it. The other entrance to the control center is also being swarmed by aliens. This time the guns are able to stop them, but barely. Later, Ripley goes to check in on Newt and soon enough she falls asleep too. At that time, Bishop is able to get to a terminal and starts to remote pilot a ship from the orbiting aircraft. A sleeping Ripley wakes up to find one of the containers holding the facehuggers destroyed, and she immediately wakes Newt and tells her to be dead quiet. It jumps out at Ripley, who is able to catch it and throw it. They are then sealed shut in the room. For some reason, the door won't open. In the surveillance room, Burke switches off the cameras so no one can help them, trying to kill Ripley before she outs him. Ripley and Newt are in utter fear as they can hear the light steps of the creature. She then smartly lights a lighter to trigger the fire alarms, getting the soldiers' attention when the facehugger attacks again just as Hudson jumps through the window and kills one of them, then detaching the other from Ripley and killing it too. Ripley immediately says it was Burke who was trying to infect one of the survivors to get the alien back home. All the soldiers turn on him instantly, and as they are about to kill him, the power goes out, presumably being the aliens who cut it. They immediately take out their motion sensors and begin scanning and discover something inside the complex. A whole lot of aliens inside the perimeter, but they can't see them. They get inside a closer perimeter and seal the door. Again, the aliens are coming closer and closer. The motion is picking up a lot of signals. Inside the walls or on top or under, confusion is spread around the Marines. The sensor says they are in the room with them. They look up, open the ceiling and see numerous aliens coming towards them. They begin to open fire, killing some of them but not enough. Ripley also opens fire and kills one, but Burke seals her in somewhere, again trying to sabotage them. Hudson regains his courage and begins to stand toe-to-toe with them. He is almost killed but is saved by Velasquez. They then breach the door Burke sealed and seal it behind them, leaving Burke alone, who is easily caught by an alien and brutally killed. The group begins to crawl through the air vents, trying to make it to the landing pad. Newt guides them as they are forced to cover their rear by shooting more aliens. They continue to open fire and move quickly. Vasquez is overwhelmed by an alien and manages to kill it but is wounded from the acid. Gorman stays to carry her when they are blocked off by more. They become surrounded as Gorman lets off a grenade, killing themselves and many hostiles around them. Newt slips and falls down a rail. Ripley begins to use the motion sensor in an attempt to find her, and they do so. They begin to weld the floor to get her out, but an alien approaches Newt and takes her. Ripley says she is still alive and begs Hicks to save her. The team proceeds to the lower levels in an elevator and are forced to kill another hostile in close range, which wounds Hicks. Ripley goes outside, setting him down on the landing pad with the ship Bishop piloted. They go aboard the ship and Ripley suits up, getting ready to rescue Newt, but Bishop tells her she has 19 minutes left before the facility explodes. She enters it nonetheless and descends down to a deep level, steadily scanning the area with her flamethrower, looking for Newt. She uses the tracker that was given to her and begins zeroing in on her location. Maneuvering through the cramped hallways, the beeping becomes more erratic as she closes in. The only sounds are the hissing of aliens who lurk about waiting for her. Ripley then hears Newt scream, who is about to be injected with a facehugger. Ripley rushes forward though and shoots an alien and incinerates the facehugger before they can kill Newt. Newt grabs onto Ripley as they begin to make their escape, when suddenly realizing they are in a room full of facehugger eggs. Ripley slowly turns around and sees the horrifying reality of where they come from. A massive xenomorph queen who is awoken by Ripley. It calls out and other aliens begin to draw close. Watching Ripley, she uses her flamethrower on the eggs, and the aliens draw back, not wanting Ripley to hurt the rest of the eggs. She slowly backs off when suddenly, she torches the entire place, opening fire with her rifle and killing multiple xenomorphs while also shooting the queen. Launching multiple grenade launchers, she tries to clear an exit so they can leave, and quickly grabs Newt and runs for the ship with the queen closely following. She does make it to the elevator, which is problematically malfunctioning, allowing the queen to catch up, and Ripley quickly enters the elevator and ascends towards their escape with the hostiles following up the elevator shaft. Time is running out as she only has 2 minutes before the explosion. Making it to the top where Bishop is waiting, the queen also arrives, but cannot stop Ripley and Newt's escape. Bishop punches the ship and is able to get everyone to safety before a massive nuclear explosion goes off, incinerating the entire colony as well as its infestation. The team are relieved as they finally have made it to safety. Landing the ship somewhere, Hicks is still injured. But Bishop, Ripley, and Newt exit and discuss the turn of events when Bishop is stabbed from behind by the Queen Xenomorph who stowed away on the outside of the ship. It rips him apart as it slowly descends onto the pad. Ripley draws its attention away from Newt and onto herself, then makes a bolt toward an iron door and seals herself in with Newt hiding under the floors. The Queen begins to rip it apart to get to her, and the iron doors open again when Ripley comes out in an exosuit and begins to punch the alien with her mechanical hands. It fights back though, and nearly manages to stab her with its tail, but Ripley opens a door on the floor which leads to an airlock. They tussle and are both thrown into the room. Ripley gets out of the suit and begins to climb her way out when her foot is caught by the alien. She opens the airlock into space and the alien is still gripping. Eventually it gives in and falls into the depths of space when Ripley climbs out and closes the airlock, finally guaranteeing their safety. The crew all take a moment to rest, finally relieved everything is over. Some time passes and Ripley puts the crew into hypersleep, then eventually herself setting a course for home. Aliens 3 opens up with the team inside the spacecraft Sulaco while it drifts silently through space with its crew in hypersleep. Unbeknownst to them, an alien egg has stowed away on the ship. The egg eventually hatches, causing an electrical fire on board. As the alien creature attaches itself to one of the crew members, the ship's automated systems kick in, sending all the cryotubes into an escape pod, which is then ejected into space. The POD's navigation system directs it to Furina 161, a remote planet that serves as a prison colony for the most dangerous criminals. The colony is owned by the same company that operates the Sulaco. When the inmates discover the escape pod, they find that Ripley is still alive. They quickly bring her to the infirmary, where Dr. Clemens tends to her and administers an injection to ease her pain. However, he delivers some grim news. Ripley is the only survivor of the crash. The other 2 human crew members didn't make it, and the android is beyond repair. Meanwhile, the inmates use a crane to bring the wrecked ship inside and take a look at it. Warden Andrews gathers the prisoners to announce that there is now a woman in the building. Some of the men express concern, predicting that her presence will cause trouble. However, Andrews reassures them that he has already contacted the company and requested a rescue ship. Ripley is placed under the care of Dr. Clemens with strict orders to stay in the infirmary until the rescue ship arrives. As Ripley starts feeling better, she insists on seeing the wreckage. Clemens agrees to take her there, explaining how each person died. He mentions that the little girl passed away in her sleep, but Ripley notices a scorch mark on the side of the cryotube. Remembering that the aliens have acid for blood, she becomes suspicious and asks to see the girl's body. They head to the morgue where Ripley begins examining the girl's body, worried that an alien might be inside. She demands an autopsy, citing a possible infection, which makes Clemens suspicious. Nevertheless, he complies, and to Ripley's relief, the autopsy reveals that the girl died from drowning with no signs of alien life. Just then, Andrews enters and reprimands Ripley for leaving the infirmary, but she distracts him by suggesting they burn the bodies to prevent the spread of infection. Shortly after, the bodies from the ship are cremated, with inmate Dylan delivering a heartfelt eulogy. Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, an animal suddenly bursts open as an alien emerges from his body, quickly fleeing to hide somewhere in the building. Afterward, Ripley cleans up and shaves her head, following the prison's policy. She then heads to the mess hall where she tries to thank Dylan for his heartfelt eulogy. However, Dylan warns her to keep her distance, admitting that he has done terrible things to women in the past. Despite his warning, Ripley chooses to sit down and have lunch with him anyway. Later, Ripley asks Clemens how he ended up as the prison doctor and if he has a criminal past, noticing that he also bears a barcode on his skin like the inmates. Clemens avoids the question and instead asks about the real reason for the autopsy. To divert his attention, Ripley chats about something else and keeps the conversation in another topic. Meanwhile, Murphy is working alone in an isolated tunnel when he discovers a shed skin. Suddenly, he hears a noise and assumes it's his dog, but when he investigates, he is horrified to encounter the alien. The creature attacks, spraying acid on his face, causing Murphy to stumble backward and fall into a massive fan, which instantly kills him. Soon after, Clemens is called to examine Murphy's remains. Andrews suspects that Murphy got too close to the fan while distracted, but Clemens notes that the fan was actually blowing in Murphy's direction. He also discovers a burn mark similar to the one Ripley noticed on the hypersleep pod. Seeking answers, Clemens goes to find Ripley and discovers her searching the wreckage for the flight recorder. When he informs her about Murphy's death, Ripley begins to suspect the presence of an alien. Clemens demands to know the full story, but Ripley insists on recovering the remains of the android first. Clemens directs her to the garbage dump, but he is unable to accompany her because he has a meeting with Andrews. When Clemens meets with Andrews, he is immediately reprimanded for allowing Ripley to wander around alone. Andrews also shares that they've received high-level communication from the company, indicating that Ripley is extremely important to the higher-ups, though Andrews isn't sure why. The two argue about how to handle the situation, and Andrews warns Clemens to behave or else he'll reveal Clemens' dark past to Ripley. Meanwhile, Boggs, Rains, and Golic are on a survey assignment, placing candles to measure various tunnels and rooms in the building. However, some candles in the distance keep getting blown out. Thinking it's just the wind, Rains goes to relight them, only to come face to face with the now fully grown xenomorph. The creature grabs Rains and begins attacking him. Boggs and Gollick hear his screams and rush to help, but when they see the alien, they flee back to the entrance where they find Rains' lifeless body. Suddenly, the alien attacks from above and kills Boggs with blood spraying onto Gollick, who panics and runs away. Meanwhile, Ripley searches the garbage dump and eventually finds the remains of the android. As she tries to leave, she's cornered by 3 prisoners who quickly jump on her, intending to you-know-what. Just in time, Dylan arrives and beats the inmates with a piece of steel, threatening to re-educate them. Before leaving, Ripley delivers a hard punch to one of her attackers' faces. Afterward, Ripley connects the remains of the android to a power supply in the infirmary and manages to reactivate him. Through the android's system, she accesses the ship's flight recorder and discovers that a fire caused their ejection from the ship, and that an alien had traveled with them when they escaped the planet. This information has been transmitted to the network, so the company is already aware of it. The android, in great pain, pleads for mercy, and Ripley compassionately disconnects him permanently. At that moment, Gollick is dragged into the infirmary, frantically insisting that he didn't kill anyone and that a dragon was responsible. Andrews and the others dismiss his claims as the ravings of a madman, but Dylan stands up for him, pointing out that Gollick has never been known to lie. Ripley overhears the commotion and steps in to confirm Gollick's story, but Andrews remains skeptical. They hold a meeting in his office, where Ripley shares everything she knows about the aliens. Unfortunately, Andrews reveals that the prison is severely under-equipped, with only some knives and fire axes available as weapons. Still unconvinced by her story, Andrews confines Ripley to the infirmary until the rescue ship arrives. Later in the infirmary, Ripley starts feeling unwell, prompting Clemens to give her another injection. Gollick, nearby, ominously comments that she'll die soon too. To take her mind off things, Clemens finally confesses that he was once a prisoner himself. His downfall began with a medicine addiction that led him to make a fatal medical mistake, resulting in several deaths. When the prison was converted into a lead shielding factory and the inmate population was reduced, Clemens chose to stay, knowing he wouldn't find work as a doctor elsewhere. Suddenly, a shadow appears behind the curtain and the alien emerges, killing Clemens in an instant. The creature then turns its attention to Ripley, cornering her against a wall. But after getting a closer look at her, the alien unexpectedly retreats, disappearing into the ceiling and taking Clemens' body with it. Terrified, Ripley rushes to the mess hall where Andrews is trying to organize a search party for Boggs and Rains. She warns them that the alien is already among them, but Andrews dismisses her claims. As he attempts to silence her, the alien strikes, snatching Andrews from above. Moments later, blood drips from the vent, leaving no doubt about what just happened. After the initial panic subsides, the prisoners gather in the assembly area, arguing about who should take over as leader. Ripley interrupts to share what she knows about the aliens, noting that this one behaves a bit differently. The lack of weapons and a surveillance system makes planning difficult, and Morse becomes furious, blaming Ripley for bringing the alien to the prison. Dylan silences him, and the group agrees to listen to Ripley. Ripley asks for a floor plan and notices a large network of tunnels and a toxic waste containment unit that can be completely sealed off. She also finds barrels of highly combustible material stored behind a thick steel door. They decide to use that material to flush the alien out of the tunnels and trap it in the containment unit indefinitely. The inmates quickly start preparations, mopping the tunnels with fuel and searching for working batteries to power the flashlight that will signal the plan. Smoking is strictly forbidden, as even a small spark could cause an explosion. While working in the tunnels, they come across areas with holes burned by the alien's acid. One inmate, while carrying a ladder, accidentally drops his flare but retrieves it before it can cause an accident. Unfortunately, this distraction gives the alien the chance to attack him by surprise. The flare falls and ignites the fuel, triggering a massive explosion that sets off a fire and kills several prisoners. Some men try to escape, but the flames catch them, burning them alive. Ripley and Dylan manage to save as many people as possible, and someone eventually activates the sprinklers. Though the fire is extinguished, the group is now much smaller. Afterward, the survivors move through the tunnels to collect the bodies. As they argue over what to do next, Ripley starts feeling unwell and returns to the wrecked ship to use the biomedical scanner. Aaron helps her operate the machine, and after a quick scan, they are shocked to discover that Ripley has been impregnated by the alien. This explains why the alien didn't attack her; it's protecting its offspring. Ripley then asks Aaron to send a message to the company, warning them that the entire base has become toxic and they should stay away. Aaron is confused as the rescue ship is their only hope. Ripley explains that the company intends to take the alien to Earth to use it as a weapon. When Aaron refuses to send the message, Ripley furiously shakes him, but he remains steadfast. She decides to leave and search for the alien herself. At that moment, Aaron receives a message from the rescue ship stating that they'll arrive in 2 hours and that the highest priority is to keep Ripley quarantined. With a flashlight in hand, Ripley navigates the dark corridors, following every strange noise in search of the alien. When she finally thinks she spots the creature, she strikes with a rod only to realize she mistook a rusty pipe for the alien's head, and the noise was just bugs inside. Suddenly, the real alien appears right behind her. Moments later, Dylan is startled by a presence, but it's just Ripley. She explains that she found the alien, and it didn't attack her because of her pregnancy. She also realizes from the scan that the alien inside her is a queen, which means it can produce thousands more aliens. Ripley asks Dylan to end her life since she won't survive the birth anyway. Dylan prepares to kill her but hesitates at the last second, pointing out that Ripley's immunity to the alien could be used to their advantage. Ripley agrees to fight, but she makes Dylan promise to end her life after they defeat the alien. Dylan then gathers the inmates, and Ripley explains that the company considered her old crew and even the Marines as expendable, so they won't hesitate to sacrifice criminals. Everyone agrees to fight and devises a plan. Some men will act as bait to lure the alien into the corridors of the lead works, closing off all the entrances until they trap it in the mold. While the others prepare the doors and switches, Aaron sneaks away. Dylan explains to Ripley that the structure is old and hasn't been used for 5 years, so some parts may not work, meaning they only have one shot to get it right. Morse tries to close the last door, but it jams, and the alien attacks and kills an inmate. Another prisoner distracts the creature, triggering a chase. As they race through the corridors, the others close doors to steer the alien in the right direction. However, the maze-like design confuses everyone, and they struggle to keep track of which doors to close. The alien even breaks through a window at one point. After losing track of the creature, an inmate ventures out to find it and lures it back with a flare, restarting the chase. Despite closing more doors, 2 more men are killed. One inmate panics and nearly activates the piston too early, but Ripley stops him just in time. Outside, the ship carrying the company workers finally lands, and Aaron greets them, informing them that Ripley is in the furnace area. The group enters the facility, carrying a large steel cage. Meanwhile, Dylan enters the tunnels and finds the alien killing another prisoner. He drags the body away from the creature and drops it near the mold as bait. The alien approaches, but when a prisoner activates the piston, the alien senses the trap and drags the body back into the tunnels without stepping into the mold. With only 5 minutes left before the piston shuts the mold off, the team frantically searches the corridors for the alien. As Ripley continues to discover more bodies, an inmate runs as fast as he can, only for the alien to grab and kill him before he can reach the mold. Ripley then arrives with a flare to save the other prisoner and struggles with the creature, trying to provoke it into attacking her. At that moment, Dylan arrives and pulls Ripley away as she screams, causing the alien to follow them, driven by its instinct to protect its offspring. This finally lures the creature into the mold, and Morse quickly closes the door to trap it. While Morse runs to the lead platform, Ripley tries to stay in the mold, but Dylan drags her away, promising to end her life later as she wished. As they begin to climb out, they notice the alien is following them. Dylan decides to stay behind in the mold to keep the alien there. While the creature attacks Dylan, Ripley climbs out and instructs Morse to pour the hot lead into the mold, engulfing both the alien and Dylan in molten metal. Thinking the ordeal is over, Morse starts to celebrate, but the alien emerges from the mold and starts chasing after Ripley. She quickly begins climbing a series of chains, but the alien pursues her with alarming speed. Just then, Morse shouts a reminder about the sprinkler system. Ripley leaps to activate it, and the water pours down on the alien, causing its body to crack from the sudden cooling until it finally explodes. Ripley joins Morse on the platform, but they are suddenly surrounded by Aaron and the company employees. To Ripley's shock, she sees the same face as the android from her last crew, but this man is actually human, the designer who modeled the androids after himself. He promises they'll remove the alien fetus from Ripley's body and destroy it, but Ripley doesn't trust him. She closes the fence between the platform and the group. As Morse tries to move away, one of the guards shoots him in the leg. Realizing Ripley was right, Aaron strikes the designer in the back with a pipe, prompting the soldiers to shoot and kill him. Meanwhile, Ripley asks Morse to help her one last time. He moves the platform over the boiling furnace. Determined to end everything, Ripley jumps off the platform. At that moment, the alien bursts from her chest, but Ripley clutches it tightly, ensuring that both she and the creature die as they fall into the flames. In the aftermath, the scientists bandage Morse and take him with them. In the wreckage of the ship, Ripley's recording from her first adventure can be heard, declaring that she is the last survivor. Alien Resurrection opens with what seems to be the teeth of a terrifying alien, but it's revealed to be just a bug that gets squashed by a man sitting in a small space pod. This pod is part of a large spaceship called the USS Auriga, a medical research vessel traveling through the vastness of space. Inside the ship, we catch a glimpse of a human-like body floating in a cylinder filled with liquid, closely examined by a group of scientists. One of them, named Getaman, is performing surgery on a female clone known as Ripley, carefully removing an alien embryo from her. As another scientist, Dr. Wren, begins to stitch up the incision, Ripley suddenly wakes up and grabs his hand with surprising strength. Next, we see Ripley sealed inside a thin white bag lying at the bottom of a chamber. During a medical examination, she attacks Dr. Wren, but an electric gun quickly subdues her. The tests are meant to check her learning responses. Later, the ship's commander, General Perez, discusses Ripley's progress with Gettman and Dr. Wren. He's not pleased with the results and is considering terminating her, even though she is the 8th clone they've created. The three of them then proceed to another chamber, where these morons observe an alien and have yet to learn their lesson. Now we find Ripley sitting down for a meal with Gettman. Curious about her situation, she asks how she ended up there. Gettman explains that they cloned her from blood samples after her death. Ripley warns him and Dr. Wren that the alien creature they remove from her body will eventually kill everyone on the spaceship, despite their belief that they can train it. Meanwhile, a different spaceship, the commercial freighter known as the Betty, is approaching the USS Auriga. Inside, Captain Elgin is chatting over the PA system with his co-pilot Hillard, while also speaking to Vries, a crew member who relies on an electric mobility machine due to being a double amputee. Vries is engaging in small talk with Call, another female crew member. As they prepare for docking, Elgin talks to Christie, who tests some concealed weapons strapped to his arms. In the workshop area, Johnner, the final crew member, is fooling around as Call and Vries work nearby. After the Betty docks with the USS Auriga, the crew enters a receiving area where they are checked for contraband and weapons, which are strictly forbidden on board. Meanwhile, Perez and Elgin discuss a shady business deal involving a large sum of money in exchange for some cargo. Elgin mentions that his crew would like to stay on the Auriga for a few days, and questions the legality of the operations taking place on the ship. Perez, however, is reluctant to reveal any details, and simply instructs Elgin to keep his crew out of restricted areas. We then see the cargo, which turns out to be 7 people, 6 men and 1 woman, anesthetized in pods and taken to the medical lab. These pods are secured inside glass compartments, with alien egg pods positioned directly in front of their faces. As one of the men begins to wake up, he screams, fully aware of the horrifying fate that awaits him. In the meantime, Ripley, in a large open area, casually plays with a basketball. Some of the Betty's crew members enter, and Johnner approaches Ripley trying to take the ball from her. In response, Ripley strikes him, sending him through the air. Christie retaliates by striking Ripley in the face with a barbell, causing her to bleed slightly from the nose as she quickly knocks Christie to the floor just as Gettman and Dr. Wren enter the room. When Wren calls Ripley by name, Call's face registers surprise. Calmly, Ripley wipes her nose and flicks the blood onto the floor where it begins to corrode the surface, though no one else seems to notice. In another area, Gettman is inspecting one of the compartments housing juvenile aliens. As he teases one of them, it lunges at the glass, prompting Gettman to punish the alien by purging the compartment with freezing gas. Meanwhile, Call is sitting with Johnner and Christie, growing bored. They tell her to leave, so she decides to explore other parts of the Auriga. She eventually finds her way into Ripley's compartment, planning to kill Ripley and the thing inside her, but soon realizes that the alien has already been removed. Call then asks Ripley for help in stopping the aliens, but Ripley tells her it's already too late. As Call exits the compartment, she is arrested by Wren and taken to the mess hall to join her fellow crew members. Once there, Wren accuses them all of being terrorists, but Call explains that her actions were independent. Despite this, Wren insists that they are all going to die. In response, Elgin signals Christie, who quickly shoots most of the guards with his concealed weapons. Elgin takes control, capturing Dr. Wren and the last remaining guard, DeStefano. At the same time, Gettman is monitoring the mess hall scene via CCTV and calls for security, but there is no response. Meanwhile, in the alien enclosure, 2 of the juvenile aliens start fighting and kill the third one, using its acidic blood to melt the metal floor, allowing them to escape. As Gettman enters their enclosure, one of the aliens reaches up through the hole and pulls him down to his likely death. Meanwhile, a security guard enters the alien enclosure, but the alien floods the room with freezing gas, killing the guard. Ripley, still locked in her chamber, hears the commotion and realizes what's happening. Elgin decides that the crew must return to the Betty, so they quickly leave the mess hall. We see Vries in another area, listening to a PA announcement about unauthorized entry into restricted parts of the ship. The order to evacuate the ship is given. Meanwhile, Ripley is in her chamber, watching as the main entry door is being violently pounded from the outside. Realizing the danger, Ripley begins searching for a way to escape. As the situation escalates, one of the escape pods carrying some of the Auriga's crew is launched. Meanwhile, Vries spots an alien through the grill above him. He readies his weapon and takes a shot, managing to wound the creature. After this, Perez is stunned and is killed by an alien. As the crew of the Betty search for a way out, Elgin becomes separated from the group. He moves cautiously, aware that danger is near. Suddenly, an alien reaches up from below and pulls down the section of flooring where Elgin is standing, causing him to fall through, allowing the alien to kill him. The remaining crew members discover Elgin's upper body lodged in the floor grill as an alien approaches them. They quickly flee, but soon find themselves trapped at a dead end. The alien, sensing something, examines Elgin's body closely. Just then, a weapon is fired from below, straight through Elgin's body, killing the alien. To their surprise, Ripley emerges from the hole below. Johnner, filled with anger, wants to kill Ren, but Ren quickly informs them that there are 12 more aliens still on the loose. The crew hands Ripley's gun to DeStefano, and Christie firmly tells everyone that they must stick together if they want to escape. They proceed down a hallway when suddenly they all turn to see an elevator about to open. Bracing themselves for the worst, they aim their guns at the elevator doors. But as the doors slide open, they're shocked to see Vries still alive, sitting in his motorized chair. They can hardly believe it. DeStefano suggests they take the freight elevator down to the loading dock to reach the Betty. Ripley mentions that she can feel the ship moving. DeStefano then informs them that the ship is on autopilot heading back to home base, which just so happens to be Earth. As they walk, Johnner asks Ripley about her past experiences with the aliens and what she did. With a smile, Ripley simply replies, "I died." Along the way, Ripley notices a door marked 1 to 7. Remembering the tattoo on her arm, she realizes she's number 8. She enters the laboratory where she finds glass cylinders containing dead, deformed clones of herself, each one part human and part alien. At the end of the room, she discovers one clone that is still alive on a table. Overwhelmed with shock and sadness, Ripley uses a flamethrower to mercifully end the clone's suffering, as well as everything else in the room. They enter another room and are confronted with the grisly sight of dead bodies, victims of the alien pods. It's clear that the alien embryos have violently burst out from their chests. As they continue searching, they find one man, Purvis, who is still alive. He's terrified and disoriented, only able to recall being in cryogenic sleep on his way to Zerum, another planet where he was supposed to work at a nickel refinery. The crew wants to bring Purvis along, but Ripley warns them that he still has an alien embryo inside him. The man panics, struggling to comprehend what's inside him. Ripley explains that there's a monster growing inside his chest, and when it bursts out, it will kill him. Despite the danger, they decide to take him along. They climb down into the cooling tanks, where Vries is forced to leave his motorized chair behind. Christie carries Vries on his back as they wade through waist-deep water in the cooling chamber. When they reach the end, Ren informs them that they'll have to swim 90 feet through the kitchen to reach the freight elevator. As they swim, Johnner looks back and sees 2 aliens swimming towards them. He shoots and kills the one furthest away, but the other alien grabs Hillard by the foot. Ripley watches helplessly as Hillard is taken by the alien. When they finally surface at the end, they find the area covered with a web-like fiber. They struggle to break through, only to discover that the chamber they've entered is filled with alien pods. Suddenly, one of the alien embryos leaps and attaches itself to Ripley's face. She plunges back underwater, fighting to remove it. Whilst another alien swims toward them, the crew holds their breath and dives back under the water. Christie fires his grenade launcher from below, and the grenades explode inside the chamber above them. As the crew climbs above the chamber, Call hands her weapon to Ren, but instead of helping, Ren shoots Call, causing her to fall into the water. Ren then opens the door and escapes, quickly fleeing. The alien launches itself out of the water, latching onto the ladder below Christie, who has Vries on his back. Vries's gun jams, but Christie manages to shoot at the alien. However, the alien spits acid into Christie's face, blinding him. Unable to hold on, Christie starts to let go, but Vries grabs the ladder in time. Desperate, Christie calls out to Johnner for help. Johnner hangs upside down from above and shoots the alien until its head explodes. Vries struggles to hold on because the alien's claw is still wrapped around Christie's foot. Realizing the danger, Christie makes the tough decision to cut himself free so that Vries can continue climbing. Christie and the dead alien fall back into the water. Surprisingly, the door suddenly opens, and Call is standing there, revealing that she is an android. Although the door to the control room is locked, the crew realizes that Call can access the mainframe and give them access to the Betty. Call hesitates, explaining to Ripley that she can't stop the Auriga from landing on Earth. Ripley suggests a new plan. Once the others have escaped, Call can crash the ship into Earth, killing all the aliens in the process. Call agrees and instructs the computer to speed up the ship, reducing the impact time to just 43 minutes. She then opens all the doors leading to the Betty and starts it up, preparing for their escape from the Auriga. Meanwhile, Ren is nearly aboard the Betty, but Call stops him by announcing over the PA system that there's an intruder on level 1, directing all aliens to proceed there. Panicked, Ren runs away while they prepare for their escape, whilst Call and Ripley briefly discuss the moral implications of trying to save humanity. The crew heads toward the dock, which is 100 yards away, but they soon realize they're dangerously close to the nest. As they move forward, Ripley listens carefully near the floor and warns Call that the aliens are nearby. Suddenly, the floor beneath Ripley gives way and she falls through, landing directly on the alien mother. Purvis, sensing the urgency, takes Call's hand and insists they must leave immediately. Meanwhile, Ripley lies on the mother, as if she's somehow connected to it. The rest of the crew enters the Betty, and Johnner is about to place Purvis into the cryogenic pod when Ren suddenly bursts in, shooting Purvis in the shoulder. Ren then holds his gun to Call's head, ordering everyone to drop their weapons. As Purvis lies on the floor, the alien embryo inside him begins to push its way out of his chest. Despite the intense pain, Purvis gets up and advances on Ren, even as Ren continues to shoot him. Purvis grabs Ren, pulling him backward against his chest. In a gruesome moment, the alien bursts free from Purvis's chest, going straight through Ren's head. In response, Johnner, DeStefano, and Call quickly shoot the alien embryo. In the meantime, with the alien mother encapsulating some of the crew members in her web, Getaman, caught in the web, speaks to Ripley, who suddenly becomes aware of her surroundings. She watches in horror as a new crossbreed of aliens emerges from the mother's womb. This newborn offspring turns on the mother, striking her and breaking away part of her head. It then turns to face Ripley, whimpering like a newborn baby. The newborn approaches Ripley and licks her face. Getaman is thrilled by this, but his excitement is short-lived as the newborn suddenly bites him, removing the top of his skull. Seizing this opportunity, Ripley makes her move to escape. As she runs toward the Betty, the crew inside prepares to depart. They spot Ripley on the monitor approaching the ship, open the rear hatch, and she leaps across the gap, safely entering the Betty. Ripley takes control of the ship but notices that the hatch is still open. Call goes to investigate, and as she attempts to close the hatch, she finds the newborn behind her. The newborn closes the hatch itself, allowing the Betty to finally depart, leaving the Auriga as it hurtles toward Earth. DeStefano goes to help Call, but the newborn kills him. Ripley, realizing something is wrong, goes to investigate and finds the newborn holding Call. Ripley calmly tells the newborn to leave Call alone, then approaches and gently caresses it. She then uses the newborn's sharp teeth to cut her own hand and throws her blood onto a nearby window. The acidic blood begins to melt the glass, causing an air leak. As the air escapes through the hole, the newborn is sucked towards it, screaming as it is gradually pulled into the hole. Finally, the newborn is completely sucked out, getting rid of it. The scene shifts to the Auriga, just seconds away from impacting Earth. It crashes into the planet and explodes in a massive fireball. Meanwhile, Johnner and Vries struggle to keep control of the Betty as it enters Earth's atmosphere. Ripley and Call hold on together, looking out through a window as they witness a beautiful sunrise breaking through the clouds while the Betty touches down on Earth. The moment is bittersweet. As they sit together on the ground, the scene around them is one of despair and destruction. The Earth is barren and lifeless, with a desolate view. The Eiffel Tower lies broken in half, and not a single soul is in sight. Thanks for staying until the end. This project took me and my team hundreds of hours to complete and would greatly appreciate some love. Thank you so much for staying, and I'll see you on the next one.